In the middle of the meeting, the young man slams his fist down and hard stops the push to start a war against his own people. That mage couldn't help but notice it. Now he looked more like a thief, snatching up the nobles' lands after they got battered by the Demon King's army. Hearing those words, the hero captain's rage detonated. He was furious that someone dared to brand him a vile thief. The Order of Schwartz was born to smash the Demon King's army, and now it's officially grown into a real knightly organization. While Captain Low Egg, Joshua's childhood friend, tore through battles and rose so high, he earned the title of Count for his sheer worth. From that moment on, everything flipped. Day after day, nobles piled into the palace. Banquet after banquet erupted with noise. Riches got flaunted in plain sight. Nights dissolved into beautiful women's company, and those wine glasses never, ever hit empty. Joe insisted this was an all-out invasion, but the Count snapped at him to shut up. When Logue said he'd invited Joe to this meeting, because he was the oldest in the order and the head of production, the only thing he got back was non-stop complaints, so the boy snapped out Joe's name at full volume. Joe made it clear he'd never use his magic to create anything that could hurt the innocent. What Joe tells him slams the world sideways. He's so stunned he blurts that the guy should come back as his ex again. That young man flat out said he won't serve any organization that preys on innocent people. The egg slowly slipped downward into the darkness, like it knew the next moment would be chaos. Joe realized it was time to lock in on the Demon King's army, because right now, they're the ones standing in their way, not the humans. Log's voice tore through the quiet as he yelled Joe's name at the top of his lungs. Pointing straight at him, the boy shot him a fearless look and declared, loud and clear, that he didn't need him around at all. Snatching the sword, Logue muttered that he pretty much spends his days cranking out nothing but trash. The sword clattered onto the table. He spat that kind of useless slop won't even slow down a single horde of demons. They all burst into laughter at that guy, backing Loa as they jeered. That magician just steals our cash. Use that same money and you'll get way better weapons. The young man lined in and demanded, so you're telling me the order doesn't need me anymore. Once they agreed, Log snapped that he didn't want people who wouldn't listen, then barked at them to get out, right now. Those words punched straight through the young man's heart and tore open his soul. In Joe's head, Logan's words flared up again. He kept praising Joe's gun and swore it was the best. Logan's words hit and the boy nodded. Got it. Everything will go exactly as you want. Joshua crept in by the door, waiting in the shadows. The other kid's mockery slammed into him so hard that sadness and despair filled his whole soul. On the long continent of Medius, the north is ruled by humans while the south burns with demon power, and when Joshua left the order behind, he sprinted straight to the southern front, hungry for fresh work. The boy clenched his jaw and stared ahead, thinking, I've got to figure out how to earn a living. No excuses. This young man wields the magic of creation, mixing different elements to forge almost anything he can imagine inside a special dimension, as long as he's got the right materials ready. With almost everything he needed already set, the boy grabbed just a backpack and marched off with his friend Visa. Out of nowhere, something bizarre hit the scene, and the guy instantly felt it in his bones. Suddenly, a man burst into view before him, then slammed forward like he had somewhere to be. Right nearby, his eyes locked onto a girl, injured, shaking, barely upright, and trying to bolt before anyone caught her. Joe lunged in front of the girl, grilling her on what dragged her to this place. Close by, a shout ripped through the air. Someone ordered her to stop, spitting that she was nothing but a half-demon with pure contempt. In the crowd, the yelling never stopped. Everyone stared at her like she was a prize, and they hissed that with the wolf skin on her, she'd become the perfect trophy to sell for a fortune. But first, they said her worth had to be tested, and Joe instantly realized he'd stumbled into a bunch of slave traders. The boy demanded they stop, hard, straight, and without room for argument. With his hand thrust out to shield her, the young man boldly demanded to know if they had any idea slavery wasn't allowed here. Those hooligans swaggered up and demanded to know who he was. Then they threatened to shove him into the other world with everyone else. The boy unleashed magic and swallowed everything around him in one wild burst. Their weapon vanished without a trace, somewhere out there, and no one knows where. The slave trader went wide-eyed and demanded where all the axes had vanished, while Joe had already smashed every single one. With one snap of his hand, the young man hurled the villain's axes into another dimension, then came back and reforged them himself into roaring, brand-new weapons. Magic surged to life inside Joshua's silvery steel arrows. They loosed a volley of arrows, driving every shot straight at those people. The girl stared in awe as the young man blitzed through every opponent in seconds. Old fireworks from past matches crashed through Joe's mind. Man, it had been ages since he stepped into the ring, and good news, the opponents this time didn't look that scary. That captured wolf has already busted free. He spun to the girl and asked how she was doing, and she nodded, "Okay," thanking him with real sincerity. The moment the girl heard she'd been rescued, nausea hit like a truck. She clutched her side and swayed, so Joe rushed in, told her to stay put, and promised he'd help her. The boy didn't even pause. He swung straight into healing magic. Every cut and scratch on her body slowly sealed up, until her skin was spotless again, no marks left behind. The young man confessed he didn't have much skill with treatment, and he warned, "The legs should heal up okay, but that cut on my abdomen could rip open again." He skillfully churned out high-quality fabric goods with pure craft. Joe leaned in and asked if she could bandage the wound, and the injured person nodded, like that was the only thing keeping them standing. After he finished wrapping the wound, the young man yanked the knot tight on the bandage. The stranger's eyes shone with gratitude as she admitted she'd reached out too late, then said, "I'm Elijah," and finally confessed, with a trembling honesty, "I'm a demon." After Elijah proved he really remembered her name, the kid's grin widened, and he leaned in to introduce himself, Joshua. Right as she pushed herself up, she thanked Joe for the help. Then a sudden, searing pain struck. She stumbled, and she crashed straight into him, but Joe snapped into action and caught her in his arms. Seeing her weakness, he snapped to the truth. She was bleeding, and it was getting worse. "You could get hurt on the way home," he warned, then insisted on escorting her all the way to her doorstep. She rushed in to apologize and blurt out her objections, but the guy cut her off out of nowhere. He coaxed her nerves down, flashed a confident grin, shoved the backpack into Visa's hands, and made it crystal clear there was nothing to fear. Jill scooped Elijah up and carried him in her arms. Instantly, embarrassment flared across the girl's cheeks. Embarrassed, the young man blurted out an apology and nervously asked if he should have carried her on his back. But Ilya only flashed a warm smile and told him everything was perfectly fine just the way it was. When he saw the bodies, Joshua's mind snapped back, and he realized he'd almost forgotten their gear. With one hand, the boy clamped her close, and with the other, he scooped up every last thing they had and shoved it into an extra dimension. The girl demanded to know what he'd just done and what he'd done right before it, and the boy grinned. "That was creation magic. I hid everything in a magical storage." "All right, time to grab your stuff and hit the road." The girl told Mr. Joshua, "This is our home village," and the young man, stunned beyond words, blurted out, "Wait, are you sure?" The guards practically lost their minds when they showed up. One of Asilia's subordinates strode up and declared, breathless, that everyone was looking for her. "No hesitation," she snapped. "He's a man," then drove the spear straight into the boy's neck like it was fate. Without a second thought, the girl blurted, "Let the lady go, right now." Elijah ordered Matt to pull back, then pointed to that young man and said he was the one who had saved her life. When they pressed her again about her husband, she just waved it away and said she doesn't buy into that kind of stuff. Ever since Ilya opened her mouth, nobody trusts a word she says. The warriors swarmed in on Joshua without mercy, jabbing their spears so close and relentless that he couldn't wriggle free from the tightening ring. He refused to fight and gently lowered her to the ground, and the moment her feet touched, gratitude hit pure, sincere thanks glowing in her eyes. After he apologized for his cruelty, he tried to walk out, but she yanked him back because she still hadn't thanked him and demanded he stay. She gasped and demanded to know why he was apologizing when she was the one who'd messed up, because deep down, she'd never even dared to stand up for herself. Her name spilled from his lips, like it was the only truth he couldn't hold back. Suddenly, a piercing scream tore through the distance. Someone was sprinting in to shout that danger was charging straight toward them. The young man told them how one of their own charged headfirst at an armored boar, then got slammed and badly hurt by its razor-sharp horn. Everyone there snapped their heads and remembered the warnings over and over. Stay clear of trouble with those people, or you're walking straight into a fight. Mind-blowing, right in front of him loomed the legendary armored boar. The one stories swear is unbeatable, and the legends say it takes at least a dozen hunters to bring down a beast that big. The girls shouted Joshua's name, cutting through the air like a warning. With a grateful heart, Ilya begged them to stay in the village so he could finally thank them properly. Joe finally confessed, voice trembling, that he only had the most basic healing magic, but he swore he'd do everything in his power to help. Every step toward the home where the wounded person was hiding made the tension snap tighter. Crammed in a swirling crowd, the lady shoved through the noise, burst up to the young man, and demanded to know how he was doing. With a quick, self-deprecating laugh in his voice, the man apologized to Ilya. He'd tried to get great meat for the kids, but he just couldn't pull it off. For the sake of his kids, he barreled straight at the armored boar without a single thought about the danger. When the wounded demon snapped in shock at seeing a human, the the woman shot forward and demanded he calm down, right now. Shaken to the core, the girl choked out how this man had saved her, then asked with trembling caution how he was holding up. Joe said the wound was bad, and right now they had to stop the bleeding before it spiraled into something far worse. After weighing it all, the young man finally got it. The treatment he needed might sting a little longer, but it could keep the wound from closing up too fast. Joshua said the bleeding won't stop with what they've got, so he urged cauterization, but he needs his friend to help him pull it off. They spun to Viz, grilling him for advice and demanding his honest take. Without a single pause, the young man happily handed over his slime, and the boy lit up, thanking him with all his heart. Seizing the opening, I rushed to mix a healing potion. After they wrapped up every last prep, the young man stepped forward and shouted that they were finally ready to start. Right from the start, a warning thundered out. Pain was coming no matter what, and the patients were told instantly. He blinked in shock, like the pain had vanished into thin air. The bleeding stopped out of nowhere, and the boy's jaw dropped in pure disbelief. Joe laid it out. That mucus potion in medicine acts like a living bandage. Enthralled, Elijah leaned in and demanded to know if that wound was healed yet. Everyone kept talking about that insane chance of surviving a near-fatal blow, and the girl, she was just as shocked as the rest. After making sure he was still alive, the man spun to Joe and poured out his real gratitude. They stared at the young man, and pure gratitude lit up their faces. She was flooded with gratitude for her boyfriend's steady support, but she couldn't find the right words until he just waved it off and told her not to stress over something so small. The satellite ordered Ilya to stay put and heal, calling that wound the top priority, and the girl waved it off, grinning like nothing hurt. She claimed she felt great and said she planned to square things up. Suddenly, fresh weakness crashed over her again, and her name echoed through the freezing air. She told her to take a break, but she dug in her heels and demanded payment for every bit of help she gave. She swore she'd take care of him, doing everything in her power to make sure he never slips out of her life. They shipped the girl off on vacation so she could finally power back up. Surprise flashed across her face. Before she even had time to think, she stared at the young man and her lips parted like she was about to blurt out the truth. Met introduced herself, then thanked them from the bottom of her heart for saving Ilya and her friend too. The young man just shrugged like, "No thanks, I'm out of here." But the girl cut him off, hauling him back to remind him of the princess's request. Medu told everyone that in their tribe, the princess's word is law. No arguing, no debates, end of story. Joe leaned in and asked if she was really sure, because come on, he was just an ordinary guy. She shot back that people may not care for others much, but they end up fearing them even more than they ever hate them. Even with everything happening, the girl couldn't shake one thought. He was nothing like any ordinary person. Yunka hesitates for a second, but before she can stop herself, another request is already fully formed in her head. Teeth clenched tight, she swallowed her nerves and barely managed to ask for what she wanted. Suddenly, she clamped onto his hands with a vice-like grip. Met refused to let it go. He demanded someone teach him at least a little magic. Monsters and people both kept their distance, except him, the only one who didn't hesitate to save anyone caught in trouble. Monsters go nuts for demon horns, because they're the real treasure they'll kill for. The girl offered him her horn, or even her whole body, calling it only fair, but the young man snapped it down right away and demanded she stop. Naming her, the young man admitted he didn't know magic well enough to even teach her. The boy insisted he could whip up all kinds of things, and when she finally heard it, the girl was blown away. A real mage creator doesn't just cast spells, he forges all kinds of wild creations, one after another. Joshua's promise to shoulder the work of crafting what the village needed lit up Maddie's whole heart with real, unstoppable joy. Weapons everywhere sat broken and useless, like they'd been abandoned for years. The boy leaned in and inspected the weapon. Its handles were carved from branches, most of the tips were sharpened stone or bones, and every so often, dark obsidian glinted. The young man stared into the distance, deep in thought. When the boy asked how many villagers even used bows and slings, Met snapped back that nobody here likes them. Locals hunt the old way, stalking their prey close and striking with spears. Realizing what was at stake, the kid swore he'd forge a weapon anyone could wield. When Joe blurted out crossbow, the girl jerked back in pure confusion. She'd never even heard that word before. After declaring what he planned, he dove straight into building his crossbow. The girl froze, wondering if that random self-shot had somehow been handed down by the gods, but the boy only grinned, like, "She's asking that again." Because this wasn't divine at all, it was the magic of creation, and he urged her to grab the fresh weapon and swing boldly. Met leaned in, practically buzzing as he studied the crossbow. This thing looked like a bow and an axe had a baby, and right then he demanded, "So how do I use it?" Joe grinned and swore he'd show him everything with his own example. Joshua demanded Wiz drop the sticks for good. That guy grabbed the moment and declared he was about to open fire on them. Hearing that, the girl froze, doubt spilling out of her, because it felt absolutely unreal that he could land a hit from that far away. The young man casually swatted away every crossbow arrow, as if they couldn't even touch him. She stared in disbelief like, "No way, you actually hit it from that far," and Joe urged her to step up and give it a shot too. The boy pushed for a quick practice, then a hunt to test their skills, and the shy girl nodded quietly, like she was bracing for something big. The kids leaned in, wide-eyed and spellbound, watching every single moment unfold like magic. Her shot slammed into the target with deadly precision. That young girl grinned as she realized her shots had skyrocketed, and she couldn't stop staring at the weapon in pure fascination. The boy gave a proud nod too. 5 clean hits out of 10, and even more, they came one after another, an achievement that actually stunned him. She met him with a smug grin and bragged that she could wield almost any weapon, thanks to a special sign, and Joe shot back, stunned, that he'd never even heard of that kind of power. Marks are this one-of-a-kind gift you're born with, like a secret code on your soul. The swordsman's sign lets you sharpen your blade skills, while other symbols unlock strange, special abilities. But here's the twist. Their differences don't match how humans see things at all. Med stood there and insisted Ashura was omnipotent. So if that was true, then she had to be armed with unreal, game-breaking powers. Before he could even finish, she blurted out that her sign was straight-up incredible, and the young man guessed she was really talking up his own combat skills. He shot his eyebrows up in shock, then said, "All right, now we've got to test it for real." The boy asked if there was any light entertainment around, and the girl grinned like, "Sure, though the only wild boars I know are armored, and yeah, sometimes they get hunted too." The young man nodded, saying those boars are perfect for the first hunt, so Met didn't argue a single bit. Joshua claimed that carving up boars with that spear would be a cakewalk. Then he paused and snapped the question. If something charged too close, was that really her best weapon? Met admitted she could use a spear, but most fights, she relied on a stick in her hands. Her words hit straight in his chest, and he finally decided to flip the way he'd been doing things for her. That resourceful boy crafted a mace for her, and when she snatched it up, her eyes widened, surprised, then thrilled, because she knew it was the perfect gift. Conflicting feelings churned inside her. She stared at the weapon, blown away and kind of awestruck all at once. Met spotted that the whole setup looks like metal rods, like wings bolted onto a migrating bird, and just like that, the fear evaporated completely. Joshua's face lit up with real joy at Met's approval. At last, the farewell words hit the air. Now it's time to break free and move on. After sizing everything up, she spotted it. One boar, dead still in the middle of the clearing, so buried in its meal it didn't even sense a soul nearby, and she was told the hunt would kick off with that one. He realized his head needed to be put in nice and gentle, so he asked her carefully if she could slide it inside. Then the girl just grinned, full confidence, and said, "Trust me." Clutching the weapon with white-knuckled fury, the predator leveled its aim and fired at the wild creature. A pinpoint strike sent a spark of pure joy crashing through the girl like lightning. Joy burst through my chest, because this task felt weirdly easy to handle. Smiling through the tension, Joshua locked eyes with her. His warning to dig deeper echoed through the room, and Met didn't hesitate. He agreed right away. In the blink of an eye, the mushrooms located them and herded several wild boars into a tight group. She couldn't wrap her head around how she'd taken down 3 bulls so effortlessly. Staring at the weapon with shock she refused to hide, while the young man quietly urged her to lower her voice. Just as they were about to apologize, a massive shadow suddenly swallowed the space above their heads. In front of him, a towering boar clanked into view, fully armored like a walking war machine. The girl swallowed the blame for herself, and the boy snapped back, swearing it was probably the scent of blood that drew him in. While apologizing, Met urged the guy to bolt, swearing she'd pull the danger onto herself. Then he grabbed her, telling her to slow down and not panic before anything even happened. When the girl asked if he could handle it, Joe snapped back. The Demon King's army is already moving to crush them. He swore it all started back then, when he and a friend, still kids, dared to stand up to one of them. The young man shot back with total confidence. His moves are simple, and I'll end this fast. The moment he stops the guy cold, the girl just has to swing the iron-handled mace and smash him on the head, so she nodded, ready to go. Back when he was just a kid, he'd already fought through things like this, so if he can't handle it now, it's proof he's fallen weaker than that younger version of himself. The worried friend shot a warning at him right away. Be careful. He soothed her with calm confidence, then started indulging. Joshua carved sharp stone tips and hurled them with brutal force straight at the pine's head. Suddenly, the boy hurled a sand-stuffed stone at him and barked at Maida, time to move right now. So the girl clenched her resolve and charged forward. She snapped up out of nowhere, whipped the mace around, and slammed it into the tusked monster. Then the whole area filled with its agony-filled roar. Victory hit him like a wave of joy, and the young man couldn't stop smiling. The boar crumpled, getting smacked down so hard it hit the ground with a brutal thud. Her heart still couldn't believe it. She'd actually beaten that armored boar. Joe finally owned up. Every word was true, and the moment he did, they tore into him and beat him senseless. The young man realized, plain and honest beats out clever every time, even when the Demon King's warriors are playing dirty. Now she's felt the crossbow and the mace in real life, like the true power straight to the bone. Met's heart raced as he stared, absolutely stunned by how brutally impressive those weapons were. The sudden answer hit the young man like a wave. Pure shock froze him in place. It hit me hard when an old friend totally ignored all his hard work, sneered at his weapon like it meant nothing, and then, right to his face, called him a freeloader. Joshua couldn't forget the last time someone looked him in the eye and thanked him for everything he'd done. Suddenly, the girl snapped his name, yanking him out of his head. He blurted out a clumsy apology, then rushed to say how happy he was just hearing her voice. Joe swore he'd forge even more weapons for them. With a bright grin, the girl urged him to try something different, swearing she'd be insanely grateful. While he lounged in his room, Ilya stared out the window, drinking in every moment unfolding outside. Met realized the other clan members could team up with him to hunt and get advice too, and the boy just grinned back and nodded like it was a done deal. That reaction to his move lit up the boy with real, heart-thumping happiness. The loot they dragged back to the clan blew everyone away. People stood there in pure awe, shocked that it had somehow crushed every enemy on its own. Shutting down every doubt, she stood tall and declared she'd done it all by herself, thanks to Arbat Joshua. Everyone stared at Arbat in disbelief, completely clueless about the monster abilities he was about to unleash. Ms. Ilya couldn't wrap her head around the fact that he'd risk everything for their sake. Like, how could he possibly do that? The girl didn't know how to ever repay him for everything he'd done, and Joe just shrugged, saying he didn't need anything in return. The young man told them he'd stick around for a while, forging weapons and tools, and in return he demanded food and a place to sleep. Then he promised he'd help with hunting the moment he got a spare minute. Caught off guard, the girl's eyes snapped to Met on instinct, but he just halted her with a warm smile and a gentle flick of his hand. As evening crept in, they burst out with big news. The feast is ready, and practically shouted everyone to jump in and celebrate right away. The next morning hit like a fresh punch to the gut. The young man jolted awake as birdsong blared nearby. When I woke up, I knew something was different. I'd slept so deeply and peacefully it felt unreal. The young man let out a soft breath, and Lady Ilya lay peacefully beside him on the bed. The moment Joshua spotted the girl, his whole body froze in stunned disbelief. He couldn't wrap his head around how Ilya even showed up here, since she'd just flashed the tent to them and vanished. Then boom, a docking sound tore through the air. On the other side, the young man clocked it. Met was beside him, squeezing his hand like she'd been caught lying, and decided not to let go. She barely whispered that he wasn't going anywhere. As the guy stared in total shock, Ilya snapped his eyes open already. She jolted awake, then flashed him a bright, "Good morning," like the day was already hers. Joshua froze in shock and blurted, "Why are you here?" The girl rushed to calm him down. "Don't panic, we're just trying to warm you up." No matter what happened, Met refused to let him slip and stayed right beside him, right where Ilya demanded, until the girl finally cut off her mumbling and said her name. Feeling so weirded out, Ilya leaned in and told her to stop blurting incomprehensible stuff in her sleep. She jolted awake, stretched like a cat, scratched her neck, then cheerfully greeted Mrs. Elijah and Joshua with a bright "good morning." After thanking him for what he did yesterday, the girl swore she'd help if he ever needed it, while he just stood there, totally baffled, clueless how to act in this kind of crazy, unexpected moment. The second Met hauled herself up, Joshua hit her with, "You going hunting?" and she nodded hard, grinning as she said she was heading out for real, clutching yesterday's Arbat. The young man nodded hard, swearing he'd got it, then pushed for the next move, making weapons for the other demons. Everyone huddled in tight, jaws clenched, as Joe forged weapons with fearless precision right in front of them. Weapons sprawled across the floor, an archer's bow, a crossbow, and a brutal heavy mace just waiting to be picked up. The demons stared at the boy, utterly spellbound by his strange, unbelievable powers. With the bow cradled in her hands, Met told everyone her grandpa was a real archery master, then showed her how to pull the string the right way. Suddenly, crack, the bow snapped in half and shattered into a storm of splinters. The girl shot out an awkward apology, insisting she didn't mean to go overboard, just trying to keep it light. Behind her, the boy stared in confusion, asking how she could possibly snap an expensive bow like that. Joe just waved it off like it was nothing, grinning that he'd craft a brand new one in no time. The demons were just too strong. Bows wouldn't even slow them down. Mrs. Elijah stood tall and fearless, bow in hand, and yanked the string back like she was about to unleash something unstoppable. The boy lined in and asked, "Can you really use it?" At first, the girl balked and refused, but when she saw everyone else joining in, the young man kept his eyes on her and finally slid an arrow into her hands. With a quick grip, the girl snatched it in both hands and yanked the string back again, forcing it to recoil with her. The girl lunged her hand out, then the arrow slipped free from the string and shot straight into the forest. Elijah demanded to know if she'd gotten everything right, and Joshua, shocked out of his mind, blurted that the arrow flew so far, admitting it was her first shot. A wild idea hit him. Maybe she's hiding a killer talent for shooting, and the moment it crossed his mind, her cheeks warmed up and flushed. In a rare free moment, Joshua pulled her aside, warned her not to slack on training, and pressed a few arrows into her hands. With a shy smile, the girl clutched her quiver of arrows to her chest and quietly thanked him. Glancing back at the target, he realized armor would keep her alive, so he barked at her to stay put and not move. The girl gasped in terror, trying to make sense of what was happening, and the young man just smiled, calm as ever, saying he was about to take her measurements using the wind. He slapped on some useless armor on the girl like it was supposed to matter. At last, the words hit. "Everything's ready." Met spotted the armor and blurted in awe at its raw power. Turns out boar's horns weren't a threat to her anymore, and Ilya couldn't wrap her head around how someone could forge a miracle like that so fast. She flashed a wave and brightened up. "Don't worry, everyone's heading home real soon." Joshua spun back toward Lady Elijah. "I asked, do strong trees actually grow here?" The sky stretched into endless, electric blue, while thick green treetops draped overhead like a lavish living canopy. "Jewel Teak's baby, these trees are built like legends. No axe can cut them, and not even fire can cling to their wood, which is why everyone prizes them so much, and why they're held in high regard among the other species." A sudden thought hit Joshua. These trunks are way too thick. Even with that brand new steel axe he'd been banking on, he'd have to break a serious sweat before he could fell them. Instead of starting an argument, he pushed the idea of hunting for other trees, because the more you searched, the better your odds of striking the right one. Spotting the girl, he shouted to her right away, and Yelia beamed back, saying it was the perfect moment to put their brand new axes to the test. On the swing beneath the tree, the girl whooped with joy as she sailed back and forth, and the boy nearby figured that with time she'd learn to handle it, one swing at a time. The blast hit so hard it tore straight through the tree, and the boy just stood there, completely frozen, shaking with pure shock. The girl practically beamed as the tree crashed down, but the boy just froze on the spot, stunned beyond words. The young man couldn't even wrap his head around it. The hit was so savage that even a normal tree would have crumpled, and Ilya had just proved it. His companions lit up on the spot, praising her skill, and without hesitation they followed her lead. The girl practically swooned over the axe like it was pure treasure. Then Mr. Joshua shrugged and said it was nothing but an ordinary steel blade. The boy stared, realizing demon strength crushes humans, and then Ilias kicked it into overdrive, multiplying that power 10 times faster than anyone else. Right in front of them, stacks of wood sat in perfect piles, and Joe's excitement blazed through the moment he couldn't resist blurting out a cheerful comment. The girl beamed after she finally handled the trimming, then started worrying how on earth she'd move those massive bales, until the young man shot in with no hesitation and immediately suggested the only fix: keep everything with him. The young man didn't wait, he took the lead. Elijah stared at his own strength again, and the answer hit him. There's always someone stronger, and he's already proven it. Now, with all this wood piled up, you can craft a whole lot of useful things. When she pressed him about his future plans, he blurted out that he wanted to build a palisade, an all-night wall to shield the village from outsiders, and the girl just stood there, totally embarrassed, because she had no clue what a palisade even was. Ilya warned everyone that armored wild boars are turning the village into a nightmare. These beasts slip in under cover of night, smash whatever they find, and leave pure chaos in their wake. A beat of silence, and the girl realized the night never hides anything good, only danger. The boy then said, "That's why they're raising a palisade around the village, to shield everyone from enemies coming from outside." Before all that, the young man pushed the idea again, and demanded to know if there was any way up closer to the very heart of the village. The girl nodded and guided him straight to the spot they needed. Then, the second they got there, she pointed with total confidence and said, "This is exactly it." He asked if anyone was building anything in this place, and Ilya's face fell, because nothing was going up here at all. He pushed again, and she finally admitted the truth. Years ago, they just hosted some kind of festival here. Joshua asked if he could build on this land, and the girl just smiled, telling him the gods would be thrilled if he used this site to bless them. After thanking him, the gentleman leaned in and kicked off a lively chat about construction. Right before her eyes, the young man rose up and built a magnificent tower, leaving her stunned beyond words. The demons from the village stared at the hill, baffled by the impossible wonder blooming there. She threw her head back and blurted in awe, because what he'd built was bigger than anything she'd ever dared to dream. He shot back that he could handle it as long as it wasn't as brutal as this one, then told him to head upstairs, and Ilya agreed. They climbed higher and then, boom, the whole village sprawled beneath them like a living dream, and the girl gasped at the sight, stunned that she'd ever be able to view her own hometown from that high up. The young man nodded hard, grinning, because this view was pure enchantment. Joshua pointed and said, "From right here, you can see Meta and the rest of the hunters crystal clear." Elijah grinned and added, "The hunt's going great. Everyone's locked in and doing their job perfectly." The young man checked in on her, and then he noticed the world around them had gone wide open. She nodded and said, "From here on out, we'll know exactly when the monsters are creeping up on us." The young man stressed that you've got to keep watch on your surroundings nonstop here, so you can spot danger early and warn everyone before it hits. He planned to plant towers all around the perimeter and laid out the whole idea in 4 neat sides. Then the Virgin Mary nodded, swore she'd track down people with the right sensitive hearts, and in the end she even thanked him with real sincerity. Joshua slammed his fist down and declared he was building a palace, then turned to Elijah and begged for his help, because Elijah had to whip the peasants into gathering stones to fortify the future building. Elijah didn't even pause, he agreed at once. The benefactor beamed at her, then swore he'd raise glorious walls for them. What they saw froze everyone in place, her face, and the boys behind her drained of color, while icy sweat poured out as the shock hit. Thanks to his relentless work, a massive wooden wall rose up around the village, sealing everyone inside and keeping every threat at bay. The young man declared, loud and confident, that everything was already set and ready to go. The girls sneered, asking if he truly thought he was a god. Then the boys shot back that everything worked only because of their support. Joshua told everyone they could finally drop their guard and rest easy, and Mir grinned because this haul's catch was huge, more than enough meat to go around. Even the ones who hauled it all together couldn't stop smiling as they stared at that wall, built like a fortress, so massive it left everyone awestruck. Juicy meat sizzled on skewers, grilled to perfection. Met's eyes widened with disbelief. She never could have imagined she'd end up catching that many wild boars. Ilya gave a quick nod and said it was all possible only because of Mr. Joshua. With a bright smile, the girl nodded and made it crystal clear. Everything happening was all because of him. Then she watched a wall shoot up around the village in an instant, like the world had locked into a dream. Ilya backed her up at once, calling it a miracle you could feel, like waking up inside a dream. The princess declared she was stepping out of the company for a little while. Elijah promised it was worth reaching out the second anything was needed. Joshua laughed off the worry, and Met leaned in like, "All right, now it's your turn to look after the guy. She's already gone, no turning back." The girl quizzed the boy on how he liked the meat, and he lit up, saying the dish was cooked to perfection. So Joe leaned in and asked who taught her to cook, and Mick grinned, admitting she'd stolen plenty of culinary secrets from her own mother. Joshua lit up at how the meat was cooked to perfection, from the flavor to that gorgeous browning. Then the guy grinned and said this kind of skill can only come from great parents, and the girl nodded like he'd nailed it. She confessed she ended up here because her parents backed her, and because her predecessor, Mrs. Elijah, helped pave the way. Then the young man leaned in and said the former chief didn't just matter, she shaped the fate of every single tribe member. Met didn't even flinch, he was already locked in, because he'd still have to face the orcs. That young man asked about the orcs, and the girl fired back with a chilling tale. 10 years ago, orcs stormed in and blared their claim, "We've crushed you. Now this land is ours to rule." 10 years back, the first big battle crushed the human allies, and the Demon King's armies surged north like a wave, spreading their power at breakneck speed. People got crushed by huge losses, but the boy had zero clue that demons were taking the same brutal hits. Met even admitted she was still just a kid, so she didn't know the full truth. One day, she shouted for the other kids to gather with Mrs. Elijah and charged them toward the southern ravines for a day of pure fun. The carefree fun shattered the second the kids spotted monster shadows creeping in, and before long, massive orcs rose over the horizon like a nightmare. For demons, those horns weren't just decoration, they were pure, priceless power. Even after they hammered out a deal with the orc leader, they didn't pause for a second. They still charged out to hunt demons. The orcs spotted Lady Ilya's freakishly long horn, and decided they'd seize it no matter what it cost. A little girl shoved herself in front of everyone, snapped, "Run now," straight for the village, then froze in horror at what she saw, because behind the orc, Medi was already creeping in, lining up to smash the monster with her strike. With a brutal shove, the orc knocked her flat and sneered, "Worthless insect." Out of nowhere, a colossal boulder rockets toward him, straight aim for his head. Rage filled Ilya as she whipped a stone at the monsters. Then an enraged orc charged in like he had to end it, grabbed her by the horn and snarled, "The fun is over." The horn had been ripped right off her head. Terror slammed into her. Tears blurred her eyes, and Met frantically screamed for Miss Alija. Suddenly, a woman burst into view and launched a lightning attack on the orc he was holding. Met's relatives spotted her parents at once. Then they snapped at Met and thrust her toward escape, ordering her to run with Ilya right now. With Lady Ilya at her side, the girl bolted toward the village while her parents fought like hell to stall the orcs, until she spun around and saw nothing left but their severed heads on the ground. Lady Ilya sank into a bow, tears pouring as she begged for forgiveness. And even then, Met kept clinging to the cruel belief that the tragedy was her fault. The boy insisted she didn't do a single thing wrong, no guilt, not one, saying every sin was pinned squarely on the orcs. With shaking hands and fingers fidgeting like crazy, the girl finally admitted she'd heard the very same thing all the way from the top. After everything that went down, the leader stormed off toward the orcs by himself, then came back holding a child's horn in both hands, with his own horn gone for good. Right before he died, the man shoved Elijah into the role of protector and told him to look after everyone. The girl pointed him out and said his grave sat dead center, right in the middle of the village. The girl froze in shock, jabbed her finger at the spot, and blurted what on earth had been built here, while the young man, squirming with embarrassment, admitted he'd set up a tower there just that morning. Met stood there, totally stunned. Did he cross the line? Joshua shot back that he only built it because Elijah insisted the gods would be thrilled too. When she heard that, her shoulders eased. She'd genuinely be glad about it. Mrs. Iliad didn't fret over stuff like that, and she promptly offered a real, heartfelt apology. Back on Iliad, the young man leaned in and asked what she was doing now, and she grinned. She said she was ready to train with her bow, the one she'd just gotten recently. Yulia declared that this bow could shield everyone, and Joshua's words lit a fire in her chest, because he swore shooting was written in her blood. Joe stared ahead, thinking, after everything she proved today with that bow and axe, she had to have some kind of sign that boosts her weapon mastery. The young man leaned in and asked if she knew what sign Ilya was born under. Then she snapped back that she meant Hania, because in their tribe, nobody ever came into the world with that kind of sign. He realized this was brand new territory for him, and Met warned him, there are wild rumors that this cross can heal. The girl clocked it instantly. Ilya's got a genuinely good heart. So locked in her own drive, she slips into forgetting herself, and then dumps way too many responsibilities on her own shoulders. Met told the whole story. Turns out when Joe sprinted in to help, she ripped the crowd's fear away on purpose, distracting the superstitious people so she could save the demon child. That move wasn't just brave, it earned her real respect, because from this day on she's no longer just an ordinary girl, she's a princess and the tribe's new leader. The girl throws every argument at her, begging the princess to stop risking her own life. The young man nodded to her and swore he'd help too, and when she thanked him, she admitted his support was exactly what lit a spark in her. This sudden moment lit up a thought in the girl's head, and she blurted out, "Everyone look at me." Out of nowhere, Met blurted that she'd decided to marry Joshua, and the second those words hit him, Joshua choked on his food, completely stunned. He spun toward her, stunned out of his mind, and the whole crowd went silent in shock. Then joy burst onto their faces as happy smiles spread everywhere. A chilling thought crept into Joshua's mind. Does she really dream of him staying by her side and building a family together? He snapped out of it, turned to her, and started explaining. She didn't have to invent any lies because he wasn't going anywhere anyway. From behind the boy, Ilya flared with Oni's power, and Joe went silent on the spot. Ilya didn't bother masking her disgust at Meet's behavior. She made it crystal clear that what Meet said to Mr. Joshua was completely inappropriate. Ilya's sudden appearance made the guy's jaw drop, while Mitet realized this marriage just locked him inside the village for good. The girl finally confessed that this wasn't even her own wish, and she made it clear that help from their side would have made all the difference. Ilya shot back, "All right, then you're my wife." A full-on fight erupted between the girls, everyone insisting they were going to be Joshua's wife, until Joshua rushed in and shouted them down, telling them a wedding wasn't needed because he'd keep living in the village either way. And he swore he'd stay right here for ages. The boy was hit with a wave of unbearable discomfort. Seeing there was no stopping them anymore, he spun around and went back. As he marched toward his tent, Joe declared, loud and clear, that he was about to go to sleep. Birds were chirping like a countdown, and at dawn, the young man's eyes finally snapped open. Girls surged in from both sides and gripped his hands with iron strength. Elijah's voice sliced through the dead silence as he faced Joshua and spoke. The girls shot him a question about his day, and the young man smiled, like he'd already nailed the biggest goal, then admitted the village still had a pile of unresolved problems waiting. The young man's burning goal was clear. He wanted to forge as many tools as he could, and he knew he couldn't do it without iron, so he shouted for the girls, praying they'd back him up. He asked if there were any spots nearby where he could hunt for reddish-brown or metal-shiny stones. The woman swore she'd seen creatures like this before, things that rolled down from the mountains, but she'd never once seen a single one on the plains or even in the nearby forests. The girl talked about a cave called Astor, tucked deep in the forest right at the mountain's base, a bit farther southwest. Then the young man's curiosity sparked and he blurted out, "Can we actually reach it? Inside, it's nothing but bats, and for more than 100 years, nobody dared to step anywhere near this place." Joe shot back that the real nightmare is the mice, but if there were fewer of them, this whole disaster might still be survivable. With everything on the line, Elijah pushed the idea. He wanted them to come with him and head to the cave together. Met burst into a protest and declared, loud and clear, that she'd take this task on herself. After the girl spoke her request, she urged the princess to stay right there in the village, and the young man immediately thought, maybe she's trying to keep me from getting hurt. Ilya was already bracing to shut them down. Joshua propped up Matt and said, "Look, when the clan leader hits trouble, panic spreads through the whole place." Even with a beat of hesitation, Ilya still gave his consent. Then Meadle flashed him a sincere thank you for the help. The boy swore the check wouldn't take long, that they'd be back fast, and the girl urged them to stay sharp and careful. A dark cave loomed ahead, and a chilling dread spilled out of it, clawing at their nerves. The young man leaned in and said, "Bet you anything, that's the same legendary Astor cave sitting right in front of us." The girl shouted she'd explore the cave, but the boy slammed the brakes and demanded caution. He warned that even a bat bite could unleash a dangerous disease since those creatures are ridiculously fragile, and insisted they'd better size up the danger first. Once the torch flared, the young man shot the girl a look and told her to hurl it into the dark cave the instant he made the signal. Telling herself that if there were really that many bats, they'd scatter in terror, the young girl hurled a torch inside. A blazing torch streaked into the cave like a firebolt, vanishing into the dark in seconds. Joe's ears perked up. Was that a stream gurgling somewhere? He hissed, "Let's duck into those bushes and watch for a while." The sound kept swelling, louder, sharper, until it practically demanded your attention. Met immediately felt it. Something strange was closing in fast. What she laid eyes on hit the girl like a truck. She froze, stunned to the bone. Right out of the cave's dark depths, a strange creature burst forward, slick with mysterious slime and letting out a weird mooing sound. Then the girl froze in pure shock and rushed to ask what it was. The young man answered fast, "That's a dust slime, one of the mutants. A rampaging monster that devours everything in its wake. This slime can even melt metal and stone, not like the usual ones. It may not be the strongest, but it's got deadly tricks, and when too many enemies crowd it, it's easier to deal with." So the boy came up with a plan. Call in demons to help and summon Ilya. She shot the enemy a sharp look, and suddenly he didn't seem that scary. With zero hesitation, she bragged that he'd be easy, then launched straight into the fight. She insisted that going to Lady Elijah for help was a total dead end, and Joshua snapped at her to quit, because that weapon wouldn't listen to her no matter what. She ignored every word thrown at her and shot back, "So what, you think that's how it is?" Then she didn't hesitate. She jammed her spear straight into the slime, and the slime instantly swallowed the weapon like it was nothing. The young man demanded she hurl the spear right now, but the girl dug in her heels and shot back that he'd forged it for her, and then, boom, the slime blasted the spear out, whipping the girl down hard onto the ground. The boy snapped into action, conjuring a magical shield that wrapped around him like armor. He snapped it out of the air with his shield, and instantly started building the next masterpiece. In the blink of an eye, a protective wall snaps into place around them. Then Joshua slams the bullet to a stop and scoops Matt up in his arms. The young man hurriedly asked if she was okay, but she only bowed her head and apologized, so he dashed in fast, promising her she had nothing to worry about. Joe shot the dust slug a disgusted look, and that sealed it for him. He'd rather hunt things that move. A thought hit me hard. Maybe I should let the girl slip away and handle him solo. But right then, a blonde-haired girl burst past me like a blur. Just when Joe thought he was safe, the unexpected blindsided him. Yeah, that was Elijah. The girl stared it all down, laser-focused and deadly serious, like every second mattered. A slick, writhing mass hovered right over her. A vicious glare snapped into the girl's eyes, her whole body tensed, and she was ready to spring at the monstrous mutant. She struck him right away, shutting every single escape door before he could even react. Stunned by the girl's insane agility, Joshua couldn't even blink. Seeing her wrestle the massive dust slime so fast felt downright unreal. Thinking about the simplest moves Joe made yesterday, he couldn't stop wondering, how many times did she swing that thing? Exhausted demons finally clawed their way to Mrs. Ilya's doorstep, and when the boy spotted the villagers closing in behind her, he snapped, "Ilya," and shouted for her right then. The girl bowed low and apologized with all her heart, but the lady just flicked her hand like it was nothing, like the whole thing should be instantly forgotten. And she promised she truly gets her, every single experience, down to the last detail. The clan leader made it clear, her true calling is to shield everyone, and that's why she lives. Clutching the edge of her dress like it was lifeline, Maddie sucked in every ounce of courage and yelled at Mrs. Ilya. The girl made a vow to herself. She'd get stronger and stronger until she could protect her life and the people she loved, no matter what came for them. The clan leader clung to her hopes, and Joe was convinced, rooted in something real, that Ilya and Matt genuinely cared for each other, which was exactly why they fretted over one another so much and kept getting painfully awkward when they were together. A wild thought hit me, wow, what a gorgeous couple they are. She didn't mince words, she warned you to guard your own safety and to obey Mr. Joshua's orders without a single exception, because ignoring him is a fast track to disaster, and if something happens to him, tell me, who's going to step in and help? Meat shot him an apology for rushing, and the guy just gave an awkward smile, finally admitting it was his fault, because he'd completely misjudged how strong Meat really was. Ilya told her, "You still need to rest, your thigh's injured," then pushed her toward home, because after beating that slime, she'll finally be able to team up with the other demons and calmly farm resources, so there's nothing to panic about. The demon stayed silent and backed the clan leader's every choice, without a single word of disagreement. The boy snapped back to it, he had to collect slime. Ilya demanded, "Why?" And the boy fired back that jelly whipped from dust slime is tough, so it soaks up impacts like a dream, which makes it perfect for armor. And here's the crazy part. This massive magic stone is pulled straight from monster corpses. He says these things can show up in all kinds of sizes and colors, but it depends on the monster, and not every monster even has them. If a weapon or tool is made from that stuff, it hits way harder. Light green gemstone, wind mages practically worship it, because it's the kind of treasure that turns a good day into an absolute win. The demons were going off at full volume, then Joe burst in, yanking them out of the moment and shouting that it was time to move on, while warning them not to let any animals get near because of the twilight slug. Right after that, the girl snapped her head toward Joshua and fired off a question. Slime coated every inch of the cave walls, thick and nasty as it clung there. At first glance, it looked like some regular slimy creature curled in the corner, until the young man remembered these things had been living in that cave for ages, and realized one of them had somehow, out of nowhere, mutated into a dust slug. Suddenly, Viz exploded into the scene with everything he had. First, he snapped upright in a jolt, then bolted like a wild beast, darting left and right as he hunted for his next move. All this time, he was chatting with the other snails deep in the cave, and when it was over, the young man gave his slimy buddy a heartfelt thank you. Joshua shot down the threat as done, and now it's time for us to move on. Purple light thrashed across the cave walls, like the whole place was bursting with secret magic. She just knew people used to call it the Astor Cave, because the glowing surface looked exactly like purple flowers in full bloom. The young man swore he'd cracked the secret hiding behind these walls, and then he knuckled down to forge an ice axe. Right when he started prying into the wall, he never saw it coming. Then Ilya, all worried and frantic, shouted his name. Turns out that wasn't regular iron at all. It was purple. At first, nobody got a thing, until that guy finally pointed it out. This metal is 3 times stronger than the regular stuff. This rare metal can shrug off even magical strikes, and that's why it's treasured more than almost anything, right up there with orichalcum and mithril, reserved only for the nobility and royal families. The man stared at the metal like it was pure treasure. This stuff was top tier, perfect for crushing weapons and forging armor that could actually take a hit. The man declared, loud and proud, that he'd start forging pickaxes for everyone right now, so they could all grab one and haul in more. Slowly but surely, everyone started stacking up supplies. Some dove headfirst into work like it was their lifeline, while others just stood back and soaked in the breathtaking sights. The demon yanked out a pouch of ore, and the snails nearby shot up like rockets, then scrambled to haul the hard-won treasures the second he pulled them free. Satisfied with what they'd done, Elijah and Joshua locked eyes and traded approving looks. When they finally rolled back into town, the company blared their big comeback, daring everyone to come check just how much they'd pulled in. The girl clocked it, there really was a ton of it here, and the boy grinned and said, "With this much, you don't have to worry about running out of a single thing." He made it crystal clear. He was taking over the production of construction tools, axes, picks, and all the rest, and he even planned to churn out kitchenware too, like cooking pots. A stranger corners him with a dangerous request: "Forge weapons for us," and after a short, tense pause, he finally gives in, gritting his teeth as he agrees. Suddenly, a memory ripped through his mind like a flashbulb. Joshua locked eyes with Princess Ilya, like the moment demanded a showdown. The second the girl spotted the young man, he snapped his hand out like, "Come here," and she gasped, asking if he'd really stopped making things for them. He didn't even hesitate. "No way, I never stopped." Then he leaned in and told her he'd made something special just for her. "He forged a katana for me with his own hands, blade by blade." She grabbed the handle and blurted, "So what is this thing?" Joshua told him that just yesterday, before he even started forging weapons, he dug through the rural records, because if demonic weapon lore could guide them, then that knowledge would help him pick the right tools. Buried among the scattered papers, the boy spotted a drawing of a katana, and the blade's odd length made his stomach twist, but he still felt she'd swing it just as confidently as her ancestors. Ilya shot her a question. Was it true she got drawn in sketchbooks, and then demanded to know why she even needed a katana in the first place? Remember how, right after she crushed that dust slime, she swore her mission was to protect everyone? So the boy went and forged her a weapon like no other. Joshua thrust the blade into her palm, and she gripped it tight, then thanked him with her whole heart, swearing she'd treasure that precious thing forever. With a grin, he told her she could count on him any time. No hesitation, no second thoughts. Out of nowhere, Met snapped a razor-sharp, fierce stare straight at Joe. The girl admitted she wanted one too, and Joshua fired back that it was a katana, and swore he'd forge another right away. Met noticed the chat lit up something ancient in her, and Joshua sealed it by saying this blade was passed down from her ancestors. Mrs. Elijah leaned in and asked how on earth they could ever repay him for his kindness. The young man reassured everyone again. He didn't need a thing. They took care of him anyway, feeding him and giving him a roof, so there was zero reason for him to feel special gratitude. He said he's dreaming of a safer, richer village, one where everyone finally thrives. Once again, suspicion is crushing down on the exact same guy. To really show gratitude, I had to crack 3 brutal tasks first. Like, the thought hit me hard. First things first, safety comes first. And this young man is so set on his dream of building homes with iron beams that not a wild boar or a slave trader will ever smash through his wall. And then boom, there's another big problem. Everyone's still living off hunting and gathering, but that kind of food isn't dependable. Joshua sees the truth. If they want stable nutrition, they have to start farming. The third factor is cleanliness. Wash your clothes and bedding often. Take care of your body daily, and watch those wounds heal faster while keeping nasty diseases away. Demons wash themselves like clockwork, scrubbing up, doing laundry, even rinsing their hands in water. But every single time, they're forced to haul all the way to the river. Joshua's mind latched onto a bold idea, an aqueduct, so the village could finally drink water whenever they needed it. To make it happen, he knew they'd have to dig a quarry, and he wasn't stopping there. He planned toilets and baths too. Joshua will protect the demon village at any cost, fighting for its survival with everything he's got, and he's thankful he finally gets the chance to help. Out of nowhere, a wolf silhouette flashed in the dark shadows like it was hunting the air. Suddenly, a shadow came barreling down the slope, tumbling out of sight with a feral, howling scream. That odd, rolling rumble hit the villagers like a punch, shocking them and draining their energy, so they all snapped their heads around, eyes wide and wary. Joshua leaned in, asking where that horrible howling was coming from, and Elijah swore it sounded like it was roaring straight from the north. Sensing danger closing in, the boy snapped at Meta to rush a warning to everyone and crank vigilance up to maximum. Then he ordered the girls to hunt down anyone who could use a bow or a crossbow and bring them to the northern side of the village. Everyone sprinted straight for the northern wall, like the sky was about to crack. From the tower, the demon's voice roared out, telling Lord Joshua that it was coming any moment from the far north, and the howling only kept getting louder, hammering louder by the second. The young commander barked orders for everyone to ready themselves for battle, then made it crystal clear. Nobody was to strike until he gave the signal. So yeah, the mission hit me right away. This wasn't some small climb. There were tons of steps here, and a dozen doesn't even come close to 100. Ilya clocked it instantly. Both of them were closing in at the exact same speed. Suddenly, dark shadows clawed across the horizon, and Elijah panicked. yanking Joshua's attention and blurting out everything he'd just seen. From out of the dark, a wolf's silhouette snapped into view. The young man frowned and instantly clocked that figure. Turned into werewolves, they bolted into the night, sprinting at full power to escape the looming deadly danger. Werewolves are half-human, half-wolf creatures, and when they hunt or charge into battle, they usually look straight out of the wild. The boy had heard the rumors for years. Because humans hate them so much, they get pushed far from civilization and end up living a hard, simple life like they're barely more than instinct. The young man leaned in and demanded to know if the princess had spotted any injuries on him. She snapped back with a quick nod, saying she'd seen it all. Compassion blazed in her eyes, and the moment she saw it, she knew for sure. Slave traders had just attacked them. Suddenly, a wolf cub bolted from the pack. Meta was seconds from shouting "shoot," but Ms. Ilya snapped an order to stop. The girl raised her eyes like she was seconds away from blurting out the truth. Ilya jabbed a finger at the bear, and before she could finish, the young man cut her off with a confident nod, swearing he had it all figured out. No doubt about it, those slave traders who attacked her snatched her right up. The little puppy marched up and boldly introduced itself. Merca. They're begging me to open the gate, but I'm trying to hammer it into them. They just want to get through, no drama, no extras. Ilya promised she didn't want to fight. She let the werewolves slip right through, then demanded to know why they were running. The baby shouted that they'd been attacked, and she's still in danger right now. One more second, and disaster would have closed in on them. Suddenly, the air tore open with a terrifying roar, the same one that had been hunting the werewolves for ages. Without a second thought, Ilya barked at Medi to let everyone into the village, and she quickly nodded like, "Got it." The mistress got a command to fling open the northern gate. Right now, no delays. The refugees sprinted toward the village, desperate to reach safety. The demons ushered the guests to their seats, threw warm blankets over them, and handled every single little need, like they'd planned it all. Suddenly, Joshua snapped. Some hard-eyed man barked an order to seize every one of them, right now. The crowd pushed him to cell one, swearing the cash would last a lifetime, but then the warnings hit hard. Don't give them away, because sooner or later, someone would be forced to serve the Mongols. Shock crashed over him, and for a split second he just froze, mouth locked, words refusing to come out. When they stared at the fortress, nobody could wrap their heads around how it ever wound up in that place. Joe knew slipping out quietly was the move, but they had werewolf hostages in their grip, so the man snapped an order. Nobody gets inside, not a single soul. The young man demanded that Met only fire on slave traders. Met snapped into obedience and swore it would follow that order. The girl barked the order and warned, "If you're not sure you've got the shot right, don't fire at the werewolves, and don't go grabbing reckless chances." With the bow in his grip, Ilya yanked the string back and locked in like his whole body was one drawn blade. Then the very first shots shattered the air. Arrow after arrow launched into the sky. At first they zipped right past, but every new volley tightened their aim, and suddenly they started landing with deadly precision. The squad leader hadn't even seen this coming. The man stormed up to them and demanded they stop, swearing they're just ordinary folks and they have no intention of attacking the fortress, because all they want are the half-humans. Joshua's booming voice cut through the crowd. He shouted that werewolves were people too, then demanded their immediate release. Everyone down below froze in sheer disbelief, because the shock hit them all at once. These mestizos had somehow stumbled on an ancient fortress and straight up turned it into their new base. The boy realized this wasn't a simple tech problem, but right then, he knew messing with that answer was the worst possible moment. When the order to retreat hit, the commanders panicked, so they shoved their trust into werewolves, turning them into a living human shield to buy themselves a way out. She snapped at them, calling them cowards, but Joe cut her off fast so she wouldn't just lunge into the fight on the spot. With the escape route closing, he started tightening the noose, until Elijah suddenly burst off the palisade and slammed straight into the fight. The moment her boots hit the ground, the princess surged forward with her katana drawn, cutting herself into a living shield to protect her people and the refugees. Stunned out of their minds, the men couldn't stop themselves and started firing questions, begging to know what it was. The girl clamped down hard on the handle and snapped it toward the enemy in a vicious swing. One brutal strike, then two opponents dropped dead in an instant. The man went still with pure terror, staring as everything spiraled out of control. A cold sweat slammed onto his forehead, and he stammered, shaking, "What is happening?" Terrified out of his mind, he crouched behind the werewolf and blurted, "Who is she?" With fury burning in her eyes, Ilya snapped that if he let the werewolf go, she'd spare his life. The man demanded, "Are you sure you truly want this?" And the girl shot back with total confidence, "Yes, this is exactly what I want." The princess ordered, "Raise your hands," but the man cut her off mid-sentence, snapping the command, "Stay where you are." Without a second to spare, the man barked for everyone to sprint back to the fort, right now. A sword blade hovered inches from the werewolf's snout, and terror flooded her face as panic seized her. He snapped his eyes to the girl, and the moment he saw her face, he flinched hard and choked on a burst of pure fear. In Ilya's eyes, revenge and justice ignited like wildfire. Time to slam the door on this story for good. In the blink of an eye, the girl hacked clean through the slave trader's hand. Horror slammed into him, and he jerked his hands away from the child without a second thought. Rage swallowed her whole, and the lady started plotting a brutal end for everyone around her. Joshua's voice yanked her to a stop. He begged her not to take another step. Clutching the log with all his might, the young man blurted out that chasing them any farther was pure danger. The moment the cowards vanished from sight, the princess's rage snapped off like a switch. She barely even turned her head and shouted for Joshua. The look she snapped at those who were sprinting away with everything they had screamed pure disbelief, because revenge had her so wrapped up that it stole the last scrap of common sense. In Joe's eyes, pure admiration for the princess burned bright as he watched her in silence from the bastion, then flicked his gaze to the roaring crowd celebrating her victory. Met hauled the wounded to the fire so they could finally rest, and Joshua was ordered to play medic, tending the badly injured with bandages and urgent first aid. She snapped everyone together and had them haul the acquired gear to one spot. That tiny puppy wagged like crazy and gratefully thanked the lovers for saving it. This time, right by the village gates, she didn't just say hello. She spilled her whole story and declared, "I'm Mirka, daughter of the Mardi's tribe's chief." The girl lit up with genuine joy when they met, and right then Ilya swept in, introducing herself as the tribe's chief and princess. The tiny puppy curled up in its own little world, lost in deep, wandering thoughts. She paused for a beat, then dropped into a bow and declared, "I'm staying a mercenary for myself only." The princess waved it off and insisted there be no ceremonies, just call her Ilya. The chief's daughter clocked it instantly, stayed cool and asked, "Is that okay?" When they asked if everyone had come from the north, Mark froze for a heartbeat. She also said their home sits in a cave at the base of the mountain, but lately, strangers keep showing up there more and more. The girls snapped that the crowd had exploded overnight, so that's why everyone busted out, and Joe finally understood what was going on. He turned to the group and demanded, "So you're really hunting us, every single one of you?" Merc flat out denied it, but then he remembered, back when he chased them, some of the pursuers didn't just threaten people, they went straight for arson. Still not getting it, the young man pressed her to spell it out, and she straight up told him, "Their opponents blast real flames straight from their palms." When he finally clocked that the ones blasting flames from their palms were the real fire mages, he couldn't stop thinking, if they had power like that, there was no way they'd miss the wooden palisade sitting right on the stone walls. He told them they'd planned this all along, and when Merc dug up the memory, he realized it was back when he was with Ilya. Joshua snapped that it meant those slave traders were already stalking her. Right then, someone barged in and cut the conversation short. Rage burst in the angry girl's voice as she accused everyone there of luring those people just to attack them, while Ilya snapped to Met's side to swear he didn't even know she'd arrived, only for Merc to crash the moment and shout that it was a total lie. The girl confessed she'd tracked him on purpose by his scent, praying he'd finally back her up, the way he once did for her. Merc realized they should have been pulled in way sooner, so she stepped up right then and decided to get help. The princess leaned in and swore that when things get brutal, you stick together, back each other, and help will show up, always. Merc bowed deeply and thanked her for every word. Met stumbled over his own words, clearly wrestling to get the courage to say what was on his mind. The girl leaned in, eyes sparkling, and asked what they were hunting for. The chief's daughter begged to stay a little longer, promising they'd meet every need, and with that, every kid the tribe took in pledged to fight for them. She whispered that she really hoped this was exactly what Merc meant. Then, right then, Joe blasted her name loud as thunder. In the end, the guy blared it loud. Slave traders don't just hunt demons, they're chasing werewolves too, and only by teaming up can anyone break free from this living nightmare. The demons slammed the truth down. Yep, they really attacked Alia, and that means the enemy of our enemy is our ally, so she'll rush this news to everyone. Met split the guard, sent part to stand watch, then rushed the rest to rest, and ordered the werewolves food and shelter set up right away. Princess Ilya pointed out that the same truth hit Mirka too, wounds everywhere, and she needs to rest just as badly. The she-wolf bowed her head and thanked her from the bottom of her heart. The demons stepped in and looked after the displaced, sparking a fire, swapping out the blankets, and cooking up a hot meal to send them through the night. Later, Merc nodded off, and Ilya quietly wiped her down with a cloth, scrubbing every speck of dirt away. She figured she'd just fallen asleep because she still feels like a kid, and Joe nodded, You're wiped out, so we're leaving you be. Joshua even urged her to hit the bed early, because Elijah was wiped out after that fight. She asked if he was okay, and Elijah promised that once he was done with the slaver's gear, he'd finally crash and get some rest. The demon in charge of the hunt told the boy, "It's done. Every last item is already stacked by the gate," and the boy thanked him from the bottom of his heart. Right as he neared the palisade, a brutal wall of loot smashed into him, swords, armor, and every scrap those people had left behind. Spotting that symbol on the items, the young man's mind snapped back at once. This was the emblem of the Cartesian Company, the same one Joe had mentioned before. Cortesia, the corporation that runs drug trafficking and contract killings, is pouring out terror, and now slave traders are storming the city in brutal waves. Taking them on is going to be brutal. Those are second-level fire mages, and their skill and experience blow away the ones the clan faced today. The boy was already thinking, racing to figure out the fastest way to reinforce those walls. Or if they don't get stopped, this whole nightmare will strike again. His palms slammed into something soft. The idea that he could keep ironing this forever wouldn't leave his head. He opened his eyes and blinked at the world. It felt so soft, so fluffy, like nothing here could hurt him. Suddenly, Joe snapped awake and jerked his head up, only to find a girl peacefully asleep on him. I demanded to know, straight up, who he's trying to shove out of the way exactly. Barely awake, she stretched, yawned sweetly, and called out a bright, friendly good morning to the young man. The young man slipped back into that eerie, dreamlike stupor. Dreamy Joshua couldn't shake the feeling he'd imagined Merc's voice. Then the girl gave a quick nod, and yeah, it was her all right. After greeting her, he blinked in shock and demanded how she'd somehow learned his name. The girl shot back that Princess Ilya had warned her about it, and the boy's eyes went wide. He couldn't believe that mysterious lady had popped up again from nowhere. As they woke up, the team leader flashed a good morning to everyone, while Met yawned cutely, still tangled in sleep. They huddled up, then all charged out together for a walk through the village. Joshua's mind kept drifting back to yesterday, Merc's wild tales of slave traders and fire mages, because the sheer terror of their power wouldn't let him sleep. With his hard-earned experience, the young man knows one thing for sure: this fence won't stop a thing. With his mind racing over how to find fire-resistant materials, Joe shouted, "Merc." He leaned in and asked her if she'd spotted that special spot nearby, the barren patch of rock where nothing ever grew, not grass, not trees. She asked if he was talking about that strict, icy place, the kind that felt just like her mountain cave. Merc told him there's a place like it on the far side of the Eastern River. He just has to cross. The young man's eyes widened, and he started weighing the real question. Was it worth risking the trip? That wide eastern river churned downstream without mercy, and Joe could tell right away that wading through it would get him killed, so he started hunting for a safer way around, something that could skip this deadly stretch entirely. Met lit up with pure excitement, volunteered right away, and even told Joshua he could lean on her back. Then Joshua shut that down fast, firmly refusing. The boy said crossing the river is doable, but monsters could be waiting under the surface, so you'd better check for danger first. Then Princess Ilya leaned in and asked if they could cross the Eastern River today. The wolf cub happily jumped at the chance to lead him straight to this place. Merc shot the team a warning. Giant boars are closing in, so stay sharp. And right then, Ms. Ilya stepped up, offered her help, and swore she'd travel with them. He threw out her candidacy too, saying the area was a total blank for everyone and the company would only benefit her. And that guy just laughed, claiming it'd be way calmer for him if she joined. Jolting back to the urgent task, he snapped, "We still have to forge armor for Princess Ilya. Vicious strong wooden posts, people call them iron nails, get driven in around a towering wooden palisade wall." The girls glided through battle in Joshua's armor, and their faces lit up with a smile that wouldn't quit. Joe leaned down to the puppy and begged her for help, and Merc shot back with a confident promise. Her and the other werewolves would go all out. Grinning at the young chief's daughter, the young man begged her to help him track down where that exact treasure was stashed. He stretched the clay out toward her, and watched as she leaned in, lifted it to her nose, and tried to catch its scent. With zero hesitation, Merc stepped up and confidently pointed the way, showing everyone exactly what they had to do next. She stopped dead and said, "There's a whole bunch of stuff like this around here." The young man grabbed a shovel, then declared, "All right, now I'm checking everything." Pushed into the dirt, he uncovered an astonishing find. Then the satellite sealed it. The girl really was right. Jay couldn't believe it, because he never expected getting the clay to be this easy. The wolf cub clocked that this was everywhere and demanded, "Why do we need it?" And the creator lit up, explaining how handy it is for everyday life. Imagine you've got this chunk of clay and you haul it to a magical workshop. Boom, it transforms into a whole new form. They blast it with fire, chill it right after, then soak it with water, and suddenly it's perfectly ready for whatever you're making next. With deft hands, the young man molded the clay into a ceramic mug and crowned the rim with a gorgeous, eye-catching pattern. Crouching low, the boy thrust his clay creation toward the shapeshifter and demanded her verdict. And when her paw pressed it, Merc realized it was far more intricate than the wooden version. And damn, it was solid. He lit up and told them how clay could be turned into bricks and tiles, and Ilya stared in awe at his insane know-how. Then she promised that the moment she got back to the village, she'd rally the locals to bring clay. The young man bowed deeply and thanked the princess with all his heart. Joshua urged everyone to drop what they were doing and start exploring the surroundings. A raging river tore through the land right in front of them, and the young one stared at the storming water like it held answers. He stared at the river's sheer width and admitted it was a problem, then pushed for a bridge to smash right through it. Magic flared and shimmered in Joe's hands as he started forging a bridge that shot straight up from thin air. For one wild moment, a bridge shot into view over the river, and the girls froze, eyes wide, breath caught between pure shock and delight. Princess Ilya leaned over the bridge, eyes narrowed. Joe's plan meant they could cross the river without soaking a single foot, and even though she already got it, he still made sure she understood. This way, the rushing current couldn't snatch them away. Staring at the river, the boy leaned toward the puppy and demanded to know how it pulled off getting to the other side back then. The cat jabbed its paw north and swore that's where the river pinches down. Right there, it leapt stone to stone and made it across to the other bank. Joy burst across the girls' faces as they basked in the soft breeze, letting the loud river's song wash over them. Smiles never once left their lips. Merc lined in and made her promise. She could feel the mountains in the north breathing down her neck. The young man snapped his head toward her, staring like he couldn't afford to miss a single word. Merc couldn't stop replaying everything that happened that night, how he and the other werewolves were left bleeding inside, and it crushed him until he finally promised himself he'd find a way to ease their suffering and get them healing. Watching Ilya and Meta laughing, the boy snapped into the truth. Now they were trapped in danger too. First, lock in protection and go grab the stones the village needs. After they shoved off across the river, the squad battered through brutal climbs and dropped into deep valleys, until Merc finally ripped the silence and shouted that they'd hit their destination. Space opened up like an endless battlefield, littered with massive boulders scattered everywhere. Josh stared at the stones and realized they'd been shaped before. This place still carries the scars of an old quarry, like a stonemason's hands left a mark behind. The man pressed, "So your sightings are only for wild boars?" And she nodded, saying that most of the time, that's exactly what she had to track. Even with all its raw power, everyone steered clear of this place, and that cowardly silence hit the boy like pure shock. Joe frowned and said, "I didn't spot a single animal out there." Maddie jumped in, grinning, "Around here, the best you ever see are tiny things, rabbits or birds." After a quick meeting, he lined in and pushed the idea, "Let's hunt down those stones." When Ilya asked what he was doing, Joshua snapped back that he was using drilling magic, mixing roaring streams of wind and flame to forge a power sharp enough to slice through stone. That young man kept hammering and drilling those stones nonstop, carving them into shape for whatever he planned to build next. Feeling sick to her bones, Ilyas caught the worry flicker in her own gaze. Suddenly, the stones ripped off the ground and shot into the air. I stared in shock, totally lost, as stones from every direction shot into the middle, clumping together until they formed a weird, shadowy silhouette. Joshua's eyes widened as what he saw hit him like a thunderclap. The stones grind together and boom, they fuse into a towering stone giant. Horror snapped across the boy's face as he shouted, "It's a golem." Rage flared in Aaliyah's eyes, and without a second thought, she burst into the battlefield on pure instinct, ready to protect her own, no matter how dangerous it got. With a piercing shout, the young man barked at her to stop. Even after he screamed that the defense was insanely strong, the girl charged in anyway and launched her attack like a dare. One fierce, sweeping slash of her blade, and his stone leg came clean off. The girl caught sight of the gallows' shadow hanging over her head. Gollum threw everything he had to crush her, but the girl snapped backward in an instant. Just like that, death got dodged. Her eyes went wide on the giant's severed leg. Flesh and bone started knitting back together right in front of her, like someone flicked a magic wand. When she realized what she'd done, regret hit her hard. She knew that smacking the golem with a bag probably wouldn't hurt it at all, and she owned up to it right away, so the young man just nodded and confirmed her hunch. Spotting the red-black stone on Gollum's chest, the boy snapped, "That's the reason he can regenerate, so if you want to win, hit him right there." Suddenly, panic flashed across his face. Something brand new just snagged his attention. Seeing the threat hit, the young man roared that the golem had started hurling rocks. then slammed the order. Everyone scatter and run, splitting into different directions at once. The young man snapped his head toward the girls and tossed them a dare. Break the stone if you're brave, and he'll let you unleash your real power. The girls shot each other frantic, puzzled looks, completely clueless how this stone-slinging chaos had even started. Snatching up their weapons, everyone's nerves snapped tight as they braced for the final, no-going-back showdown. Joshua snapped at Merc to stay sharp, just focus on dodging. The Wolf Cup grinned back, acting like there was nothing to fear. Dodging, easy. Mr. Joe shot after the stone gully with lightning-fast steps. Princess Ilya blurted a worried warning. This is way too dangerous, and you could feel her fear ringing in every word. A grin snapped onto the young man's face, and he confidently swore everything was under control, because that's exactly what he was born to handle best. Gollum grinned as he easily hauled up a massive boulder, several tons of pure weight, clamping down on it tight in both hands. Massive boulders slammed forward one after another at the enemy, and Joe didn't get a single second to breathe. With one snap of absorption, the creator wiped the golem out on the spot. The monster didn't get slowed down at all. It just calmly kept snapping its hands back into place, over and over. As Joe crushed the opponent, he couldn't stop thinking about himself, trapped in a body of dead stone. Joshua ripped Gollum's paw away again, with razor-sharp precision. The magician stared down the moment, as he scooped up stones to stuff a palm that was gone long ago. But here's the one tiny detail everyone misses. Joe chews through those stones way faster than the monster can regrow them. The young man fought to lift himself up again and again, refusing to stay down. The boy confidently demanded they drive straight for the goblin's heart. Brandishing an iron stick, Met swaggered and declared that this blade could punch through literally anything. Hearing that, she launched straight at the giant and slammed her fist into his right side, crushing him with sheer force. The demon hissed the name Lady Elijah, like it was a sweet spell meant to pull her straight into its arms. Screaming like the world was ending, the princess hurled herself straight into the war-tossed whirlpool. One lightning-fast slash of the sword, and Gollum crumpled to the ground. The monster's heart, the blazing crimson gem, cracked straight down the middle and split in two. Joe never saw it coming. Then his fingers brushed the gemstone, and true awe hit him like lightning. The princess asked if Joe was hurt, and he shot back, saying he was totally fine, then beamed so hard the stone filled him with pure joy, glowing like he was radiant from the inside. The girl thanked the boy from the heart, insisting his effort earned it all. Then Joshua snapped, saying the victory felt amazing, sure, but it was never really about the monster. It was all about the stone. Mrs. Ilya couldn't help wondering, could ghouls really produce beauty like this? The young man snapped her truth into place. This stone is the heart of the Gollum's puppet, and it's so delicate it turns to dust the instant the giant goes down. The young man couldn't stop wondering if anyone had clocked how bright he shined, because that meant the same guy would soon be nothing but his puppet. The stone cracked clean down the middle. Now it could be carved into two pieces at once. Ilya demanded, "Can you recreate the creature we just destroyed, and will it come back for round 2? The creator smirked and said, "Relax, it's just a puppet. It follows every command from the person whose name is carved into the stones." He told them that even if the item already has an owner, you can swap out the owner's name anytime. The girl admitted it was still hard to believe, but her relief was real. She was genuinely thrilled they could help, while the boy lit up with joy, openly grateful, because their support honestly made everything feel like a huge weight lifted. Joshua tried to bring Gollum back and forged a weird little contraption. Then the moment his words echoed, a towering stone giant erupted straight from the blood-smeared half of the stone. She froze in shock and admitted the kid could literally make anything. Yes, even living beings. He just smiled and said he didn't know if he counts as alive, but he sure knows he's something special. Joshua stared up at the giant and asked if he could carve a perfect cube out of solid stone, then held up his hands like he was showing the exact size of the future block, and the giant nodded, ready to go along with his plan. The girls and the wolf cub couldn't even get words out as their hearts churned, because just days ago that terrifying golem had flipped sides and stepped in like a true ally. Without breaking a sweat, the giant hoisted that brutal stone like it was nothing. Matt stared in awe, and pure admiration surged through him. The demoness bolted to the boulder, bragging that she'd never lose and that this rock was totally in her wheelhouse, until a giant stepped up, snatched the stone with zero effort, and Meat's face went hot as she choked out that she couldn't lift it with one hand. As he stared up at the massive thing, the young man realized it at last. This time, they finally had a dependable assistant. Right then, the ground buckled under their feet, and the crowd burst into startled cries, because disaster was coming fast. Terror slammed into everyone's chest. They stared at the giant, then pounced on each other with frantic questions about what monster it was and what enemy dared to come for them. Right behind Joshua and Elijah, a hulking giant with boulders crushing his shoulders came roaring closer. Yet the two of them still couldn't understand why everyone around them was trembling with fear. Rand stepped up to the terrified residents, flashed a steady grin, and told them to breathe. There was absolutely no reason to panic. The girl didn't let her sparkle fade. She beamed at them and said with a warm smile that a golem was standing right there in front of everyone. When the girl rolled out her new companion, a golem she claimed Joshua himself had made, the whole town exploded in an uproar. People stared at its massive size, couldn't hide their awe, and filled the air with real, amazed respect for Lord Joshua, praising every bit of his handiwork. With wide, curious eyes, the girl leaned in and demanded to know why the boy had so many stones. He pushed for old stone outer walls right away, and instantly realized he'd need way more materials to make it happen. The young man stepped forward and pledged to start by fortifying the northern gate, dead serious that it was the most urgent thing that could be done. The girls bubbled with pure excitement, but right under it, an impossible shock slammed into their hearts. Stunned by what they'd just witnessed, they blurted out, "What's this wonder about?" While Joe, hands-on, personally stacked a solid stone wall and crowned it with breathtaking gates, whose craftsmanship left everyone wide-eyed. Staring up at that massive structure, Princess Eliza blurted out that it was the greatest thing Joshua had ever built, and she meant it with her whole heart, while Joshua himself stood there, stunned to the core, admitting that even for him, seeing something like this up close was a first. The guy pitched the idea of testing just how tough the new walls really are, and it instantly had Maddie hooked. The girl snapped her mace up and got ready to smash, but the young man, terrified of what that hit could unleash, rushed in begging her to stop. He figured that kind of brutal hit could wreck the whole structure. So yeah, it shocked the girl too. Wanting a safer way to test things, Joe told everyone to press up against the gate together. Mark's words about those fiery attacks had the creator on edge, so the boy snapped back right away with one idea: reinforce the walls now. More time slipped by and boom, construction roared back to life, churning full speed once again. The giant hauled the massive blocks with raw power, while Joshua snapped into action, shoring up the walls fast and steady, so the village stayed safe. The young man started beefing up the inner walls, pushing them apart with careful precision to lock the whole structure down, and Medi's fellow demons just couldn't wait. They burst inside laughing, pawing every little detail as they inspected everything. Seeing that total chaos, Princess Ilyas snapped at everyone for their ridiculous antics, while Joe, stuck on the sidelines, tried so hard not to burst into laughter, but the whole situation made him feel terribly awkward. A warm grin burst across his face as he watched them. At last, after grueling days and non-stop hammering on that construction site, the long-awaited calm finally crashed into place. Satisfaction burst across Joe's face. Those results were seriously inspiring. He praised the team for crushing it, and with that same fire still burning, they'd have the north wall wrapped up by tomorrow. The boy's eyes snagged on the old logs, leftovers from a long-gone wall, and he knew exactly what they meant. Solid shelters could rise from them, and a grin exploded across his face as the young man blurted, "We've got a ton of work ahead." Suddenly, a woman's voice, sharp and striking, shattered the silence around the young man. It turned out Met was the one who'd lost Merc, and he couldn't find her anywhere, so he snapped back into searching and started grilling everyone again. Joe realized he hadn't seen her that morning, and when he replayed what he'd said, Met admitted she'd been mulling over shared plans with Merc, especially the idea of cooking together. The young man remembered just how viciously Maddie used to trash werewolves. Watching how hard they pushed, she slowly started to feel real sympathy for them, because Met shows he cares in his own way. Gritting his teeth, the young man pushed forward on his own to hunt for the missing woman. While he told the girl to get the food ready, she heard him and thanked him with all her heart. With his eyes locked on every single person in Merc, the boy suddenly spotted the princess tucked right inside the crowd. A bright, gentle grin burst across the girl's face as she greeted Mr. Joshua. The young man leaned in and asked if she'd met Merc today. After a beat, she shook her head and said she didn't remember seeing her once, not since that morning. The idea that Merc might have gone hunting flickered through his mind until Ilya spotted the werewolves slipping past, and boom, her focus locked onto them completely. The lady jumped in on the search and pushed for answers. She wanted the other shapeshifters to check if they'd spotted the missing person, but the young man weighed the chaos around them and realized everyone was slammed delivering supplies, so they probably wouldn't catch anything else. Joe inched toward the wolf, swallowed his nerves, apologized for the trouble, and asked straight up if it had seen Merca. That morning she'd mentioned the river's southern bank mushrooms, so she grabbed her basket and headed out, while the wolf's conversation kept running, and Ilya, the princess, carefully wiped the little werewolf's face as if it mattered more than anything. They tossed the offer out like a lifeline, but the wolf slammed it down hard, refusing to budge. He told Joshua plainly, "You've already done enough," and made it clear they wouldn't ride his kindness one more time. "Don't stress, these mushrooms get picked as a thank you, sent straight to the demons." Fuming, Mrs. Elijah snapped that they absolutely didn't have to do this at all. The girl wouldn't stop pleading to stay and help, because the thought of any of them dying at a demon's hands tore her apart. She knew she had the power to save them. Torn up by sorrow and bitterness, she dropped her eyes to the gray ground, like the dirt might finally offer comfort or answers to her aching heart. The werewolf lined in and called Princess Celia by her name, like it knew her fate. The wolf vowed he'd pass the request along, and the second the girl heard him, her real smile burst through. She thanked him from the bottom of her heart and swore they'd find Merca and come back for sure. Under everyone's watchful gaze, the half-humans hauled those mushroom hauls and split them into barrels for the demons, both sides in full panic, staring each other down like one wrong move would set everything off. The boy blurted out, hands shaking, "What if Merc vanished in the river's wild, pounding current?" While the leader stared at the sun sinking past the horizon and snapped that time was running out, so they had to speed up the search right now. My friends are racing south, straight toward the river. That alarm for Merc's condition stared back at the girl from her own eyes, and as Joe tried to soothe her, he promised he was praying for the best too. Then he pointed out that Merc's speed meant there was barely anything to worry about. Still, her fear wouldn't budge. The moment those thoughts hit, they refused to leave her mind. She couldn't stop thinking about it. Why in the world were werewolves so obsessed with demons? The boy looked her in the eye and, with total sincerity, admitted he understood Merca's feelings too. After his village got obliterated, the boy was left stranded and powerless. No strength, no protection, and not a single soul willing to shelter him, because in his eyes, nobody cares about useless people. Ilya couldn't wrap her head around it. Based on what she said, it was impossible with the skills he has now, but he swore up and down that back then he had zero skills at all. So from a kid, this boy threw himself into magic textbooks and trained in fencing like his life depended on it. Joe figured Merc probably felt the same. After all, werewolves will do anything to earn trust with their pack. Princess Ilya's flat-out promised they wouldn't be shooing those werewolves away that easily. Joshua nodded and said the truth is clear. Other demons know it's total nonsense to chase away werewolves just because of this. Her words hit hard, and the person she was talking to immediately nodded, fully agreeing that the werewolves have been running wild with some seriously intense teamwork lately. The girl stepped forward, greeted Mr. Joshua politely, and asked for his okay to talk this matter over with Merc. He steadied her with a firm grip, told her he wanted the same dreams, and pushed for them to start hunting right away. Deep in the forest, a scream cracks the silence. Someone roars Merc's name like it's an emergency. By the lake, a blonde girl draped in luxury stands beside a dark-haired young man, and the two of them blare, "Merc," as they scan the area with frantic eyes, until she spots something crucial and yanks his focus, calling him softly, "Mr. Joshua." Merc perches on a huge stone, water roaring all around him, while the girl with wolf ears stands beside a basket. Then a voice calls her again, and she whips her gaze toward whoever's calling. They've built a bridge to that rock, and now the whole crew is marching for Merca, while Joshua walks beside the girl and fires off one burning question. Was the rising water really the thing blocking her from coming back? The girl leaps off the rock and slams straight onto the bridge, shouting their names at the top of her lungs, Joshua, Elijah, and Merc's jaw drops in shock as he asks what they're doing here. Ilya's face screams pure dissatisfaction, and as Joshua feels the girl's anxiety surge thick in the air, he instinctively stumbles back. The girl's furious scream slams into Merca and leaves him stunned. He never expected that kind of emotional explosion, and Ilya doesn't hold back. He snaps that he's mad at the girl, unlike Cain Joshua, then he cuts through the air with a stern warning, no more reckless adventures alone. Crouched behind Joshua, Merc insists everything's safe and that only mushrooms are sprouting here. Then Ilya, still fuming, snaps, "Stop teasing us," and reminds him that if they're both from the same village, they should team up, not dodge what they're meant to do. From between Joshua's shoulders, Merc finally slips into view, looking unsure, then quickly murmurs that it won't happen again. Sitting beside Merc, Ilya leans in and tells her, softly but firmly, that it's exactly the werewolves' help, her help too. That's how they finally tracked down the one thing they never could have found on their own. With his palm slammed to his ear, Merc growls that her kind may smell better, but it won't balance out the raw difference in power. Ilya just shrugs it off, like it's nothing worth even noticing. The girl promises that if they team up, they'll cover each other's weak spots and crush every shortcoming together. Ilya declares that, together, they can build a happy life. Then Joshua, watching it all, realizes the brutal truth. They're half humans, and neither humans nor monsters will ever fully accept them. Still believing she's right, he nods and says it plainly. If half humans and werewolves throw their strength together, they'll protect themselves easily. Merc steps in, backs her up, and swears that living together will change everything for the better. Then he and Ilya slam hands, sealing the deal. Joshua got the news it was time to head back home, and it hit him again. Met promised him a killer dinner. Merc remembered every detail. Then she pulled out a basket packed to the brim with mushrooms, and Joshua's eyes snapped to a gorgeous, special kind that Met had tucked in just for him, and he couldn't stop the shock. The young man swears this mushroom can cure any disease and seal every wound. Then his eyes light up as he gushes over Merc, but she bats it away like it's nothing, even as her tail keeps wagging like she's bursting with joy. Night creeps over the village, and a heavy silence pins the small houses in place, while the streets stay dead empty. Fragrant steam gushes up from a steaming hot pot, and in the clear broth swirl tender meat and pale yellow lemon-like slices. Merc stared in disbelief, eyes wide as he inspected the food. The moment Joshua sees the dish, his eyes light up and he gushes about how insanely appetizing everything looks. Then the girl with the cone grins and tells him the real secret. It's all because of the pot he crafted himself, made just for her. Leaning over the pot again, Merc gasps. Fruits are bobbing right alongside the meat in the broth like it's impossible. So Met can't cook at all, she thinks, fuming, and the horned girl snaps at him, furious that he keeps talking like cooking is totally out of her reach. Joshua gets the sinking feeling Metty's offended, and right in front of him, bam, there's a steaming plate of freshly cooked, fragrant soup. The whole place is buzzing, people and workers dart around, doing their thing, and then this young man clocks it. The dish in front of him looks way better than anything Matt's ever managed to cook. Ilya takes one sip of the soup and her eyes light up on the spot. The flavor is unreal. With a fiery blush on her cheeks, Met beams and admits she gave it everything. Then Merc, zero hesitation, snatches a taste and plunges into a spoonful of soup. Her eyes shimmered and real shock lit up her face. Merc practically couldn't stop himself from gushing that the dish was insanely good and that it was the first time Met had ever cooked something like this. The girl just smiled, calm and satisfied, like there was no way it could have turned out any other way. She points out that she added the mushrooms Merc brought, and when he pushes back, she blurts out, shocked, that they turned out insanely juicy, like she never imagined they could be, and Met's face lights up as he asks again, wait, is that really true? Everyone's watching with big smiles, and then Met drops the truth. The girl loved those mushrooms too. She reaches for her words, but a sudden noise from outside slams the moment shut. So she whips to the window, and her eyes lock onto the roof of the next building. Joshua pops up behind her out of nowhere. He's been watching too. Up on the roof, a winged girl stands tall, and one wing is way smaller than the other. Merc figures the winged girl has come for their meat, and Met can't wrap his head around it, until her stomach growls so loud it shocks them both. Her cheeks flare hot, burning all the way up to her ears from pure embarrassment, and the moment Met steps in, her awkwardness spikes to a whole new level. Something strange is buried deep inside her gaze. Out of nowhere, the girl wobbles and crashes to the ground. Joshua explodes into a shout, trying to warn her in time. Right at the last second, a weird slime-like creature swoops in and saves the girl. Joshua even calls her Wiz. Joshua, Elijah, and the others storm over, frantically checking her condition, while the boy insists Wiz is a real friend, and the creature keeps staring with worry. They rush to the girl who'd hit the ground with a soft, horrible thud, and Ilya instantly knew it. This winged beauty had passed out cold, while Met's eyes snapped to the worst part. Her wing was broken. Terror slams into Joshua, and real fear freezes his face. Right beside him, Merc wears a tight, worried stare, clenching a spoon between his lips as restlessness and anxiety churn in him too. Everyone's got the same questions stuck in their heads. What in the world happened to her? Merc blurts in shock, "Who are you?" as he stares at the girl's unconscious face like the answers are right there. Curiosity takes the wheel. Could she really be part human? One after another, everyone crowds in on the winged girl, inspecting her up close with hawk-eyed focus. The girl snaps back to her senses, clutching her face like it's on fire, and Joshua panics. What if she can't even speak? He orders Ilya to set up a bed, and she shoots back that she'll handle it in a minute. That winged girl trembles in little jolts, and Met rushes her a steaming bowl of soup, swearing it'll warm her up fast. She takes a few sips, then the stranger faceplants into another faint, and panic hits Met hard, but Joshua steps in and tells her not to worry. The girl has only fallen asleep. As he watches the winged one, Met finally snaps out of it, and right in front of him, there's a girl, sound asleep, peaceful as ever. Merca has a sinking feeling. This girl might be the real Tango. When Joshua asks his new question, she leans in and tells him, "Our house sits on a little hill west of my place, and every single resident there has wings. The boy admits he's never heard of anything like this before, but he can't shake the feeling she must be from one of those semi-human clans that live around here. Ilya comes back saying the prey is ready, and Joshua thanks her, then snaps that they've got one job first: heal the captive. Only after that will they move her. A healing spell ignites in his palm, and Merc watches every single move like it's life or death. The girl is cuddled up, sweetly snoozing on the top bunk, while the hero lies right beside her. Then the guy leans in and tells Viz to keep watch over her. Concerned villagers crowded the entrance, and the mysterious figure glided up, calming them with velvet words. Everything's under control. You can go back to the celebration safe and sound. She even teased with a confident smile that more delightful surprises were coming. They say Joshua can do anything, because his talent has no limits at all. Merc remembers his mom telling him that only true geniuses can handle two kinds of magic. Then he blurts out, "Wait, I don't even have two. I just tap into a subtype, and my healing is way simpler than you think." And Merc is shocked he even managed to say it. Astonished, Joshua hears her say she knows about magic. Then she drops the bomb that their kind are animals who can cast spells. Joshua can't help it and presses Smerik, asking if she's got magic too. She grins, says she's mastered wind magic, then rises from her seat like it's nothing. Ilya squints at her, suspicious as ever. Merc slips outside, thrusts his hands forward, and murmurs a spell. Then a tiny whirlwind erupts from his palms, curling the dust into a soft, swirling breeze. She cups her ears and sheepishly laughs that she's doing it just for fun, and Joshua lets out a heavy sigh, admitting he isn't built for this fight. Then he asks if she knows her sign. Merc grins and labels himself the White Wolf, and he cranks up the charms of cold and healing. Joshua dug into the details and realized the spells weren't all the same. Each one carried a different element. Then it clicked. She had a special sign that let her master two kinds of magic at the same time. Curious, the boy turns to Merc and blurts out, "Has anyone ever taught you magic?" Merc's cheeks warm as she admits her mother only taught her the basics of wind magic, the exact kind she's been using herself. After a beat, she can't help but hope Joshua might share something more. The young man tells her he can only teach the basics, but since she already has magic, she'll glide right through it. Then curiosity flares in her eyes as he grins and dares her to try freezing the water in the bucket, saying all she has to do is picture it. Joshua started forging a magic wand for her, then leaned in and told her to picture it, freezing water by locking all her power into the tip. With a snap of an ice spell, she freezes the bucket's water into solid ice, then lifts the bucket high in a burst of victory, pure triumph lighting up Merca's eyes. Joshua and Ilya burst into cheers, praising their friend with all their hearts. Joshua pushes her forward, promising that if she keeps grinding, she'll unlock even bigger results. She thanks him with real sincerity. Then Merc, fired up by what he's witnessed, studies the staff closely and decides to train, and just like that, the boy suddenly remembers something crucial. He says he's going to build something huge, something that matters, and he urgently needs Merc's help to pull it off. The girl snaps to attention with Ilya, both staring at him in shock, hanging on every word like, "Tell us more." Next morning, the winged girl is still curled up, sweet as can be, and Merc and Joshua hit the street side by side. Joshua crouched, yanked the basement door open, and grinned as he told us he'd ordered the demons to dig this monstrous pit. Then he started down, firing off the details. The walls are iron, and the doors are forged from purple metal. Joshua fires up the flame, then sweeps his eyes around with sharp caution. Size matters, surprises lurk everywhere, and he can't miss a thing. That huge hall hits her eyes the second she walks in. Then Joshua leans over to Merc and orders him to blanket the floor with ice right here. She stares in shock, wondering if this is just another round of training coming at her. It lays out the plan. This won't just supercharge her training. It'll let her stash frozen food in her room so it won't spoil. And Merc's all in as she confidently declares she can organize it. He stares at her with burning hope, because he'd never have dared try anything like that by himself, and when she gasps, "Is there anything you can't do?" he finally admits, voice trembling, of every spell in existence, he's only mastered the magic of creation. The girl clocks something weird in the air, and Joshua, worry all over his face, tells her to slow down, practice, and go again. Right then, Merc senses something off. Joshua urges her to step back, but she cuts him off and refuses. She blurts it out. Outside, a loud tango is blasting, and she swears she'll come join you later. They bolted out of the basement and raced to the house where Tengu was napping. Then, right in front of them, a winged girl appeared. Meet and Ilya stood beside her, and Viz was joyfully bouncing around like he owned the place. Ilya tries to scare the girl with a blunt warning, mess up again and she could pass out once more, but Tengu waves it off, smugly saying she's fine now and shouldn't burden anyone. Then Joshua steps in and softens the moment with kind, sympathetic words. When he spots her small wings, he says they're too tiny to take her far, so she hangs her head with a sad sigh. Then Joshua steps in first, introduces himself, and tells her to introduce herself. The tango happens in dead silence, and the boy clocks the rule fast. Here, you don't talk to strangers. Shyly jumps in and introduces herself as Asuha, then makes it crystal clear she's a tango dancer. Marek and Ilya trade names, and Ilya declares she runs the whole village. Then Joshua repeats her words word for word to lock it in. The man doubles down, insisting she can't fly, but the girl locks eyes on him, still staring, and he doesn't back off. He sucked in a deep breath and announced he'd build a flying device. Then the girls stared at him like he'd just said something totally insane. Ilya can't wrap his head around it. This guy can even build wings. Joshua laughs it off, saying it's way too complex, and the best he can do is a wobbly little toy replica. A scepter studded with a massive, glittering gemstone slams into the boy's hands, and he swears this is exactly what he needs to control what's coming. Joshua suddenly quizzes Asuha, asking if she can cast spells, and she's thrown off until he quickly breaks it down. Picture the wind gusts you want to unleash, then shout the word wind loud and clear. Asuha nods, ready to try, while Merc stands close by, watching every move. The girl heeded the boy's advice and unleashed a whirlwind so savage and powerful that everyone nearby froze, staring in pure stunned amazement. Joshua grins and swears that with this staff, Asuha will soar through the sky, no doubt. He thrusts it into her hands, and Merc leans in, scrutinizing every detail, comparing it to his own, noticing the stones don't match in color at all. And then he sees it clearly. Asuha's stone is green. The boy points out that this stone is pure magic, yanked from a swamp-dwelling slug, and says these same colored gems crank up the wind's power. Then, just like that, Ilya snaps back to the moment they got this trophy. Asuka and Merca stare at each other like, what is going on? Because nothing makes sense until the guy cuts himself off and hammers one thing home. This stone unleashes a terrifying wind. Then he throws out a wild idea. Come on, Asuka, fly with me. She hesitates, but finally cracks. Fine, I'll try. She kicks off her spell, and the moment the words leave her mouth, a savage gust of wind howls around the heroes. The stream rips her from the ground, and she rockets into the sky, leaving the heroes staring in pure awe. Euphoric shouts rip through the air, everyone stunned beyond words, because she actually pulled off flight for real. Startled, Ilya whips his gaze to Asuha, floating in the air, and blurts out whether that stone truly lifted her like this. Joshua nods and says it's a magical stone, but her own magic powered the crazy flight too. Sakaga lunges forward and reaches for the staff, trying to hand it back and insisting she can't take it. But Joshua just drops the gift into her hands, swearing that this staff is the wings they lost. The boy shoots the idea right away. Don't hand the staff back, use tango instead. She nods and agrees to try, and Joshua fires up. People have been showing up near their territory, hunting half-humans, so the flying brethren might be the key. Their crew is needed to scout from above and grab the intel. Asuka nods and says, sure, but we've got to talk it through with the family first. Then Ilya chimes in, and if it all goes right, our whole family is gonna be over the moon. She told them straight up that if their village can lend a hand, they shouldn't hold back, reach out anytime. The girl warns Asuka to watch out for liars, and Asuka, instead of shrugging it off, gratefully thanks her from the heart. Asaha gratefully thanks Ilya for the help and swears she'll answer that kindness right back. And Ilya only smiles, telling her she'll always be welcomed here. Asuka rockets up into the sky, and everyone just stares at her with wide eyes, while Merc clocks that Elijah and Joshua are genuinely good people, even if they're a little too trusting sometimes. The Met leans in, studies the heroes like a hawk, and grins. So that's it, their real charm is right here. The girl jolts Ilya's memory, pulling his focus back to her request to Joshua. Then the boy stares at her like, wait, what? Until it finally clicks, and she remembers exactly what she came to ask. With the tension already crackling in the air, Ilya blurts out that if it's not a huge hassle, Joshua wants him to craft a new flute, because hers, the one her mom gave her, is completely broken, so the boy doesn't even hesitate and eagerly jumps in to help. Joshua can't stop staring at the shape and material, and the second the explanation lands, he shoots straight into making the exact tool they need, leaving the girls buzzing with admiration. Ilya thanks the boy, and he cheers her on, praying her flute brings her good luck. Then, when they ask the girl to play, she jumps at the chance without hesitation. The crowd erupts, and it nudges Situ, still a little shaky, reach for the strings, while Joshua's mind races ahead, painting the moment her heart's tenderness turns into a melody that's about to fill the air. Ilya plucks out a melody, then blasts a piercing whistle, and the heroes rocket backward in pure shock. In horror, they clamp both ears shut and scramble to stop Ilya, desperate and panicked. The game slowly dies away, and the girl lets out a sweet, satisfied smile. She still remembers every single melody, even after all this time, and the heroes tense up fast, because in the village an alarm has already blared. Someone mistook a whistle for a battle horn and swore it was a signal for an attack. Ilya shoots back that he'll prove he's got the same flute-playing spark as Merc, but Joshua and Met hit him with a nasty warning. Maybe he should just drop the flute for good. Then Joshua even suggests it could be used to scare opponents, and the girl only lets out a heavy sigh as she admits she'd never want that kind of power to fall on anyone, not even her enemies. With joy, Ilya ushers Medi over and offers her a cozy spot by the books, but she's too shy to accept and politely turns him down. And while that's happening, Joshua clocks it. Asuka is already gone, swallowed by the distance. A soft smile spreads across his face as he stares into the distance, praying, really praying, that everything turns out okay for her. She has no clue that tomorrow she'll be back. Joshua can't stop smiling. He never saw this kind of instant breakthrough coming. In just the last 2 days, with help from golems and slimes, they blasted through and fully finished the northwest walls. A thunderous shout rips him around to face it. Merc frantically races to everyone, blaring the news. Smoke is pouring up from the northern mountain, and Joshua can't even pretend he isn't worried. After he scrambled over the wall, Merc jabs his hand toward the smoke curling up behind the mountain, and it looks like something just like that is brewing over there too. Ilya plants a reassuring hand on her shoulder and promises, without doubt, that she'll be able to accept everyone. Joshua finally admits he depends on her, and the second he says it, something snaps his attention dead in its tracks. Out of all of them, Asuka stood right there. After the fight, the half-people are utterly drained. Some are badly hurt and lifted up in strong arms, while the younger ones brace their elders, steadying them so they can keep standing. The mere thought of slave traders striking sent horror crashing into Joshua's chest. The villagers sprint in a frenzy to rescue the winged half-humans who are in deep trouble, while Asuha stays deadly quiet, watching it all unfold from the walls. Worried out of his mind, Joshua demands to know what happened and tells the girl they'll all get shelter. Then her tears spill as she sobs that their village burned to the ground. While Ashuga is spinning his tail, one of the winged half-humans spots Joshua out of nowhere, and his heart slams with terror. A real human is standing right there. Confused out of his mind, he panics, blurts the truth, and screams that this means doom for everyone. Panic rips through him, and he shouts for everyone to run. Winged half-humans shake with fear and scatter every which way. Elijah fights to prove Joshua isn't like that at all, but once the others clock her human side, they shut her down, because what really has them hooked is why everyone's shown up here and what's going on. Ilya's confused eyes sweep across the terrified half-humans, and it's like she can't find her next move. Then Asu's scream rips through the silence, snapping everyone to a stop on the spot. Sobbing, she gasps that Joshua is her savior, and insists they're nothing like everyone else. Winged half-humans go rigid at the sound, and she snaps that it was the heroes who opened the gates and brought them into the village. One of the Tengu breaks the silence and apologizes for how he acted, but Ilya just flicks his hand like it's nothing, saying they've all got a brutal job ahead and a breather won't hurt. Ilya rushes to set up places for the wounded, while Merc demands they show every injury right away so treatment can start instantly, and all the villagers swarm in, supporting the Tengu with hands, hearts, and non-stop care. As the rescue mission is still roaring, Asucha blurts out the truth. Only a third of the residents made it here. Another third was dragged away as captives, and the last third burned to death in the flames, and it all traces back to one monster who can unleash terrifying fire. Joshua points at the clues and says, "These aren't just any fire mages, they're the same ones that hit the werewolf village." Asua nods hard, explaining that there were plenty of attackers, but it was the fire mages who burned their homes to the ground. The boy truly believed powerful wizards were standing right in front of him. Then he gulped, apologized for the hesitation, and still asked if they could use other kinds of magic. Asuk didn't hesitate either. There was only the fire element. The girl clocks it instantly. Same purple cloak as Joshua, same descendants of the god of fire label, while Joshua's jaw drops at what he's just heard. It reminds me of Laska's cousin. People had whispers about certain acquaintances. At the Academy of Magic, everyone swore they were the real deal, true prodigies with the divine fire mark blazing on their hands, and somehow the amazing ones always stood out in that striking purple. The boy leans in and asks if she knows anything else, and she answers. On her way from the west to the village, she'd been trying to check on her relatives, the ones who'd gone hunting. Right in front of her sprawled a cozy little hamlet, already buzzing with people. Pure terror slammed into her the moment she saw it. While demons and werewolves circled around, her own relatives were forced to toil in captivity. Stunned, Joshua and Elijah hound her again, demanding the answer one more time. She said that once that photo was done, she marched straight to her father and begged him to team up, and he stepped away to think over her offer. And just like that, there was no time left. He died that very day, swallowed by the flames as the attackers closed in and the whole world went up in fire. Joshua clocks them and swears they're from the Western settlement, ones he's already seen. Still, it feels wrong. There's no way anyone should be here. His gut screams one thing: slave traders have moved in, stalking new victims. Without a real game plan, the village won't survive. Slave traders and fire mages will come right back, and next time they'll show up with reinforcements. He realizes the elite troops' intervention is about to crush him, so he snaps into action. He has to slam his positions into place right now. He shot a quick look at his friends and said he needed to talk, right away, about something huge. In the semicircle, everyone huddled close as Joshua stepped forward and fired up the room. If we trust the data Asuha gave us, people could be flocking to them soon. The girls shoot each other nervous looks, and when the young man clocks it, he grins and says, "Perfect. This is exactly what I wanted to talk about." Elja strides forward with unshakable confidence and declares, "The time for battle is here." It boldly promises, no evacuation, no surrender, no retreat, even if the enemy closes in. Joshua blurts out that he's got an idea, and the girls snap to attention instantly, hanging on his every word. He's saying strike back right now, there's zero time to waste. The Met rockets up, buzzing with the idea. Now it's time to hit first, and drag revenge back for every wrong humans have ever done. The boy catches her mood in an instant, then snaps, "Forget the feelings. Our only job right now is to rescue everyone they dragged at the checkpoint." First, the commander orders them to cut the numbers down, then strike back, and only then Merc instantly locks onto the plan, pushing the idea of luring the enemy out of the ambush, and Joshua nods. Once the guards are taken out, it's straight into the fight for the outpost. Joshua strides up to Viz and tells him he and the golem are set to hunt coal in the caves, and the slime leaps up in pure joy, all fired up to go. Merc flashes a warm wave to the golem, and Ilya presses the man again. "What's this strange coal?" The guy grins and says it's fuel that catches instantly, perfect for setting traps. Then he turns right back to Merc. Joshua hammers home that they'll desperately need the werewolf to move at lightning speed, and Merc doesn't even flinch. He promises they'll do whatever it takes. Seeing that kind of grit, the boy's eyes ignite. He tells them to bait the slave traders into the open, then slips back at a safe distance and guides them straight toward the northern gate. Joshua snaps orders to Asasi, lead Merca and the wolves straight to the village, and tells her this: if they slam the door on the enemy's retreat, they'll spring the trap. It's dangerous as hell, but he's dead sure there's no other way. Merc and Asuka shoot them a confident grin, like, "You can count on us." And just then, Joshua suddenly remembers something. The young man tells her that when Asuka comes back, he'll hit her with one last request. She has to whip up the wind from the walls, right then and there. He'll hand the full details to Met, so Asuka needs to rush to her immediately. Asuka nods like she's cracked the code. She gets it instantly. With the werewolves at their side, the whole team barrels toward the mission, and while that's happening, Joshua hears a voice calling his name. Met asks if he wants to give her an order, and the young man nods right away, telling her that if he plays the bait, he won't be able to wrestle control of the situation. Shock flashed across the girls' faces, because his words had clearly thrown them into real trouble. Even after everything they try, Elijah still demands to be the bait, yet Joshua hard stops her with sheer stubborn refusal. With a grim stare, he snaps that certain problems can't be handled with anyone watching, and the only way to fix them is to close the distance to the enemy. The boy tells Ilya to hold her ground by the castle gates and join the battle only when the agreed signal hits, and even with a reluctant sigh, she agrees, while Joshua answers with a thankful smile. That's why he hands the reins to Mit, because he tells her straight up, now she has to keep watch, call the shots, and coordinate every move from behind the walls. The girl's nerves are buzzing, but she lifts her hand to greet him and vows she'll remember everything. Joshua quickly soothes her, promising he'll stay with her through visa. Then he pushes them to get ready and make sure they're protected, and still, the girls don't fully get what he's talking about. To back up his words, the hero goes all in. He conjures it in plain sight, and with magic, a real wooden ballista materializes right in front of everyone. The girl holds up the device and grins like it's a giant catapult on a stand, ready to blast massive arrows, or even smash stones. And with stars in her eyes, she can't wait to see it fire, but the boy slams down the idea and stops her cold. Finally, they stop using that method, and right then the eerie quiet shatters. Over the hill, a golem and a bunch of slimes crawl out, hauling coal like it's nothing, and it all clicks. Wiz was the one delivering it all. He mentally clicks at how slickly they pull it off. Then he jams the coal into a bag, folding in lard like he's cooking up a weapon, and Joshua fires back. That grim mix gets scattered across the enemy ranks, right along with the tent. Then he orders Meta to loose a few fire arrows close to them, and the girl hangs on every word, while the guy snaps at her that they've got no time to waste, and they'd better keep prepping for Merc and the others' arrival. The sky is dimming fast. Tiny clouds glide across it like they're creeping in for something big. Something pulled my eyes right in. From behind the hill, Merca and Asahi's squad bursts into view. Strangers are closing in. Then Merc, now a fuzzy, woolly beast, leans over and tells the boy that around 300 people are rushing ahead and asks if their whole squad is safe. She reassures him that everyone's okay, untouched and unharmed. Joshua tells them to spread out demons and werewolves at long range, watch the enemy, and if anyone tries to bolt, wipe them out on the spot. If they don't fight back, drag them in and tie them up. Merc leans in and asks if Joshua will go alone, and the kid nods with full confidence, swearing he'll be just fine. Excitement bursts through Ilya and Meaty, but they don't slow down. Battle prep keeps roaring on. With a cocky grin on his face, he says, "If I'm a man, I'm the one who goes and meets my comrades, straight up." The army barrels toward the village, and one soldier swears he's seen werewolves with his own eyes. Then, out of nowhere, a towering wall and a massive gate rise up in front of them. Out in the crowd, someone blurts out that they're totally lost, and from the back row, a hooded man erupts with furious curses, snarling that they can't follow the path the right way. Tossing his hood aside, the freckled young man finally reveals himself. Then he snaps his tongue with pure annoyance. The soldier calls him Mr. Varnish, and he shoots a confident hand toward the wall, insisting this is exactly the spot they need. Suddenly he blurts that werewolves are stalking the wall. Then Joshua snaps into action, drawing the slave traders' focus and demanding they talk. Varnish cautiously presses, "Who are you and why are you stuck here?" And right away, the young man answers with a name, then shoots back the same question. "So why are you here?" Varnish hits a nerve, because it brings you right back to those days when he teamed up with Log, working as the creator's most loyal mage. Right away, the young man blurts his name and fires back. "Joshua, do you remember who once polished your sword?" And the second Joshua hears that, it clicks. Standing in front of him is Log's own kin, the brilliant master of fire. Joshua smirks, barely masking his contempt, and snaps that folks like this are hardly worth remembering. The boy urges Varnish to drop the slave trade and run back to the academy, but Varnish just scoffs, like he's still got him all figured out, and then he turns on Joshua, snarling that the creator's seal is the absolute worst. With that mark, you can't even step into the academy. Varnish swaggered up to Joshua, smirking like, "So you've got a taste of fate, think you envy my mark now, it's already done." Then he barked, all arrogance, "Kneel before the best student of the Versailles Academy." Fuming at the injustice, Joshua just can't wrap his head around how Logue judges people with 0 labels, so he blurts out in pure rage, "How does someone this talented waste their time hunting for slaves?" Joshua lays down the law to Varnish. Hunting half-humans is forbidden by divine command, but the boy only shrugs and grins, saying nothing can stop him, and he's not about to cage himself under any rules. They're claiming it's just curiosity to have fun, and that smug excuse smells cynical. When Elijah and Joshua hear it, their faces twist, and the whole thing makes their disgust spill out loud, with Joshua flat out calling it disgusting. Flames flare in his palm, and Varnish grins, because the Academy's lessons never handed him real joy, not like screams, shouts, and tears do. A sinister grin snaps across his face as he blurts it out. Hurting these inhuman rabble is what makes his heart pound. Varnish smirks and says Joshua will never, ever get why this is so hilarious, while his own people behind him snicker and choke on laughter. Then Varnish hammers the point home. Heroes like Joshua shouldn't even be born. Joshua stands there like he's fearless and blasts, "It's better to die than to turn into Varnish," and the words hit the poor guy like a knife. Yosip decides he's going to torment his opponent for all he's worth. Vanny's seething with rage, urges that they kill the guy right now and swears he'll turn him to dust. Then Joshua shoots back, drenched in sarcasm, saying that fool, so easy to control, and he flips it. It'll be Vanny's who ends up as dust instead. Rage takes Varnish over, and he barks for silence, shoves the boy to his knees to plead for mercy, and snarls that slavery is coming for him too. He tries to scare Joshua by bragging that he could burn him to ashes with the fire everyone in the world worships, and calls genius. A blazing divine flame erupted from his hands, blasting towering pillars of fire up around him. Joshua froze, breath caught, because the magic at the highest level didn't just burn the surface, it hit the very core. In his head, the question won't stop spiraling. How many half-humans has this fire already wiped out? Rage burned in Joshua's eyes as he swore he'd take everything back to the last one. Then his thoughts sprinted straight to how he'd seize the prepared raw materials. A blast of coal and grease tumbles into the fire, sparks explode everywhere, and the flames roar up even hotter. Horror slammed into Varnish as the truth hit, and he screamed at Joshua to stop, right now, before it was too late. Rage tearing through him, he bellows in agony, screaming at his subordinates to stamp out the flames right now. Flames mercilessly swallow Varnisha alive, and Joshua freezes, because he realizes right then that getting out won't be simple. That powder won't let him slip away, and the oil has already soaked clear through every inch of his clothes. Flames devour the mage as he screams, "I can't die like this," because he's the Academy's last hope and Valbarani's heir, and panic drives him to beg anyone to save him. Even the subordinates get hit by the powder, so they scramble to Varnish for help, but right then, a Tang strike slams down from the sky, led by Asuha. Retreat, the enemy troops hiss as it spreads through their ranks. Then the alarm shrieks, and Met's squad crashes into the battle, while fireballs from the city walls slam down and explode right beneath the enemy's feet. The flames swallow the soldiers whole, and in one explosive sweep, everything around them erupts into fire with them. A blood-chilling scream cuts through the chaos. Everything is engulfed in raging fire. No one stalls. They bolt straight to the forest, fleeing the flames before they can catch them. Right by the forest line, wolves are already stalking them, so they bolt in panic, screaming their hearts out, and slam into the beasts like they can hack a way through to escape. From the far side of the forest, Ilya bursts out with his squad, every fighter in sharp military uniforms, gripping spears, while the girl clutches a katana like she's ready to cut through anything. One of the soldiers clocks the girl ahead of him, but before he can even react, she's already holding her sword up high, braced and ready to slash. She slips through the soldiers like lightning, landing wounds before they can even blink, then barks orders to open the gates, right as another squad spills out to clash with the threat, and she screams for them to surge ahead and stop Ilya from breaking through. They charge straight into battle, and boom, steel and fury collide as soldiers and half-humans slam into each other. A brutal brawl between werewolves, demons, and humans is exploding in fresh waves of rage. Then one fighter screams the forests become a trap, and it's river or die. So the ones still free sprint straight for the water, and inside the demons, the first terrifying thought hits, is victory already theirs? Mehdi lunges after him, but Joshua slams on the brakes and stops her right there. With despair choking his voice, he yells at her to stop, because they still have crucial information they can't lose. With a grin, she swears she'll only snip off a tiny bit, just a little. But Merc, now a wolf, is right there, warning that Met might slip and ignore the deal, so she should handle it herself. That distrust instantly lights a fire under her. She chased Merca hard, yelling that she'd catch him for sure, and Joshua stared in shock, because that girl could bolt like a wolf. But before he even had time to process it, a voice snapped him out of his thoughts. Asuha closes in with a grateful smile, then drops the bombshell. These same people once torched her native village. In Joshua's memory, Varnish's burned hand flashes back, and with a hint of sadness in his voice, he admits he's still grateful for their victory. With zero patience left, one of the demons snaps. It's time to smash the outpost and rip every captive out of slavery. Joshua gets loud cheers, and right away Ilya slides over to ask what he's planning next. Then a terrifying thought hits him. What if there really are fewer people than usual? And he knows, for a shot like this, there's no way he can back out or waste it. Joy lit up my chest. We won clean, 0 casualties. But that victory hit like a warning too. Next time, we've got to move even smarter, tightening our moves and cutting the risks during the outpost assault. Then it hits him like a bolt of lightning. Why smash the hostage at all, when all he has to do is pull the captives out of there? Every captured soldier sat tightly bound in one crowded clearing, and right beside them, their weapons lay tossed in the grass. With a bright sparkle in her eyes, Mitt beams as she announces she nailed it flawlessly. Then Joshua grins, gently stroking Merc's head, and thanks both of them. A mask snaps into his palm out of nowhere, and the whole crowd goes silent, staring in pure, breathless awe. With a mask sliding on and a sharp smile curling, Joshua leans in and tells them he's got an important conversation to share. With a mask hiding his face, Joshua rips into the captives' minds, hunting for one thing: how many people stand watch over their fortress. Not a single soldier dared to speak. Ilya snapped her katana free and dragged the edge to one captive's throat, her voice icy and unyielding. She wasn't here for chatter, only for action. Cold as ice, she snaps at them. 10 seconds. Panic spikes their voices as they blurt that the fortress holds 50 people, and Joshua hangs on every single word. From every side, the soldiers roar the same one truth: everyone here will swear it's real. So Joshua wastes no time, yells for Tengu and the werewolves from Vangar, and has them haul the prisoners straight to the fortress. With the freed prisoners leading the charge, the whole procession streams forward right behind them like clockwork. Joshua whips around in shock, because every last Tengu and werewolf is safe, like they're one huge, happy family. Out of nowhere, Ilya bursts from behind and demands, "So what's your game plan?" The man swears they'll rescue every single one of his relatives, and that not a single one will die, period. leaving Ilya so stunned he can't even hide the shock. The leader orders Met to stay in the village with half the demons, just in case, while the rest of the team steals their resolve, ready to move. She makes it crystal clear, this mission is huge. Even though she won't step onto the battlefield, she's determined to hold the village line, and before it all kicks off, she sends everyone off with a heartfelt, "Good luck out there." Joshua throws out a signal and talks them into joining his side. The road snakes through a thick forest as the travelers drift toward the outpost, and at the front strides Joshua, while Merc shoots him a warning. A human fortress is about to rise. Joshua only smirks and nods ahead, because their destination is already staring them down from the distance. The young man snaps his command for everyone to freeze, then he herds them in tight and lays out the plan like he's about to kick off the whole operation. A command ripped through the ranks to surround the fortress, and Ilya couldn't shake the nagging thought, was that really all they had? Doubts gnaw at her. Is this really enough? He swears they won't have to fight, but the mercenary's gut says otherwise. She pushes back hard. They've got to smash the enemies and save the people, because there are only 50 of them. Joshua then cuts through her stubborn resolve. Tell her the hostages are still in play. Then he warns, don't rush them head on. Just seal every escape route, because once they're trapped, they'll have no choice but to cave and accept your terms. Elijah tells her to trust him. If Joshua has made up his mind, then there's no turning back. Right here, right now, it all clicks into place. Night falls, the moon glows hard overhead, and Joshua starts forging torches while he tells Visa to hunt down the slimes so they can be handed out to every different corner. Each slime squad gets 2 torches, so the fighters can close in around the fortress, sweeping from the west all the way up to the north. He slapped torch after torch to life, barked at them to spread the flames wider, and then shouted orders. Werewolves shift from the east and sweep up into the north. Tangos soar above and circle the fortress like a ring of blades. Demons march the captives out of the south and straight to the walls. For the second time, Joshua crafts the mask, and then he declares he doesn't want just one prisoner. He wants a Suck, Ilya, and Merc too. 2 massive horns push out behind him, and he snaps on a mask. Then with a grave voice, he declares, "All right, it's time to start." Inside the fortress, 2 figures sit in silence. One stares out the window and blurts that Mr. Varnish just came back from wolf hunting, while the other leans in and then freezes with terror, realizing they're not their people at all. The second boy spots it instantly. There are far too many lights glowing in the forest. Elja raises the flute to her lips, and the guys in the fortress instantly clamp their hands over their ears, screaming that they can't stand this awful sound, so they rush to report it to Mr. Kobius right away. Joshua, too, steps aside and digs in his hands over his ears. The boy and Ilya grin like they've just pulled off the best move ever, making enough noise to light up the whole place. Right as another character gets hit with a sharp, tight pain the moment the last notes of the melody finally fade out. A bushy-mustached man pops out of a window that swings open out of nowhere and blurts the question, "Who are you, and what unit do you belong to?" Joshua doesn't hesitate. He flat out declares that only half of the blood in his veins is human. Pointing at his team, the man boasts that he's the envoy of the Fender Coalition, and the crowd erupts in shock, stunned to the core. The guy totally misses what they're even talking about, and Joshua isn't shocked. He basically tossed that name out on the spot, assuming the coalition got its name from local lands. He insists they fight slavery and hunting, but the truth is way darker, because it's actually a union of half-humans. If the captives aren't freed, he vows to erase the fortress from the map, and the man just scoffs, calling it absurd. But Joshua snaps back in fury, because this isn't some joke when whole families have already been wiped out by that slaughter. He shoots his hand up and blasts, saying the lights around the fortress are the flames of rage from every half-person who's been hurt, and Joshua hits back that Vanish learned it the hard way through his own bitter suffering, leaving the man reeling from the impact of those words. Pinned under Joshua's relentless pressure, the captured man blurts out in terror that everything he's saying is true, and that even Mr. Varnish and the warriors can't do a thing to stop it. His face contorts in pure panic as, in a desperate scream, he shouts that the whole forest is packed to the brim with half-humans. Around the outpost, hundreds of lights stutter and flicker in the dark. Then the guide snaps into a fearful report. The fortress is locked in from every side. Joshua's scream rips through the silence. He demands Kobius choose. Free every prisoner right now, or face the flames and burn with them. Kobius is hit with pure, gut-wrenching terror. The young man flings out a threat, claiming the golems might finally tell him what to do. Then Kobius rushes in and slams the brakes on him, begging for just a little time. Joshua demanded a moment to think, sure their demands were only about freeing their comrades and letting them walk away, because right now the enemies weren't rushing to attack or snatch the property at all. Kobius swallows the offer, nods along, and can't stop wondering, Will the man actually keep his promise, or is this just another lie? His voice hits like steel. He claims he has no reason to explain himself, and he snaps a warning that the first thing to go wrong, he'll be the one who pays for it. At the same time, the boy barks an order at Ilya, and she lifts her bow, ready to unleash whatever comes next. A razor-close arrow whistles past Kobius's face, and he snaps right away, swearing he'll do everything exactly as he's told. He shouts to fling the gates wide and purge every half-human, and the massive doors slam open. Then the enslaved companions come crawling out behind them, one by one. The giants herd them forward, and Joshua yells for Ilya, Asuha, and Mirka to make sure every last one of them gets their freedom. They guide the rescued out step by step, while Mirk and Ilya stay right on watch, making sure nothing goes wrong. With a heavy ache in his voice, Ilya reports the same crushing truth. Everyone's been released, except the ones who will never come back. Joshua cranes his neck at the remains, but time won't wait. Daylight's already bleeding in outside. Ilya throws him a reassuring smile and says it all worked out. Then they head back to Kobius, and the guy immediately asks if everyone's finally been let out. The terrified man shrieks that everyone's already gone, and Joshua snaps at him to get out before he changes his mind, while Kobius, bursting with emotion, swears they'll never come back here again. Speaking for every last friend, he declares, "Half-humans are smarter than you, and this time you'll finally listen to us." But the crowd just stares in pure horror. The man blasts out a retreat call, and Joshua and his crew skid back toward the village in a frantic rush. Joshua tiptoes up and asks Mirk straight up if someone's tailing them. Mirk, still in wolf form beside him, growls out that nothing's creeping behind them, then turns the tables and asks what he meant when he brought up the Fender Coalition. A smiling man tells everyone he just wants the truth out in the open. There are way more demi-humans than people think, and you'd better stay on guard. Then Ilya jumps in, saying the name says it all. An entire alliance of different races lives together on Fender. With awe on her face, the girl watches allies from different races share a warm bond, and then she exhales hard, because the moment the slave traders finally fall, she fears that real friendship could shatter. Her words slammed into Joshua's guard, and Asaga and Mirk shot each other a look. Then Mirk stepped up and promised him, "Don't worry, we're always right nearby, so nothing like that happens." Asaga even chimed in, "And if the demons don't mind, we'll stick around too." With a grin, Joshua jumps on the idea as if it's pure gold, passionately preaching how teamwork can change everything, and teasing that a bigger alliance might be on the horizon. Elijah stares at him, hope sparking in his eyes. She snatched Asuha's hand and promised, with burning excitement, that they'd keep backing each other, no matter what. Then the whole crew whipped their eyes toward Joshua, who was watching every word like it was pure entertainment. A sharp rumor cuts through the air. The coalition has no leader. Suspicion hits the boy like lightning. He freezes as every stare lands on him. With a shaky breath, he scrambles for words and starts explaining, insisting he's only a traveler, nothing else. With sparks in his eyes, Ilya declares, "This win is mine. If I hadn't been here, nobody would have cracked the tactics and strategy." Asoa immediately agrees, saying Joshua is perfect for the job, and Mirk only grins as he backs his friends to the hilt. The boy admits he's not sure he can stomach an offer like this, because picturing someone leading half-humans feels impossible, but he also gets why the role makes giving advice easier, and he won't ignore the real problem either: housing, because he still needs somewhere to live. Elijah insists that key choices should be made by the people themselves, and he'll only offer advice, no bossing around, and if someone even more deserving shows up, he'll step aside without a fight. Elijah gladly agrees and then blasts out the announcement: Joshua is the leader of the coalition. Still on the fence, Joshua stops and listens as Mirk cheers him for his brand new position. Then, at last, the travelers finally reach the village. Everyone in captivity bursts into joy and sprints into their loved ones' arms, Maddie included, smiling as she races toward her friends and clocks how many have made it back home, while Joshua grins, relieved beyond words. This time, everyone's alive and no one's been hurt. Smoke curls out of the house and the boy snaps his head toward it. Then he turns to the girl and demands what's going on. She grins, saying she cooked a mountain of dishes because she figured everyone would come back starving, and that sparks pure joy in the half-human's face. Joshua lights up and blurts, "That's wonderful." With a jolt of pleasant surprise, he admits he never saw any of this coming. Then it hits him hard. Maybe these folks haven't eaten in ages. Met lights up and smiles, agrees, and says it with total confidence. That's exactly why she's going to be his wife. Right as shock hits, he freezes like a statue while she grins and says they fit together perfectly. Then he leans in, all curious, and asks where her confidence comes from. She lights up and admits she's been dreaming for ages to tell him this the moment she gets back, and she spins around, ready to shout the news to everyone standing there. At that exact moment, Ilya bursts in front of her and hurls a threat. Met means to ruin your reputation in front of everyone again, and her mind goes berserk, spinning like a wild, furious boar, while the crowd stands frozen, gripping the edge of their seats as everything spirals into chaos. Ilya can't help but smirk as he realizes Met is way craftier and way more of an egoist than anyone ever imagined. Met fires back that she didn't say a single bad thing, because Joshua will truly become an amazing man, and then Elijah, acting all humble, echoes her words. Ilya charges up to the guy, grabs his hands tight, and declares, right there, that today is their loved one's liberation day. Without even looking away, she stands her ground and tells him that, by tradition, they're doing a wedding ceremony right now, and she asks him to be her husband. Met snaps out loud that she won't back down, even in front of Ilya, and then hurls the idea of settling it with blades. The second she says it, the thrill hits and Met agrees instantly. Together, she and Ilya flank the boy from both sides, while Joshua scrambles to talk them out of it, only to fail. The young man starts to blurt out how he promised he wouldn't do this. Then Merc barges in mid-sentence, screaming that she's going to be his fiancée, and the girls go totally still, stunned, while Joshua's face twists with even more confusion. The girls snapped their focus to Merc, and Ilya swore he'd show her where the crayfish hibernate, but Merc cut in with a fair deal. Whoever brings down more wild boars wins, no arguing. Then Asoa, trembling, quietly suggested they all ditch the fight and just have dinner together. She decides Joshua is wiped out right now, and Ilya instantly clocks it, smirking that she's just playing it reasonable, so she can push him even harder later. Tengu shuts it down and denies every bit of it. Isaiah shot back that none of this mattered, because the moment it all started, it was crystal clear who Joshua's wife would be, and the other girls just froze, trading confused stares, desperate to catch the meaning she was hiding. The girl presses right up against him, swearing it's her. No doubt, no escape, and his face jolts with sharp, sickening realization as everything spirals way past the line. The girls' fight keeps spiking into something uglier, but right then two demons slide up to Joshua and beckon him to the feast, and he says yes immediately, no second thoughts. He feels like a brand new alliance is being forged the moment this happens, but when he thinks of the girls, a cold doubt hits him. What if it all comes crashing down? The rescued demi-humans erupted in pure joy and threw themselves into heartfelt celebrations, all cheering their victory side by side. Elijah fiddled with the decoration on his head when Joshua was suddenly gone, so Elijah whipped around and demanded where he'd disappeared to. A villager answered fast. Joshua had eaten breakfast and headed south, straight out of the village. Joshua headed south of the village, a small smile curling on his lips like he already knew something was coming. Lately, all anyone can think about is how the number of half-humans keeps exploding, while housing for them is in total freefall, forcing many to sleep out in the open under the sky. That's why the conductor snaps into action and starts building more homes. He throws up a whole street of houses and declares, 200 should be plenty. And right behind him, the locals stand there in shocked silence, staring at the unbelievable sight in front of them. Ilya grins and points out that the south side of the village is finally wide open, and now everyone will have a warm place to crash on cold nights. He's bragging too, because his handiwork is unreal. Houses have practically sprung up right before his eyes. A grin lights up her face. Joshua keeps hitting her with surprises again and again. When she passes him the cloth, she catches words of gratitude aimed at her, but the girl shakes her head and gently says, "Nope, the thanks are for me." Meanwhile, Joshua slips his gaze out the window, watching the street roll by. The villagers haul the logs together, shoulder to shoulder, and he can't shake this heavy unease inside, because what if he's getting more help than he deserves and they're just too tired to say it? But Ilya grins like it's nothing and tells him, "No way, everyone's pumped to help you." And suddenly the whole crowd is pushing hard, determined not to fall behind. Childhood memories crash into the boy's mind. Out there in the crowd, he'd always been invisible, getting neither help nor praise. And that's exactly why now, real support hits him like a surge of life. With real joy, Elijah screams that this is the real celebration. Everyone's finally free, and it feels amazing. But he snaps right after, warning it's still too soon to let your guard down. That earns a laugh from Joshua, and he agrees. His eyes sweep across the trees, and he slams home the truth. Hunting and gathering alone won't keep everyone fed, so we have to farm, and there's still plenty of land to do it. Ilya pushes the plan to find help from people who have already clawed their way out of captivity, because they've tried it before and know exactly what it takes. And Yehoshua backs him up, saying that their experience will hit even harder right now. That thoughtful boy pauses and thinks, I still have to grab seeds to grow crops, and track down livestock too, and doing all of that solo is going to be brutal. The idea of a deserted fortress flashed in his mind. Maybe slave traders had missed some valuables, so he wondered if the city was the move, but he shoved that plan aside and instead leaned in and asked Ilya, "Have you ever seen sheep?" Joshua leans in and says they're giant fluffy creatures, and the girl's face lights up, She swears she's seen something just like them a long time ago. She's sure they won't run into them now. Then the guy nods and says it makes total sense with so many wild boars out there, but he demands one thing: warn him the moment any of them show up, and Ilya promises to pass the news straight to Merc and the rest of the werewolves. Joshua thanks her, says he's got a mountain of tasks waiting, and promises he'll be back later, and when the moment hits, he'll make sure to ask for help. He shuts her down, saying she hasn't slept in ages, until she cuts in, jaw set, insisting he needs rest most of all since he hasn't gotten a wink either. And when he hears it, surprise hits him hard because she might actually be right. Just 2 days in, the South and East are already fully stocked and ready for new families. So Elijah and Joshua start climbing the wall, scanning the fresh territory with blazing excitement, and the kid blurts out that it literally looks like a real big city. The hero lanes in and tells Ilya, "We need a steady, never-ending supply of water for what comes next." With sparkling excitement, she asks if he can magically pull water straight from the air. Then the boy just shrugs, admitting he can't do that. He tells her, "Easy, there's a river right nearby. We just dig a channel and bring the water over." Elijah leans in, curious, asking if the job is too complicated, and Joshua shuts it down with a grin. He already handed every task to the half-humans, so it'll be done by tomorrow. Elijah didn't see that kind of speed coming at all. It floors him. She lights up and insists that Joshua can do absolutely anything in the world, and while the conversation keeps rolling, hearing that name for him throws the guy off for a second. When the boy hauls water into the village, the girl grabs his attention and asks for a favor, and before she can even finish, he's already nodding. Then she thanks him with a heartful smile. The girl jabs her finger at the mountain and claims there's a massive, steamy hot spring tucked right at its base. Then Joshua's eyes light up as he blurts out, "Wait, is it really an onsen?" Joy surged through Eli's veins. He finally got what she meant. Joshua leaned in and told him he'd felt the exact same thing more than once, and just like that, the exhaustion vanished like magic. With a bashful grin, Ilya confesses that a private onsen in the village would be amazing, because those local waters are absolutely magical for the skin. She blurts out an apology for her selfish request, but Joshua slams into the moment and cuts her off, saying he wants the source closed too, because all he can wash in is the river, and hot water would make life way easier. Joshua mutters that trying to heat water straight from the supply is basically hopeless, then decides he has to go straight to the source. He presses the girl one more time for the location, and she finally nods, promising to take him there. Barely holding back her excitement, she nods at his plan for an immediate departure. Then anxiety suddenly creeps into her eyes. They push toward the source, and Elijah keeps stealing nervous glances over his shoulder at everyone closing in. Mate Asuka and Merc slide in from behind, clutching towels like weapons, and Ilya narrows her eyes with pure ice-cold menace, demanding to know why they're here. Merc peeped how Ilya was laughing it up with that boy, and she practically begged to jump in with them too, but Mitt snapped a reminder that after their win, danger wasn't fully gone yet, so she wouldn't let them run off without watchful supervision. Ilya figures that if Medea brought a towel, she must have had a reason. Then she snaps in indignation, swearing she wasn't even thinking about swimming. She just needs it to wipe off sweat, and Merc casually points out that Ilya's got a towel too. Joshua can't help but cringe as he remembers. He only meant to peek at the source, not dive headfirst into it, and he still hasn't even reached it yet. A jaw-dropping view slams into their eyes as towering mountains loom on the horizon. Elijah blurts out that they've finally arrived, and Joshua can't stop admiring the breathtaking beauty. The waterfall slams into the small lake with thunder, spraying a ghostly mist that climbs into the sky, and he can't help but grin, totally awestruck by how magical this place looks. Watching the water churn and steam, the boy instantly decides it's scorching, so he yanks off his glove and dips his hand in carefully to test the heat. Pain flashes up from the burn, and he yanks his hand back so fast he blurts out, "That heat is unbearable." Sweating from the heat, he decides the onsen is a no-go, and asks Ilya straight up if there are demons lurking in those scorching springs. Ilya happily says yes, urges his friend to go for it, and even offers to rub his back. Then Meta shows up and snaps that it's her business. Elijah glares at the girl like she's trouble, while Joshua can't even picture stepping into that water. Then he snaps his head to Merc and Asuka, and they wade in for a second, before yanking their hands back fast. Too hot for them too. The boy realizes demons can handle that kind of heat, but for everyone else, that water is totally deadly. He figures the water will finally cool to the perfect temperature by the time it hits the village. Then, out of nowhere, a loud noise erupts, and his thoughts get yanked away instantly. Thunder rips across the sky again, and everyone jerks with a start, because nobody can figure out where that roar is coming from. At first, the man chalks it up to an earthquake, but Merc clocks it instantly. This isn't shaking luck. It's something like a massive stampede of wild armored boars, or creatures the same size, roaring straight under their feet. Joshua's eyes widen as he hears a weird noise right on the village's doorstep, almost too close to ignore. Merc checks it and confirms it's coming from the south, straight from the direction of the settlement. He shoots an apology at them and admits, Anson won't be able to help today. Ilya stays calm, telling everyone, no need to worry. She shoots a look full of reproach and admits there's only one thing left. Meta still has hope, while she turns and pins the blame squarely on Ilya. Met shoots daggers with her glare and sulks hard, but Joshua swoops in, talks her down, and promises they'll have their own source soon. Then he orders Asuhata to report the wanderer to the village, and she nods, ready to do it. Asuha throws her wings wide and vanishes toward the village, while Joshua declares he'll slip off to find where that weird sound is coming from. Meanwhile, Met is still seething, unable to let the insult go. They sprint over to the source of that noise, charging there fast. As soon as Joshua spots dust blasting up over the forest, it hits him instantly. Only one thing could have made that kind of chaos: a pack of wild boars charging through. His stomach clenched with one terrifying thought. What if these aren't just wild boars, but armed killers? They don't travel in herds, yet under the Lord of Demons' command, they could still be whipped into attacking as one. The boy clocks that everyone's battling for this land against the Demon King, pushing ahead as a strange rumble creeps in, then he snaps to it. These aren't wild boars at all. They're moving way too slow to be that. He freezes because this isn't a pack of wild boars at all. Out of nowhere, black, fluffy creatures charge straight at them at top speed, knocking the breath right out of him. Before my eyes, those horned, fluffy sheep-like beasts pop into view, and right in the blink of an instant, I realize what I'm seeing: it's movement. Merc grabs Joshua again and spells it out. These aren't ordinary sheep at all. The Demon King himself bred them, so they give milk and tons of top-grade wool, making their wool-rich raw material insanely valuable. But here's the catch. They're vicious, smart as hell, and they can even turn carnivore. The man spots a wool stash that could be a goldmine, but he knows he can't hold onto the whole flock for long, right when one of the creatures locks eyes with the stranger. Blood streams from the wound, and the creature jabs a finger at Joshua like he's the one it can understand, sending him reeling off balance. Joshua's eyes go wide because that creature is talking. He snaps to the conclusion it's the herd's leader. Then Muv, furious, demands to know if this guy plans to mess with their plans. The boy tries to speak, then blood floods his mouth and his words crumble into a moan. Meanwhile, the creature sneers that sure, the grass is tasty here, but this spot is way too dangerous now. So Ilya snaps his gaze across the flock, unable to find a shred of peace. From that monstrous mouth, the order blasts out, wipe this man from the face of the earth, and the whole pack snaps around to charge the heroes. A furious crowd roars that these people are a danger, and demands they be trampled. Ilya barrels toward Joshua, snaps his katana free, and yells for him to back off. Then Joshua shuts him down, saying the battlefield's packed with enemies and the only move is getting everyone back to the village, while the girl opened her mouth to argue and then froze. Right when everyone was already packed up to run, Merc snapped into a combat stance. One of the guys stared in disbelief and asked what she was about to do, and the she-wolf flashed a spark in her eyes as she made it clear. She wasn't retreating. Yasip blurts out Mirko's name in shock as a pack of shadows barrels past him. Suddenly, more werewolves crash onto the scene in front of the guy, snapping into defensive stances as they stare him down, every word watched, every move measured, with pure determination blazing in their eyes. A brutal barking snaps through the air, like someone daring the whole world to panic. The boy freezes, realizing charging in headfirst is way too dangerous, when Ilya suddenly steps up and flashes him something that pulls him right out of his fear. As the words die off and everything goes quiet, they catch the creatures pure confusion. No one can make sense of why they're acting so weird, or why the hooves suddenly stop clattering. Werewolf growls and razor-edged fear swept over everyone, and Joshua stared at how the crowd moved like wolves and sheep, then realized that exact similarity could be weaponized. Merc and his crew get the order to lock in around the monsters along the outer edge, and the creatures don't know what hit them, scared and panicking, thrashing wildly with no clue how to break free. The wolves closed in from every direction, herding the crowd into a tightening circle, and the terror on their faces kept exploding until dread froze the blood in their veins. Panic hits them hard, trembling with pure fear, as they huddle close, whispering, "What do we do now?" Joshua's determination burns in his eyes. Now he's moving. A tall wooden fence slams up around the enemies, cutting off every single escape route. Caught off guard, the creatures crumble under the pressure, clueless where this weird tree even came from, until one of them spots it. More and more runners are pouring in around them. When they finally stare closer, they see horns and wings on the strangers, and it hits them. Village reinforcements are sprinting in to back up the heroes. Despair crushes everyone, like escape is totally impossible. But the herd's leader digs deep, clenches his resolve, and shouts that now is not the time to quit. That booming shout of victory is guaranteed. Gets shattered the second the katana's razor-cold edge bites the moment, and Ilya, sword clenched in both hands, is already coiled to spring. Her stare screams danger, every muscle locks up, icy terror clamps around the heart, and confidence vanishes in a blink. Ilya's razor-sharp stare sinks straight through the beast's defenses, and terror spikes in its bones, so it backs away, helpless, because it can't survive the pressure of her gaze. Relatives corner the desperate Moa Sere and tell her, with heavy hearts, that she's been crushed in defeat. Then Ilya turns to Joshua and demands, "So what now?" Joshua sighs and admits no one else wants to throw down anymore. Now every creature quietly forms a ring around their fallen comrade, and Joshua gets it instantly. Since the resistance has finally collapsed, it's time to step forward and try talking to them. With the girls right beside him, they charge the main opponent, who was crumpled on the ground, totally drained and finished. Barely lifting its tongue, the creature keeps its eyes on the heroes like they're a threat, and the second they step closer, it shakily tries to fight back. But Joshua leans in, speaks calm reassurance, and tells it nobody's here to hurt it. Move darts aside, eyes dropping as he chokes out an apology, because terror is clawing at his chest and those attacks never stop. Joshua snaps into concern, wondering if Move has ties to the Demon King. Move nods and the truth hits hard. Yep, he's connected to him. The creature spilled the truth, how they shoved it in cramped stalls and tortured it every day, so it finally snapped and risked escaping. They griped in despair that they'd been handed dirt instead of water and rotten meat instead of food, and Joshua truly sympathized, because they'd seen treatment worse than ordinary cattle, and the moment they broke free, their misery somehow turned into people and monsters. Right now, they're peacefully grazing in this meadow, but the boy's heart sinks, like he can't believe they had to suffer through all that, again and again. He tells them that if they push any farther, human settlements will come into view. The creature lets out a grim sigh, and you can tell it's thinking the same thing. Once they pass that line, the attack will hit them all over again. Rasping, moaning cries spill out with every step. Elijah whips around to face Joshua. She asks him to jump in with them, as long as he's cool with it, and Joshua shoots back, "Are you truly sure?" Ilya backs her without a wobble, saying he trusts the coalition leader's call, and the guy just can't shake the nerves, wondering if he's even worthy of a role like that. Joshua says they've finally decided to accept them, and right then Mate, Merc, and Asuka lean in, watching every move with hungry anticipation. Joshua heads back to Saraza, and she studies him with a sharp, watchful stare. He asks how she's managing to live out here, and she shoots back a cold question: who gives them the right to stay when this land is theirs? Joshua swears he's not trying to get anything back, then leans in with a careful offer. "Maybe you'll trade us milk and wool for fresh food and a roof." He makes it clear that every scrap of land given to them is theirs to use however they want. Mayo can't believe this generous offer hits her, housing included, and she grins as she says they'll be happy. The man explains they only wanted wool, so it all clicks perfectly, and Mayo prays they'll be treated with kindness. After the intro, Joshua gripped the creature's tiny hoof and nodded like he'd sealed the deal. Then they bolted back toward the village side by side. The boy lays out the route to Cereza step by step, then grins and swears the river is right near the settlement. Ceres and her relatives would have been over the moon about Evans. She swore this place is so massive it could fit their whole pack without breaking a sweat. He listened to Muva's wishes and swore he'd build them a massive barn, and with his crazy abilities, he snapped a wooden building into existence right in front of everyone, while Muva stared in awe, blown away by the sheer power. Out of nowhere, a house shoots up right in front of them, and everyone's stunned. Then one voice insists there are even stronger people than the Demon Lord, and another swears Joshua will blow past their shepherd someday, but Joshua brushes it off and says, "Forget all that, let's head to the stable." Mubev pours out his thanks to Joshua from the bottom of his heart, tells him he can come for milk and wool anytime, and when the boy hesitates, the essence grins and says it's even better. His old coat has been tight and blazing hot for ages. Merc and Asahed can't stop staring and petting the language. His fur is so soft they feel like they'll never let go. Joshua grins like, "Yeah, it's better when everyone's on the same page." Then, as he heads for the barn, he asks if they'd be alright living like that, while in his head he's already picturing himself sinking into a comfy pillow and a cloud-soft blanket. The moment every last mob slipped indoors, sleep hit them like a wave, and Saraza snapped at them, until she caught herself and thought, maybe they're just wiped out after that brutal run. Joshua leaned in and reassured her, everything's fine. The boy spots that their fur would make the softest bed ever, so he plans to build one for himself the moment everyone wakes up. Then Sarasa blurts out, "Use me as the pillow," and Joshua just stares at her, totally baffled. Sarah's claims those places were used as beds for the Demon Lord's soldiers, and Joshua squints like, "No way, are you sure?" Muve backs her up with, "Yep, that's what I heard," and one of the guys goes, "Let's meet in the evening, I'll help." Under the deep night sky, a full moon blasts bright overhead, and my quiet shoulder becomes Joshua's soft pillow. He drops into sleep fast, soaking in the divine tenderness of Syria's fur, but as he keeps gently brushing her, something unexpected suddenly catches his hand. Ceres' sudden scream slices through the silence, and Josh's eyes snap wide. He bolts upright and blurts out, panicked, "What happened?" He jerks his hand back, because he just realized he accidentally grabbed the spot where the creatures leak milk. Sarissa frowns hard and says grabbing places like that without warning is totally unacceptable. Joshua blurts out an apology, insisting he didn't even realize where his hand ended up. Sardasa promises she won't mind if he wants milk, but makes it crystal clear they have to keep things decent, no going too far. She reminds him there's already a promise locked between them, so nothing can be changed. Joshua frowns hard, totally lost on where she's headed. Right before his eyes, Sarasa starts to transform, her whole body wrapped in a blinding, dazzling glow, and he shoots his hand up to shield himself from the light. But when the flash finally dies down and he dares to look again, what he sees knocks him completely off balance. Joshua faces a girl with wavy hair and ram-like horns, and Sarasa, eyes blazing with excitement, practically bursts out that the Demon Lord's blood runs in their veins, so they've been trained since childhood to take a human form. Joshua suddenly remembers the same thing that happened with Merc, and his shock hits hard. Then the girl grins and tells him, "Relax, I look human now, so drinking milk won't be a struggle anymore." Out of nowhere, Ilya slides up beside them, towering over Sarasa with a look that dares her to blink. Sarasa shoots back that she's the one who talked about the limits of decency. She nods like, "Yeah, I get it," but she can't figure out what she's done wrong. With his head bowed, Ilya promises he won't scold her for not knowing, then grabs Sarissa, who's already slipped back into her beast form, by the scruff and whips her back toward Joshua. Ilya yanks her toward the exit, tossing Joshua a calm promise that he'll spell out later where decency's allowed under these new rules, and Joshua quickly begs him to handle her gently, so Ilya shoots back, without hesitation, that he will. Right out of nowhere, Met bursts in and clings to hope that Sarasa will come back alive. Then Joshua can't help but stare, stunned that Met is here at all. And when he spots Merc and Asuha passed out in his tent, he still forces himself to believe there's nothing to worry about. 3 days flew by, and suddenly the villagers had fresh tools for fishing and farming. Then they even learned to shear sheep, and before long blankets piled up and warm beds filled the houses. Met beams with good news. The houses feel even cozier now, and the supplies are totally restocked. Merc even adds that every bit of it is thanks to Joshua. She also points out that the village already has a water system. Water streams in through dug channels and flows straight to every home, and Merc, Mitet, and Joshua watch the results of their labor, stunned with pride. Merc leans over the canal and blurts that he's dying to jump in and swim, and Joshua shoots back that an onsen is coming up fast, so they can swim there, and this water is even safe to drink. Then Met laughs that getting water is suddenly way too easy now, and the guy adds they can finally irrigate the fields again too. Joshua makes the choice to storm the abandoned slave trader fortress. Maybe there's still something valuable hiding inside. Met declared she'd join him. No worries, the settlement's locked down even without her, and insisted she just had to see the fortress herself. Joshua nodded at once, and Met pushed it further. She was exactly the kind of guard he needed, since Ilya's the elder and is tied up with too many other responsibilities. Suddenly, fear crashes over her. What if Elijah hears? She goes stone still, and the awkward boy beside her makes the silence feel even heavier. Then Merc strides up, says exactly what needs saying, and announces he's taking them with him. Joshua is thrilled. Turns out Asuka and Ilya have recruited others to learn the hunt, so this trio finally gets to roll together. Merc even bolts ahead to scout, and Joshua reassures them, "Don't worry, we'll catch up with you soon and join the hunt." Out on the road past the lush green fields, where the moves roamed and grazed without a care, travelers broke into friendly waves and greeted them with a warm, simple gesture. As Joshua and Asuka press deeper down the forest path, Merc, fresh back from scouting, comes bolting up to them, and with a gasp he blurts that something just happened nearby. She claims every soul they spotted in that fortress is dead and motionless, like someone pulled the plug on them all with their own hands. Coming back from recon, Merc drops the bomb. Every soul in that settlement is dead, and it looks like someone's hand had a hand in it. Joshua just stands there, completely frozen in shock. She's checking if this even touches the people she just had to face and bargain with, until she calls one out by name, Namasa, and the girl nods like, "Yeah, it's them." Merc drops the bombshell. Every last person is dead. The boy panics, scrambling for sense, wondering how it could have spiraled this far. Maybe Kabu's refused to cough up the promised reward after the hostages were released. But then it hits him. This isn't just about Kabu's, and suddenly nothing feels like betrayal anymore. On the far horizon, smoke crawls across the sky, and Joshua, staring it down, snaps that he has to scout the area right now and figure out what's going on. At last, the squad finally hits their destination. Then everything goes horrifying. The settlement is a dead wasteland, buildings torn apart, rubble of stone and wood scattered everywhere, gray ash blanketing the ground, and lifeless bodies left behind in the chaos. Met freezes, clutches her face in her sleeve, and the boy whips his head around, stunned beyond words, screaming as terror crashes over him. As the girl slowly scans the room, she realizes this wasn't just vandalism. Whoever did it was fueled by pure, burning hatred for people, and Joshua just nods along in silence. He finally gets it. Those countless half-humans are itching to strike back at humanity for old sins, and when he speaks up, he throws out the idea that maybe the fortress was hit by the very ones who spotted a crack in its defenses. Joshua surveys the ruins and just freezes. Everything's gone here, with homes wiped out and the fields, crops destroyed to the last stalk. He can't stop thinking about it. Maybe there's still something left in the harvest, until Merc suddenly snaps in, saying someone's coming, his voice rattled and all over the place, and the boy keeps pushing the same question over and over. Piece by piece, the squad gets boxed in by a tightening ring of armed half-humans. The second Joshua spots those sharp cat ears, the flicking flexible tails, and the weird, weapon-like gear, he instantly knows exactly who he's up against. With a booming yell, he calls out to the fighters beside him, Kodalaxes, then shoots back with total confidence, right in front of us, the mercenaries of Glank. Met tries to nail that tough word, but she only manages to pop out lonely syllables instead of the whole thing. Meanwhile, Merc locks onto the word mercenaries in his head. Then Joshua jumps in, explaining that the people of the Kodalax live out in the desert, in the Glank region, and no sugarcoating, they're half-human. One day, outsiders slammed into them, trying to seize them like trophies. Then the Kodalax homeland was ripped apart. Driven to desperation, they swore themselves to a demonic lord, but the moment their power finally surged, they broke free and chose total independence. Caught between two brutal sides, the Kodalax carved out a new life in the south of the continent. Stunned by the sudden run-in with the Kodalaxes, the boy blurts that he never saw this coming, not in a million years. The half-humans go berserk, hatching the belief that the random survivors from the settlement have finally shown up, and one of them barks an order for everyone to drop their weapons, promising a quick death if they surrender willingly. Joshua blurts out that they're not enemies and insists that just days ago he fought beside the locals, but the girl snaps even harder. She refuses to believe a single word, swearing this man isn't just vile. He supposedly captured half-humans while he hid and others were getting slaughtered. Met snaps that this is all a misunderstanding, whips out his katana in a flash, and plants himself like a wall in front of Joshua, fighting tooth and nail to prove Joshua's not like any other human. Then Kodalax spots the horn on her forehead. The mercenary reads that attack in her own way. She figures the demon is puppeteered by someone and decides it's been made to serve. She even offers a flicker of sympathy for the girl, but her hand clamps hard on the sword's hilt, ready to cut. Those words hit Metet like a gut punch. A brutal, nail-biting brawl erupts between the girls. The mercenary hurls a sharp taunt, insisting her rival is deadly in battle even with the odds stacked against her. Then Met slams back with raw fury. "Nope, I don't need anyone." She blared, "Merc, protect Joshua," and Merc only snapped back that he'd get it, no hints needed. Meanwhile, a werewolf lurked on the sidelines, staring hard at the clash, convinced both sides match strength. Meanwhile, a bunch of other mercenaries are already charging toward the meeting spot. Joshua tears through answers like he's running out of time, fully aware of the brutal mess that race is in, and he refuses to spark a war with the people of Glank. No fights, no enemies, so he makes his move and calls Meta. The young man tells the girl to step back, and she obeys instantly, while he chants a creation spell at the same time. Out of nowhere, a shadowed figure steps in front of the hired hand and shuts down her attack, blocking her path, and when her sword comes crashing down, it doesn't even land on her foe. It slams into the stone with a brutal clang. Joshua was sure the attack was over, until the mercenary snatched the edge, sprang up like it was nothing, landed on top, and vaulted over the wall in a blink, eyes blazing with pure intent to crush this battle for good. Right at the last second, someone yells Nia's name and barks for her to stop. She obeys, but the second she halts, she starts defending herself. The moment that company steps in, red flags shoot up in her mind no matter how you slice it. Then Kodalak, her father, comes out and backs Nia's side, but only partially because he's not fully buying it either. He stares hard at the crowd, and right away spots a wild mix. A human, a shapeshifter, and a demon all packed together. The mercenary leans back and admits, with a sharp grin, that it's seriously rare to run into a crew this wildly colorful. But before he can finish his sentence, an arrow zips past with a sharp whistle, and panic snaps through the crowd. Everyone whips their heads around. Then the archer steps out of hiding, Elijah. With a bow drawn, he barks a chilling demand. Who are these half-people, and why are they here? Joshua freezes when he realizes the shooter is Elijah, ready to strike. Without even a beat, Ilya snatches the katana and rockets straight at the dazed opponents, only for them to snap up their weapons and bark, "Stop." She refuses to back down. Then bam, a fight erupts with the enemies, and she charges in confidently, taking on multiple opponents at once with zero fear in her eyes. Nee's father just steps back, cool as ice, not rushing in. Yet Ilya erupts with rage, and Nee barrels straight at him headlong. The mercenary flicks aside her strikes with effortless ease, still wearing a teasing smile, like the whole thing is almost funny, while Elijah snarls at him to keep his distance from Joshua. Joshua stares at the match like it's burning a hole through him, yet the fighter's moves blur past at dizzying speed. Still, he spots it. Kodalak isn't going all out, even with another weapon sitting in his sheath, and he's in zero rush to draw it. His non-stop pleading hangs in the air as he begs the princess to stop, swearing the mercenary doesn't want to fight one bit. Nia's father stares at Ilya's and shouts that his strength is unreal, then warns him to swap his sword, because this blade won't survive that kind of fury. Nia is all confidence, but Kotelik just stays cool and says there's no need to change a thing. Hope flickered because Ilya won't back down for anyone, while Nia keeps quiet and won't dare push back against her father. And honestly, Joshua breathes easier too, since that mercenary finally managed to cool her hostility. The boy had never witnessed dagger work that fast. It was wild to think what would have happened if she'd swung both weapons at once, because even Ilya might have cracked against someone like that. Nay stayed stone quiet. Her father just grinned, shooting his daughter a smug, satisfied look. Hastily apologizing for his daughter's outburst, Kotelik swore she never meant to insult a soul. Then he straightened up and introduced himself as Balan, a soldier from Glenk, and even the boy made it clear. That was his name too. Balon can't stop wondering, could this Joshua everyone's buzzing about actually be tied to the Fender coalition? The boy should have seen it coming, and yep, his hunch got proven right on the spot. Then he zeroes in on the folks the mercenaries talked about, and Babylon, stone cold and emotionless, flat out admits it. Every ounce of this brutal cruelty was done by their own hands. The man leans in and lays it out. Kopoten's fortresses owe them big time, and now it's payback time. Joshua finally drops the real reason he demanded everyone clear out, then lays out his plan to probe the fortress, while Ilya and mate stay on edge, eyes locked on the mercenaries the whole time. Balon smirks like he owns the night, nothing left to chase now. After the hit, he wiped away every trace, and those Kodaloks aren't handing out their loot unless someone's watching. The boy insists he doesn't need anything fancy. He's only here to check the fields and the harvest. So Kotlak pushes back and suggests they should search the area. The mercenaries finally wiped out every job in these regions, and now they're gearing up to blast back south. Out of nowhere, Nea bursts back in, gasping like she sprinted the whole way. Balan snaps, "Did you find anything?" And when she shakes her head, the news hits hard. There's nothing in the fortress. Merc blinks, stunned, then asks who they're actually hunting for. Somewhere close by, Kodalax is right there, so a guy is frantically calling out, asking if anyone has seen him. Mer stood there with full confidence, saying she hadn't noticed a thing and hadn't smelled a single trace of anything suspicious, though she promised she'd warn everyone the moment something turned up. Balan gave a quiet "thank you," but Nia couldn't hide her annoyance at how polite they were, and she nervously chewed her lip like it might give her away. A tense hush clings to her as Joshua's mind spirals. Did their friend get snatched by people who can't be trusted, people with cruel plans? Panic surges so hard he just wants to find the missing one right now. Then bam, a loud voice snaps him back and someone demands, "So why are you here?" The boy snaps around and there are the Kotleks carts sprawled on their sides, with bags and boxes tossed everywhere. Balon just smirks, cracking a joke like they've dug their own grave, and then he flat out says, "Yeah, looks like we're not going anywhere from here." Mercenaries formed a tight ring around the carts, then tore into the wreckage, rattling boards, prying at supplies, and digging through the cargo, because the damage was brutal. Boards were ripped out or split clean through, axles snapped, and more than a few wheels got smashed so hard they never rolled again. Rage flashes in Nai's eyes as she snaps, furious, asking how those carts could have broken in the first place, and her father tries to soothe her by telling her that life can throw anything at you. And yeah, once they grab it, it's staying put, because there's no way they'll be able to carry a single thing out with them. Joshua jumps in to help fix everything and swears he knows how to use magic. Balon lights up at first, until she spots 5 busted carts lined up for repairs, and suddenly she knows this job will take forever. After he takes in the wreckage, the boy realizes the wheels can be fixed for sure. He told me this whole problem would be gone in just a few minutes, like it was nothing. She snaps at her companion right away, telling him to stop spouting nonsense, then points out that even a seasoned mage would still need at least a whole day to recharge this carriage. With a grin, Joshua jokes that this seasoned magician might have been tied up in totally different business. Silence crashes down, Nea seethes with rage, while Balon thoughtfully rubs his chin, lost in thought. And finally the choice is set. If Joshua pushes for it, we'll start the repairs right away. Kodalak even swears that this time he'll pay us back big for the help, no ifs, no maybes. A spark of real curiosity lights up the boy's face, then he dives right in. Why waste time fixing the busted wheels when he can build something new from scratch? In the blink of an eye, the carriage vanishes like it got swallowed by the air from sheer magical will, gone. Nia, panicked and furious, shoots Joshua a sharp, indignant question. What did he do? Her father answers her hard. If you want creation magic to work, you've got to stash the materials away in storage first. She tells her to shut up and just watch everything unfold, and the girl snaps back. She knows what's happening, but she can't wrap her head around how the whole map can move at once. Balan only smirks, mysterious as ever. He'd never seen an entire cart tucked away in the warehouse, and when he overheard the talk, Joshua realized one thing. Among the southern mages, he's the one who truly towers above everyone with insane power. With the restoration spell still sizzling, the cart snaps back to its old spot like it never moved. Brand new, no scratches, no damage at all, and Kodalak freezes in shock, then lights up, because it only took a few minutes. Balan can't stop grinning as he points out the boy's magic, and practically begs him to join their team. Then Ilya explodes with pure indignation, snapping that there's no way this is fair at all. With Met and Merc at her side, she throws herself in front of Joshua like a living shield, fighting off that unwanted choice, while Joshua stays calm and politely, confidently refuses. Meanwhile, the master warns that if those mercenaries cause more trouble nearby, he'll step in to clean up the mess. But it won't be cheap, and Balon just nods, promising he'll keep the offer on his radar. Finally, the time to cash in on that promise arrives. He proposes naming the reward for the job done. Joshua wastes zero time and asks for plant seeds, not caring about the amount. Even a handful will do. Kodalak tells someone to bring the seeds, and Ni jolts. She can't believe her father agreed so easily to hand them over, her eyes going wide with shock and rising worry. Balon just shrugs it off, muttering that settled life isn't coming and that fields won't give them hope. But the daughter digs in her heels. She refuses to quit and will do anything to keep her father standing. She labels it Glenka's final legacy, brings up Lisa, and reveals her mother's last wish. Fulfillment now teeters on something she can't afford to lose. Kodalak pauses, then realizes this is still way better than letting the seeds rot for nothing, so he pushes for others to use them, because hope for a future harvest depends on it. Balon thrusts a bag of seeds into Joshua's hands, tells him it's glink wheat, and orders him to nurture it until it sprouts. The boy hugs the bag to his chest and asks if this wheat needs special care, and Kodalak grins. No, that grain is easy, just a little water, and soon the stalks will shoot up tall and strong. Plus, a massive harvest is coming, so they'll be out there collecting it again and again in huge piles. The mercenary bids his new pals farewell and tells Josh to come see them if fate drags him to these lands. Then Nea quietly slips off to the side, waiting for him. Suddenly, Balong leans in and warns him to stop taking chances and start watching every move. He wonders if that warning is meant for anyone else who might get up to something shady around here, and the mercenary just shrugs like, "Nah, it's nothing, just friendly advice." Joshua blurts out his thanks, and as Kodalak spins back, he nods and sends him off with a warm, reassuring smile. As the squad storms back to the village, you can practically see the relief hit. Mission done. The wheat is finally in hand. But a cold, dark premonition sinks into the boy's bones, stealing his peace before it even has a chance to land. Marcus narrows his eyes at the loot, convinced it won't do them any good, because she swears what she saw is probably useless. But Joshua shrugs it off, grinning like he already knows it'll save them. Right there on the ground, laid out before them like a prize, a cloth cover, and piled on it, a mountain of vegetables. This is what their fortress hunt dragged up. Thanks to the werewolf's razor-sharp nose, they hunted for clues, but all the good stuff was already gone, so all they pulled from the wreckage were just 200 demonic turnips. The boy insists the seed stash can grow bigger, then swears growing those demonic turnips is no big deal at all. Merc leans in, dying to know what's going on. The merchants reveal the truth. It's just a normal turnip that soaked up way too much magic, and the result is wild, an amazing harvest that's perfectly safe to eat. The girl wasn't impressed at all, it just dragged even more mysteries into the mix. Then Joshua leaned in and tried to break it down. A demonic turnip is still the same turnip, it just grows at lightning speed. Give it a little watering, and in a month, you'll be able to harvest it. The young man grimaces as the demonic turnip hits, brutally bitter but still somehow edible, then points out they've still got wheat from Belong, so it's time to start sowing the field. But the second the bitterness gets mentioned, Merc snaps and demands twice, furious, "Are you telling me it's really that tasteless?" Joshua, Elijah, and Matt stood out in the open field as the man shouted that the planting area was ready, yet there was still some grass waiting to be dealt with before they could plow. Suddenly, Joshua has a brilliant idea. He remembers the time they hid an entire pack of monsters. Without a second to lose, he calls Sarah's, and Sarah's answers right away, buzzing with pure excitement. Curious, the boy asks whether he can actually manage the grass with this language, and the answer comes quick. There's nothing hard about it at all. Joshua leans in and tells the future farmers, once the grass is gone, you plow the field, then you sow millet and turnips. The boy dips his hand into his bag for a handful of seeds, and with Matt, they study them up close, fingers brushing the grains as a little spark of excitement creeps in for whatever comes next. The seeds look way too weird. She squints at the dark color and asks if anything will even grow from them, but Joshua just shrugs it off, because he's got no clue what to make of questions like that. This grain's color is nothing like millet, yet Balon swore up and down that it's all fine, so now you just have to trust him and grab the courage to try it. After wrapping up the job, Ilya drags out a huge crew of half-people into the yard, every single one who knows how to work the land, each one standing tall in a confident, mixed line behind him, and the boy gives Ilya a grateful nod. With every sharp, skilled move, the grass vanished, and the demons got down to tilling the soil, cracking in with weird little grins while they worked their tails off with pure enthusiasm. Joshua kept his eyes locked on them the whole time. Asuka rolls up to the landing with Merc, Mtet, and Ilya, muscles burning from the trial, but they push through anyway. At one point, Mtet wipes his forehead with the back of his hand and grins, and the princess leans in, tossing the seed her wishes for strength and growth. Balon shot carry a warning. Don't forget this wheat comes from your homelands. It needs kid glove care. And before long, the field will blaze under a golden carpet of millet, because Joshua is already itching to show the Kodalaks what they've built with all this hard work. The stitching's done, everything's finished, and we're fully ready to go. A few days slid by, and then one morning, Merc marched right up to Joshua and demanded something for himself. The boy's eyes snap to suck, and shock hits him hard. Then the girls stand their ground and boldly say they need clothes. Joshua pushes for the exact meaning, something weird, something special. Merc nods hard. Yep, that's what they need. Because he and Asuha both sling magic, and plain, everyday stuff just won't cut it. The girls trade sly smiles and admit it outright. They're in desperate need of witch-made clothes, and they've gotta be a matched pair. The boy catches on right away, pledging to try and make something out of my wool. Merc nods at him, grateful as can be. Joshua blurts out, what else could we create with magic? And then, with a grin, wonders what mind-blowing duets are next. At last, he blurts out his plan and fires off a spell. Right away, the girls shift, and the outfits they ordered are already glowing on them. They spin in and out of playful questions, teasing if the new look really fits, and the young man grins, telling them they look amazing, and insisting that with this change, studying will be way easier now. Merc bursts with joy, revealing that her mentor is none other than Joshua, so a treasure trove of mind-blowing wisdom lies ahead. But her guide stays tight-lipped, barely showing a shred of that excitement. He hammers it in again. He's just a creator, and every other kind of magic hits him as hard as it hits anyone else, and whatever he taught himself, he's already handed it all to the girls. Joshua tells him plainly, if he wants to keep training, he's got to hit the school or hunt down a grimoire. Merc growls that he's not leaving his hometown, so he demands one on the spot. But the kid just shrugs and says it like a death sentence. He has no idea how to make books like that. No matter what you do, you can't conquer everything in this world. Yet as he dashes toward the city, he swears he'll grab a book, and weird thoughts start spiraling in his head about inhuman streets where you could probably buy all kinds of creepy wires. Merz's ears drooped as she murmured that it was fine, no more plans needed, then whispered, I don't want Joshua shipped off to another city. The boy opens his mouth to speak, but the girl just shuts down, stuck in a heavy, silent sadness, until an awkward pause gets ripped open by someone asking, so what's got you acting this excited? Fresh off the hunt, Maddie slings a massive boar onto her shoulder and comes back grinning. Then she spots how perfect the girls look, smiles wide, and lets her catch Thump onto the ground. Merc beams that Joshua even stitched up matching outfits for him and Asuka, and the second Maddie hears it, she's instantly itching to get brand new clothes of her own. The werewolf jeers that those clothes don't suit her at all, then snarls that they're from the Tinge, wizards, and a demoness has no place here, and those words slam into her mind like a full-blown storm of rage. With a radiant smile, the girl says anything she wants is fair game, because she's just that gorgeous. The boy sees how happy she is and swears that if she really means it, he'll sew her brand new clothes for her himself. And that breathtaking girl can't help asking one more time, wait, is it really true? That spark of joy gets ripped away by the wind, and suddenly he hesitates, freezing in place as his mind crashes into overthinking. A tense silence locks the room around Merc and Asuka, and Joshua's mind races. She's probably freaking out about clothes, but he has zero clue what she's secretly dreaming of. Finally landing her permanent residence, Met turns to Joshua and demands he sew her clothes, the exact style he swears will fit her perfectly. The boy blurts out in shock, "You really want me to make the choice myself?" And the girl beams with confident joy as she nods, certain and proud. Joshua blurts out, totally baffled, that he doesn't even know where to begin. Like, he doesn't think May's clothes are bad, and honestly the armor fits the bill. Then, out of nowhere, a wild idea sparks in the demon's head. She swears she's dreaming of a bride-style dress from those wedding days, because on nights like that, everyone wears something special, right? The werewolf and Tengu shoot her annoyed looks like, yeah, sure. The young man straight up confirms, yep, you really wear those, and says he'll do it too if Joshua wants. Merc and Ashuaga explode with excitement, yelling that they urgently need wedding dresses as well, leaving Joshua totally stunned. The girls' chat explodes into a loud, happy frenzy. Every one of them barges in over the others. Then Mei blurts out that she's the one getting married and she'll never give up her outfit for anything. The rest refuse her flat out and won't back down. The boy, fed up with the arguing, just shrugs and plays along. At the same time, Elijah strides over and asks what Joshua is up to. The boy blurts it out, those girls are fighting over clothes again. So Elijah explodes, demanding they shut it down because she can't stand this tension anymore, warning that if they keep acting like this they'll only drive Joshua away. And Elijah fires right back, saying that even if they treated him worse, he still wouldn't hate them. The princess slips her fingers into his, squeezes tight, and blurts out that she loves him more than anyone in the world. A soft smile blooms on her face, and a rosy blush creeps up her cheeks. Joshua shoots a cautious nod. Yeah, he loves too. Then, under everyone's watchful eyes, he blurts, "Of course, I love everyone else as well." Meat snaps that Ilya has sprinted past everyone again, but the princess shuts it down cold. She doesn't even get what they're arguing about, refuses to let anyone be dragged through humiliation, and points out that the boy's already sick of their childish games. Those words hit Ashaka like a jolt of fear. Elijah's got zero doubt. If the other girls don't match her brains and maturity, Joshua won't ever so much as look their way. A fight erupts on the spot. Who counts as the real adult, and who's still just a kid, and Joshua stares in disbelief because before he can even blink, he's already thrust into leading a squad of half-humans. He suddenly remembered those two demons who'd shown up not long ago, begging him to let them hold a wedding. Joshua isn't just the guy who helps with magic anymore. People are coming to him for advice on the truly personal stuff, the stuff that matters most, and that's why he's genuinely thrilled to be useful to others. But inside Joshua, anxiety flares hot. He can't stop wondering, can I protect everyone and still carry this weight? Since the moment he arrived, he's genuinely bonded with the residents, and if he stays, he'll fight tooth and nail for the settlement's safety. Joshua's mind replays the betrayal, former comrades turning on him in a heartbeat, because ever since then, travel's been a nightmare for him. He can't survive solo, and in combat, his skills lag way behind everyone else. The boy can't stop asking himself if he's strong enough to do things worthy of a real coalition leader. A sudden phone call yanks him out of his spiraling thoughts like it's got teeth. Ilya blurts out that Joshua might have suddenly fallen ill, but Joshua instantly tells her it's not happening at all. Then Merc starts snapping at the princess, claiming her harsh look terrified the boy so bad he almost panicked, and Ilya's mind goes blank as the accusation hits her out of nowhere, leaving her all flustered. Startled, she whips around to Joshua like she needs proof. Did this really happen? And he grins softly, telling her everything's okay, saying he was just lost in thought. In the end, the girls crushed the argument, and they walked away with a promise, any outfit they wanted, sewn up just for them. Elijah grins at Joshua and thanks him for going above and beyond, then tells him straight up that if trouble pops up or he needs backup, he can always reach out. Rage of feelings crashes over Met, and she bursts out with a heartfelt, joyful reply, then blurts, in pure excitement, "My husband," before snapping herself back and swapping it to friend, assuring him they're ready to do anything Joshua needs. Murch jumps in and promises he'll back him up, so there's no point drowning in every worry alone. Asuka even declares she's ready to face whatever chaos shows up, together, side by side. Joshua flashes a grin and sincerely thanks everyone, right there with heart in his eyes. Out of nowhere, a weird noise slices through the silence. Everyone snaps their heads around, tense and alert, and leans in hard to catch where it's coming from. Saris barges up to them, howling in total despair, and the boy blurts out, stunned, "What happened?" Then the answer hits like a wave. Down south, the herds were calmly grazing on fresh grass when a roaring crowd of people suddenly stormed in. When word spread that orcs were hunting them down, panic ripped through everyone who heard it. Sarasa blurts it out without a pause. Those goblins are absolutely part of the demon lord's army. Her icy words whip through the air, and Joshua feels a nasty suspicion stab straight through his bones. Without wasting a second, he bursts off the ground, sprints straight for the village exit, and straight up ignores Ilia's non-stop shouts as she tries to stop him. The boy barrels forward, and then it hits him. Back when he was just watching from a distance, he'd seen Lord Demon's army in action. Saraza told him the truth. Out in the south, people get kicked out without mercy, then packed and herded like livestock. Pretending Joshua isn't noticing everything around him has stopped being possible, so his eyes lock onto that smoke climbing into the sky far away. At last, the girls slammed into pace and finally caught up to him. He keeps pressing them to stay put, warning that if they pick a side in the fight, they'll lock themselves into making a deadly enemy, and that almost guarantees they'll get dragged straight into the war. Joshua orders the demon to slam the gates shut behind him. Then Elijah's furious shout cuts through the chaos, begging him to stop. The girl pleads with the boy not to go alone, calling it way too dangerous, but he snaps back, reminding her that if half-humans side with humanity, they'll eventually be hunted down, face the demon lord's wrath, and teeter on the edge of life and death. Joshua's imagination spits out brutal images, one scarier than the last, and dark futures of what this conflict could unleash for everyone flash through his head like a nightmare on repeat. The boy snaps at his friends to freeze where they are, don't move until he's back, and even when they beg and shout for him to stop, he barrels forward without a glance back. The cart barrels into the tangled thickets to slip away from the hunt, but the orcs don't fall back for a single second. Then Joshua snaps onto the road, voice cracking as he orders everyone to flee north, while he stays put to buy them a few precious minutes. The driver barely manages to squeeze out a quick, shaky, "Thank you." With a jolt of magic, the boy snaps up a towering fence behind him in an instant, right when his pursuers are already closing in fast. Orcs roar through the air as they charge after the fugitives, their leader barking orders like a heartbeat, never slow, never let them duck out of sight, until right in their path, disaster slams down, and their whole force gets swallowed by chaos and confusion. In the middle of that empty field, the figure looks like a joke to them, so they unleash a barrage of insults, screaming that he's a fool and that people like him are already buried under entire mountains, and Joshua's stomach flips as their wild laughter won't quit. The boy clenches on with everything he's got, steels himself, then screams a dare at the orcs, "Go ahead," because he's taking every last one of them with him. Then all he hears is a chilling promise. Only he will be the one who has to say goodbye to life, and right on cue the monsters surge in, ready to strike, while Joshua stays calm until they're right up on him. The plan screams easy. Once the enemy's close in, he'll slam down his pre-built structure and choke off their path, and if it goes wrong, it's just him getting killed. But Ilya won't let him wait for the perfect moment. With a fearless grin, the girl declares, "His enemies are mine too. No matter how brutal they are, she'll plant her feet and fight anyway." The katana in Ilya's hands flashed as she finally yanked it free of its sheath, then spun toward Joshua and demanded he stop swallowing his pain, because taking that weight alone is brutal, but together, they could handle it. After he saved their friends, now it was Ilya's turn to come help him. Elijah swears that if someone comes for Joshua, he'll instantly make that enemy her problem too. A girl surges forward, yanks her katana free, and declares, "Now we pay him back for saving us. Just like he did, we're going to help him." Snapped by her own words, the princess lets her guard slip for a beat, and then, bam, an orc creeps up behind her, swinging a massive weapon straight at her head, while Joshua explodes with a loud warning. Ilya whips around in an instant, smashing the attacker into the dirt with a brutal hit, and then she looms over them, warning that if the orcs surrender right now, she won't go after them. But the plan didn't land the way they hoped. The monsters swagger on, sure of their own strength, because in their eyes, these two aren't even a real threat. So they surge forward and slam into the attack, ready to wipe out humanity's defenders in an instant. The boy feels the unstoppable fight closing in, and right then, because Ilya doesn't have a horn, the orcs can't read her as a demon, so the half-breeds are spared from getting dragged into the demon lord's war. While all of that plays out, Yosip starts conjuring, firing up a storm of magical arrows. The boy shoots Ilya a warning, then vows to pull the enemy's attention onto himself. She just grins, nods, and charges straight into the thick of the battle. Watching her, Joshua narrows his eyes and knows for sure. She understood absolutely nothing. Even with the enemy holding the upper hand, Ilya refuses to break, Arrow after arrow whistles into the orcs' ranks. Most of them are busted up and bleeding badly, and the girl wastes no time asking, so you still plan to keep fighting. But for the orcs, bowing to humans feels like pure disgrace. No way they're letting someone like her beat them, not after all that humiliation. So they rally with fresh fury and slam straight into the attack. Suddenly, the air tore open with a sharp crack. Crossbows snapped up all at once, aimed from every direction. Suddenly, a storm of arrows rockets toward York. Joshua whips around in shock, refusing to believe what he's seeing. On the walls, he spots a sea of half-humans, yet no matter how hard he pleads, they refuse to abandon their comrades, fighting shoulder to shoulder right beside them. Ilya leans in, swallows his pride, and apologizes to the guy for his reckless impulse. Joshua snapped, "Don't worry, everything's handled." Every attacker was wiped out, so there's not a single witness left, and the details of what happened are never allowed to leak. The boy gives a proud nod like it's all finally perfect, and Ilya answers with a warm, genuine smile. Meanwhile, Joshua fires up in his head. Without the orc squad, people will smell something's off, so a fresh team will be sent to investigate, and that means this place's secret won't stay hidden for long. A brutal proposal hit the room. Burn the bodies, erase every trace, and make sure nothing remained behind. He says it's all about one thing now, protecting everyone, and then he's done talking. It's time to head back. As Joshua and Elijah march back to the settlement, they find bone-tired refugees huddled near the fires, barely holding themselves together. The medic who just rolled in said a whole wave of wounded had arrived, and the moment they hit the room, everyone rushed into focused, careful treatment. The boy figures the girl's keeping her word and promises to check in with others. Then the princess chimes in, "Just ask, because help will show up right nearby." The refugees keep flinching at the half-humans, because every single touch twists into pure nightmare fuel. Then the moment Joshua steps closer, the driver snaps to recognition right away. He blurted out to Joshua, shocked, asking if he truly stood with the half-humans, and then he pushed for a plan to team up and help each other. He reassures everyone, begs them not to worry, and explains it like this: "Come on in, these semi-humans just want to defend themselves from outsiders. No hostility in their eyes." Then they welcome guests with open arms. The driver hesitates for a beat, then finally caves and agrees. Joshua leans in and demands where they ran from, and the answer hits hard: Sabrina. The locals tried to stop that 50,000-strong army, but it crushed them all anyway. In the boy's memory, Sabern flashes back to life, a southern city perched on the line between two powers. Even now, that fortress refuses to crack against Lord Demon's army, and Joshua can't stop himself from wondering, did every city south of here already fall? He confirms it, everyone's dead, no exceptions, and then the man leans in, asking if the enemy's marching toward these lands. The answer hits hard. The enemy army is driving north, same direction the Fallen were heading before. Back then, though, it was just one squad. The driver claims the whole army answers to Bish. Joshua then pushes, "You mean the Bish everyone knows, the demon lord?" And the man grins, telling him this orc is the most ruthless, bloodthirsty monster of his entire kind. A battle-scarred veteran like Bish has seen it all, and he can't stop staring at weapons forged from demon horns. But trust me, that's only the beginning. That monster ripped through Joshua's hometown and turned it into ruins. After he heard the info, Joshua grinned and promised that if they head north along the river, nothing would stop them. Then he called everyone over and invited them to eat with him before they left. The stranger promised the travelers would get plenty of provisions for the brutal stretch ahead, and the moment the other guy heard it, he stared in disbelief, then thanked him from the bottom of his heart, only for one thought to hit him hard. He still had no idea what to call his lifesaver. Joshua steps in, introduces himself, and the young man fires back, "I'm Barak, Lord Sabrina." Joshua gives him his thanks again, and they lock hands with a hard, confident shake. People and half-people slide into the meal and start eating. Merc keeps his eyes locked on everything unfolding, barely blinking, because he can't stop wondering what's really going on, while the girl admits she hasn't seen anyone here but Joshua in forever, so she's been watching too. Her explanation answers a lot, but the doubts still won't let him go. The werewolf is totally frozen in pure anticipation, staring into the dark like it's hunting for the next unknown thing coming for it. Barak can't stay calm. Everyone else is lounging at the table, eating and chatting like nothing's wrong, but he's locked in, eyes fixed on his plate, shoulders pulled tight with pure anxiety. At last he made up his mind, then shot to his feet and charged for the cart, even while people tried to grab him back. Joshua stared in shock, and before he could stop himself, he blurted out, "What happened?" Barak drags out a massive chest and hisses, "This is forbidden, because God will never forgive you if you touch it." One of his companions snaps back, "Then what happens when danger hits? We'll have nothing to stop the army." Barak pounds the ground and roars, "If it comes down to it, I'll stand against that army myself." Then he whips around and calls Joshua. The box lid pops open, and the man gestures for Joshua to take everything inside. Joshua goes stone still with shock, because a tiny figure is staring at them like it knows exactly what they're doing. At first, the boy thinks it's just some person, but when he stares closer, he realizes it's a Kodalaku child, and Barak admits it. People can't handle life on their own, yet they still dream they can plug the military budget by selling the baby. In a trembling, sorrow-heavy voice, Lord finally confessed that he'd realized, too late, that he stood on the edge of a dreadful act no God, and not even he, could ever truly forgive. And Joshua's grinning from ear to ear. Everything feels absolutely perfect for him. The man storms in with total confidence that he knows exactly whose baby this is, then pushes the idea of leaving the kid right there. So Merc leans in and studies the child with intense focus, while Barak blurts out that even half-humans still have people they love. After a while, the other guy finally gives in and agrees to carry out the request. With a flick of his hand, Joshua conjures a handful of swords and thrusts them into the Lord's grip, then admits they've got to defend themselves since their weapons are gone. Barak stares in shock, eyes wide at the miracle, and rushes out an apology for forcing such sacrifices on him and his people, until the Lord, equally stunned, demands to know how any of this was even possible. The young man smirks and shoots back that it's nothing, just the magic of creation at work. Smoke spirals over the rooftops, clawing its way into the sky, and in one of those buildings, his friends crowd in around an empty table, all silent, all tense. At the meeting, Joshua steps up and speaks. Then he rushes out an apology for making everyone show up so fast before he slams the focus on the real threat, the Demon Lord's army. Met reassures everyone this was settled ages ago, and the half-people will rise to fight no matter what hits them. The boy snaps back that he already gets it, but he'd really rather dodge a fight if he can, so everyone nearby goes death quiet, breath held, eyes locked on him. Joshua points out that a peace agreement is the best path for everyone, and Ilya backs him up. If there's even a tiny chance to stop bloodshed, they have to grab it immediately. Reluctantly, Met nods along, but warns that demons once pulled the same stunt, so you can't trust the enemy on instinct. Joshua agrees and adds that you'd better brace for whatever twists come next. The boy points out that their defenses are already rock solid, but he still insists that if a fight breaks out, they should take the battle outside the settlement. Ilya creases her brows, jolted by the thought that the walls are safer, while the boy nods along and adds the real danger. If this siege keeps grinding on, the supplies will slowly vanish, the food will run dry, and the villains might poison the water, leaving everyone to get hit by devastating disease. In that kind of nightmare, death feels unavoidable. Once the fight of endurance kicks off, everyone will be clawing for food and water, and the dream of ever stepping outside those walls has to be buried. Joshua is dead certain they've got to move first, hit the enemy way out from the settlement so every threat has less chance to reach them. Sure, if the plan blows up, the squad will get crushed, but the kids and the older folks will stay safe, and Met backs it up, saying it's way easier to fire crossbows up close. Merc realizes that, out in the wild, werewolves move with insane agility, and the observer adds that the local half-humans stand out way more clearly when nature's watching. Joshua figures this army's real muscle is gonna be the orcs. Sure, they hit hard, but man, their speed and magic, that part is completely missing. Ilya's eyes narrow, so the orcs carry demon traits too. Then the young man leans in and fires back, and if you judge by raw strength alone, demons don't just match them, they smash right past them. Joshua explains it plain. Every scrap of orc gear is hammered from regular metal, but the Fender Coalition's warriors are strapped up in armor and blades forged from rare purple metal. Demons are missing just numbers and experience, but orcs, they come roaring in with pure determination, risking their lives and refusing to back down as they press forward. And honestly, it's downright awe-inspiring. And yep, it's Bish steering the squad. He clocks that every option comes with brutal risks, so he needs to hear what the others think before he makes his move. A tense hush crashed over the crowd as everyone tried to process the brutal news they just heard. Matt is dead sure of one thing. Hit first, don't wait for the enemy to make their move. That's exactly why she's all in on Joshua's plan. Mercenary keeps his mouth shut, but Saraza snaps back with sharp disagreement. She's sick of sprinting in circles, so she decides the smartest move is to duck behind the walls and wait for something to finally happen. Merc fires a straight-up question. Are you really ready to be the orcs' bed again? And Sarissa stalls for a beat, then admits the truth. If the orcs close the distance, they won't get away. So she finally snaps into action, fixing her stance and backing the plan for a surprise ambush. Joshua throws his heart into a sincere thank you, thanking everyone standing there. All right then, time to kick off training. Ilya and Meat aren't getting any lazy lessons. It's straight-up physical training. The mercenary pushes her to train her healing powers, and the shapeshifter swears she'll be dependable and go even further. while Asuka Joshua warns her not to abandon the power of the wind, because it could become the key to everything someday, and even the Tengu nods in agreement. The young man stands there with full confidence, swears he won't back down, and jumps in to give it a try too. Joshua tells them it's go time, and the whole crew jumps up from the table, hustling outside, because at last their moment has arrived. Beneath the glowing dome of Met Skydens, demons take aim and unleash hellish crossbows at their targets. She marches up to the task with pure seriousness, demands that anyone who can't hit the accuracy mark redo the exercise again and again until it's perfect, and for Joshua, that no-nonsense pressure feels downright brutal. 3 months have slammed by since that crew was pulled to safety, and meanwhile Fender's coalition is beefing up its military power, day by day. Warriors confidently command a full arsenal, bows, crossbows, swords, and shields, honing their skills until every weapon feels like it's second nature. The settlement's defenses are hands down the best on the whole continent, no question about it, so the Goal beams and strolls up to the Kodalaka boy, asking if he doesn't think their weapons are awesome. Then she playfully messes with the girl's hair and credits it all to Joshua, stressing the "my" like it means something, and the boy just gives an awkward, stuck-on smile. The kids shout for her to join their game, but she pauses for a beat, fighting hesitation. In the end, desire shoves everything aside, and she decides, all right, I'm stepping into this game. Met watched the quiet girl start to trust little by little, and even that felt like a win. The boy nodded too, admitting the brutal part was the first days, when he had to witness her tears. The girl snaps the talk in a totally new direction, stunned by Josh's crazy plan to dig a moat around the castle, basically a giant round well, like she said, and the Goal lights up at the best part. The walls are getting iron reinforcement, so everyone will have to test their strength for real. The boy just smiles, satisfied. Once you lock onto what you've already built, fear starts to melt, because after the fortress has grown stronger and higher than ever, even the Lord of Demons' crushing army doesn't look scary anymore. These walls will stand up to any storm. Joshua is dead sure that dodging war is worth every risk, because giving peace a shot makes the enemy swing towards softer negotiations. Still, he won't sleep easy without a plan for when talks crash and confrontation becomes inevitable. While that pressure hangs in the air, training keeps grinding forward, and the girl issues her orders like a promise. His thoughts start roaring, hiding in here and only defending won't cut it. The smarter move is to gear up and take the fight outside. The flying mice are gone, and now rival races splash peacefully in the bright, crystal waters, while Joshua grins and says it's time to enter, and Met can barely contain herself as she waits for that moment to finally hit. With pure excitement, she blurts out, "Yes, finally, a real onsen is right here in our village." The man admits it took ages to beef up the defense and attack teams. Now the moment's finally here for the onsen. The demons can barely contain their curiosity as they rush to strip down, and Met shuts it all down with one quick line, "You've got separate rooms to change." At last, every question is finally settled, and the ones who have been waiting can't stand it anymore. Met can barely contain herself, shouting that it's time to dive because she's done waiting. Ilya's thrilled and grabs the call to Joshua, but Joshua just can't quite catch why they're so hyped. The princess grins and says, "Oh, and they even set up a whole separate spot just for you." Joshua jolts from the shock, then panics, blurting, "What's that supposed to mean?" I've already clocked that he needs his own space for certain things, and yeah, she still remembers every single one of those moments. With a bright grin, the girl tells Joshua, "That's why I set up a separate pool for you, hidden from nosy eyes," and she points straight toward the entrance. In the boy's memory, it all flashes back, how they built it because Sway asked them to. His friend adds, "And she told Tengu to bury the truth too." Then Sway just quietly apologizes. Tengu confessed she was certain, otherwise Joshua never would have agreed. Then Joshua said he was fine with the deal, even if there was way too much space in there for just him. Ilya didn't stall for a second. She blurted that she'd ride with him, because there was just enough room for her too. The princess flashes that smile and confesses her dream. Joshua's back, all rubbed and treasured. Meat instantly snaps into action and blasts out that Ilya at it again, while the other girls pile on with their own cheers and wishes. Asuga even steps in and offers to help the boy, but he stammers back that he's got it under control. After watching the chaos for a moment, Joshua finally makes up his mind. Suddenly, a chilling image claws its way into his mind, an imagined loss that hasn't happened yet, where his friends and comrades get picked off one by one. The boy throws out an apology to Ilya, saying he's got urgent business he can't delay, and the girl, confused by the whole situation, stares around before asking if that's truly the case, then quickly blurts out sorry in case their actions somehow threw her off. Joshua sweeps in, tells the girls everything's okay, and pushes them to rest. Yet in his head, dread returns, replaying a grim future once again. But when he speaks, it's all business. All right, we're getting back to preparations for a possible war. All by himself, the boy finally drops the games and goes full focus. He keeps hammering away at the creation spell, and with every repeat, fresh weapons burst into existence right under his hands. Ever since Joshua showed up here, something inside him keeps twisting in a way he can't explain, while the walls of his shelter stay completely opaque, blocking any view of what's happening inside or beyond them. Everything from massive objects to whole chunks of buildings fits inside that space, and the boy isn't even nervous. If he has to, he'll yank a piece right off the fortress walls from in there. It's the perfect hiding spot. Guns stay out of sight while arrows pile up, so he can unleash a sudden, devastating hit on the enemies. Joshua's head turns into a non-stop battle HQ, tactics screaming, thoughts stacking one after another, every new move sparking a fresh plan, and his mind never shuts off as it hunts for the next perfect strategy. And that hits hard. No matter how perfectly you plan every single step, anxiety won't vanish, and real peace still won't find you. One question won't leave Joshua's head: can they actually win? The fortress walls are bolted down at full strength, but war never changes. Death comes with it every single time. When Bish, the demon lord's ruthless commander, flashes in your head, you already know you're in trouble, because his go-to weapon is a demonic horn, one of the deadliest artifacts around, and beating him is going to be brutally hard no matter what scheme you cook up. That's why Joshua drills the message into his head again and again. Create, don't stop. He'll grind nonstop until he finally reaches his ideal goal. Twilight creeps over the sky, and the boy hasn't budged an inch. He's locked in, fully swallowed by his work, while the whole place hangs in the same tense breath. Then Fitzalicia finally steps in. Elijah snaps that it's enough for today, and Joshua stammers that he hasn't finished yet, just before the girl calls him by his name again. Hand pressed to his heart like a vow, Ilya begs in a pleading voice, just say something, and promises he'll listen all the way to the very last word. The girl says this guy always rushes in to help everybody, so now his friends have decided to step up for him too, and Joshua, blushing, chimes in that he wants to do his part as well. That's why he finally admits the truth. The thing that terrifies him most is exactly this. Elijah demands the last word again, like he's not convinced he heard right, and Joshua finally confesses that his biggest fear is losing every single person he loves. Before he ever got here, it felt almost easier. His friends were already gone, and everything that mattered was already behind him, like he had nothing left to lose. Then, out of nowhere, they stepped onto his path. Elijah stares at Joshua with eyes stretched wide, completely speechless. As he snaps back to his senses, he blurts out an apology and swears he regrets nothing from those meetings. But the girl just lets out a long sigh, because it's not even about that. She basically tells him, I just love watching how crazy you are about each and every one of us, Joshua. He shoots back, of course I love them, but that's what terrifies him the most, because Minshu can't protect everyone. Ilya's soft fingers brushed Joshua's hands as she confessed. Stunned, she never realized he was feeling the exact same emotions as her. Stunned, Joshua blurts out, wait, do you truly feel the same way? Smiling wide, Ilya admits he doesn't feel fear anymore, because this guy is right there. A wild shock ignites in Joshua's eyes as he leans in and studies the person in front of him. The girl keeps going and admits that when she's right beside him, she feels like she could guard everyone around her. That's why Ilya begs you to believe in both. She's got the guy in her corner, pushing him to face his fears and fight through every hard moment side by side. That girl flashes a smile and begs, don't bury your worries inside yourself. Say it out loud. Joshua leans in and drops the idea. Maybe the whole, who will be our enemies later, has already been mapped out, and then it hits, the orcs. The boy leans in and tells you their commander-in-chief, Bish, has demon horns, and in every fight, he wields them with deadly, master-level precision. Terror clenches Eli's chest as he demands the truth again. What's up with that demon's horns? Joshua snaps back that those horns are tougher than any metal anyone's ever seen, packed with power that builds up and then explodes outward. Joshua scours for a way to beat his opponent, but right when the answer is within reach, the girl cuts in. She asks if using the horns means that devastating weapon can be shattered, and that tough armor finally pierced. Ilya tears the trophy out of its package and shoves it into the boy's hands. Then the kid leans in, eyes wide, asking if this horn can really punch through the beast's axe and armor, and Joshua just stands there, jaw dropped, staring in pure awe at the incredible find. Inside, a horn is snapped clean off right at the base. The boy spots it, Ilya's horn, and he knows it matters more than anything. Ilya nods, eyes locked on it, because to her it's priceless. Her father paid for it with his life, and that's where its real value lives. And right on cue, this horn isn't just precious. It's a lifeline, letting him fight back and save the people closest to him. Joshua freezes, eyes locked on that corner for a few tense seconds. Then, swallowing his nerves, he carefully snatches the bundle right out of his friend's hands. Sparked by the promise, the boy blurts out that this is going to be the best thing he's ever made. Then Ilya breaks into a warm smile and tells him he'll be thrilled with it. The boy wastes zero time and dives straight into the work. Joshua's mind erupted with panicked thoughts about how brutal this job was. Give him metal and he'd forge a purple katana in a blink, no sweat. But right in front of him wasn't metal at all. It was a demon's horn, and that was a whole different nightmare. No matter how much magic he pours into it, he can't shake the feeling it'll never be enough. And that gamble paid off. Joshua's grip on the blade is unreal, because an incredible katana shines in his hands, forged from that rare, unique material. Ilya snatches the weapon from the boy's grip. He swears it can rip apart even hellish magic and slice through anything. Then the girl takes it with total confidence and shoots Joshua a grateful thanks. At last, she found the strength to shield everyone she loved. Joshua leans in with heartfelt fire, telling her they're fighting together, and Elijah wastes no time, thanking him again for those warm, steady words of support. The girl pushes hard, insisting Joshua needs rest, right now. The young man just nods, calm as ever, because for the first time in forever, he can finally sleep tonight without a single worry. The next morning, the observation point goes quiet. Then boom, guests from the south appear, and a cat-eared stranger strides straight toward the village with zero hesitation. Joshua can't resist. He blurts out another question about those weird ears. Met shuts him down fast, completely certain it's not possible. Meanwhile, a band of mercenaries is already rushing toward the gates, desperate and ready to strike. The boy instantly spots the leader, Balan, but Kodalak snaps his eyes past him and glares at the poor captive, still slumped in Ilya's arms. Tears blazing in her eyes, Naya barrels toward the child and shouts, "Lisa," and the little girl sprints right back to meet her. The moved sisters burst into a tight hug, and the tears come pouring out before they can stop them. Joshua finally blurts out his hunch. The girl really is here, and the balloon doesn't argue at all. It confirms it. This tiny prisoner is his very own daughter. The mercenary admits the horrifying truth. He truly believed his daughter was dead and buried, but now she's standing right in front of him again. Balan remembers the same cold choice he once made, letting people slip away like this, and the pieces finally click. He realizes how that poor girl ended up in the village. The young man shot a question, "Why did you show up?" But Kodalak didn't answer. He just sat there, staring forward in stunned silence. At last, the guest blurts that he's come with a message from the pig general, so bitch snaps, tells him to step closer, and makes him swear an oath of loyalty to the governor general. Confused, Joshua blurts out, "Where are you taking me?" Balan just shrugs and says they've got 2 hours until they reach their destination. While the army kicks off down the southern route, Kodalak turns away in silence, already gearing up to vanish from this place. He firmly believed the only way to say the important stuff was face to face. Then after he ordered his daughters and everyone under him to get ready, the mercenary rounded the group up and led them toward the trip home. Met's face drops with disappointment. She'd really been craving even a few words of gratitude, while Joshua has zero clue what Kodalak is truly plotting. All he knows is that from this moment on, he's trapped on the wrong side of the barricades, shoulder to shoulder with their enemies, and he has to swallow that reality, because the guy keeps insisting they'll push forward exactly as planned. Joshua tells everyone to get it done fast. Only a handful stay behind in the village, and everyone else immediately packs up and heads out. The army barrels straight toward Bish, striking like a hammer. Elijah snaps his attention to Joshua. The girl calls out that everyone's already in position, and the boy nods, shooting her a quick thank you like it's a race. The coalition army strikes like it's got a battle plan etched in stone. While demons and werewolves melt into the forest lining the road, archers and crossbowmen stack up in the back, and every squad is fronted by a fully geared golem. Met joyfully vows that the fear of walking is finally gone for good, and Joshua wholeheartedly backs her up. It looks like every trick for victory's already been tried, but right before we seal the battle's fate, there's one last shot. Negotiate with the enemy and maybe we'll dodge a brutal massacre. Now it's just a waiting game, and it's the cruelest punishment in this place. Then out of nowhere, a hand snaps onto the boy's shoulder. In Chisel-Eye, Joshua snapped his head upward. Matt and Merc were already standing right there, and the boy flashed a grin. An army of orcs barrels toward them, and mercenary squads crash in right behind. Balan just stares at the threat with stone-cold indifference, while Nia freezes. She can't handle the look, so she quickly shyly turns her eyes away. The orc commander pauses, eyes sweeping over this weird little group, and demands to know who these newcomers really are. because the sight of humans and half-humans teaming up has him genuinely hooked. The man declares his name and claims he speaks for the main coalition of fienders. Then Bishi pushes him again, and Joshua snaps in. It's an alliance of half-people. Ilian quickly flicks his eyes away, barely saying a word. Bisha flashes a reassuring smile and insists they're just as much half-people as the folk from the great castle. The orc wastes no time. He jumps straight to his demands, no extra talk. Bisha orders everyone to bow and kneel to his power, demanding they swear themselves as vassals. Yet Joshua stays ice calm, saying the alliance won't bow to the orcs, and it also won't march into a fight. Sharing food and water sounds fair, but Bish just scoffs and snaps back. So you're really trying to trade with me? Still, he caves in and agrees. As long as the settlement delivers him 10 demons every year, he promises it'll stay bloodless. The orc tells Joshua that demon horns are insanely tough, and he's set on forging his own weapon out of them. But Joshua snaps back that this kind of deal doesn't fit them, and the coalition won't turn anyone over. Bish snaps with irritation. Does this guy really think he can contradict him? Balon steps in, dead calm, and tells them to let him take Joshua with him personally. This guy is a total gem. He's a master crafter who can forge weapons so brutal and perfect that even the demons of Gorana can't match them. The general snaps back, demanding to know if this really is the same man, and Kotlak confirms it, swearing Joshua's skills are the real deal. Then Balon fires off a bold claim. There's nobody equal to Joshua, not among humans, not among half-humans, not anywhere on the map. A thought hit me. What if the mercenaries are secretly helping them like this? That proposal to surrender seriously hits him like a gut punch, and now he can't stop thinking about it. The more he weighs how this could help every single one of his friends, the more he can't ignore how perfectly these amazing conditions pull him in. The moment Joshua tries to step closer, Elijah shoots out and clamps his hand, swearing he won't let him walk alone again. The girl admits she'd meet him sometimes, but being stuck in Orseg already feels like too much, plain and simple. Joshua rushes to calm her down, insisting the situation here isn't really that awful. Joshua says the half-humans have stepped in again and again, fighting tooth and nail not just for him, but for everyone's good. No matter what came, they always proved they were at their best. In sheer despair, Elijah blares out that he won't let the boy throw himself away. The girl snaps back, blasting that the orcs can take their demands and shove off, and every rival rushes in to back her up and protect her right to speak, while the princess lets out a heavy sigh, because it honestly kills her to watch it all. Bringing all that up in front of Joshua's legal wife is flat out wrong. Medi admits she can't judge others while acting perfect, even though she called herself an adult. Aaliyah snaps back that yes, she's already grown, and the young man sighs hard. This isn't the moment for this kind of talk. Not even a single thought crossed his mind. Joshua was never getting handed over. After Elijah lays out the bail plan, Chide can only stare in shock and blurt, "How could you even suggest that?" Bishi just erupts in mocking laughter, saying he never wanted to strike a deal from the start. The general coldly shrugs off every negotiation like it's nothing, because right now, he can take all the horns for himself, no questions. With a stern snap, he orders the orcs to bring the heads of anyone who dares to resist. The girl strides forward, lifts her weapon, and goads her opponent. "Show me what you've got." No hesitation, she barrels into the fight and hammers him with a terrifying, never-seen-before strike, leaving the orc stunned for a heartbeat. Bishi jabs a finger at Met and blurts that he's taking her horn. Then he snaps to the team to stop holding back and wipe out every last person, no exceptions. Joshua gets the hit order to wipe out the hidden squads, and the moment he hears it, he knows it's already blown wide open. They've been exposed. Still, there's one spark of hope left. Not everything is finished. The herald booms at Ilya that he's putting the boy under his protection, so the princess can stride straight into the fight. Ilya nods, grins, and tells his friend, "I'm counting on you, don't let me down." Ilya surges forward and hammers them with relentless punches. No hesitation, no second thoughts, because everyone's in her crosshairs now, and the orcs start to shake with pure terror. The fight keeps raging, and like he swore, Ilya slams into place as Joshua's armor even while enemies crowd in from every side. At the same time, Bish throws his voice through the chaos, hypes his soldiers, and roars that before this they were nothing but half-humans. The commander barks orders at the orcs to make the enemies feel shame, and Meat spins around, totally lost, while Joshua spots something behind them that's getting dangerously loud. A terrified orc bolts back, throws the whole area into chaos, and screams for Bisha in panic, teeth clenched, breath ragged with pure dread. Disaster is here. The Kodaloks flipped on their own, and now our flank is getting hit by an attack we never saw coming. Confusion swallowed him whole. He couldn't for the life of him figure out what drove Balans. Merrick burst out of the forest, shouting for Joshua, and panic hit like thunder. because nobody could have guessed things would flip this fast. Joshua can't figure out what Balan is aiming for, and while that's happening, the guy snaps, "Merc, warn everyone. Nobody lays a hand on the mercenaries." Then the time for the plan to go off hits, and the girl gives a confident nod. Rage surges through the general. His soldiers get shoved into a real battle against the traitors. He swears Balan will pay for that reckless stunt, but right then, a savage rumble hits and the orcs snap to attention. These coalition troops, who'd been lying low for strategy, surge into the fight now, and the half-humans with weapons burn with pure zeal and battle-crazed fury. Bishi swears the enemies are lurking close by, and just then a brutal whirlwind barrels toward the orcs. Asuka whips out air magic, blasting dust and tiny stones into the sky so the foes have to squint and shield their faces. The general stays ice calm, like none of this even phases him. A sudden shout snaps him out of his head, and the battle finally begins. Grand speeches are Ilia's thing. She stands there with pure dignity and instantly clocks the truth. If Bish backs off right now, she can save his life. But this general doesn't want mercy. He straight up boasts that the throne of all orcs is his. Bishi smirks, claiming he's got the muscle to bury the Lord of Demons with his own hands, and with a terrifying calm, his dark silhouette towers over the pile of fallen orcs. The stern general growls that he'll never fall to a mortal girl, then she grins and drops the truth. She's a demon, and her horn was ripped off long ago, stolen by Bishi. With a creepy smirk, the orc claims, if that's the case, the horn must be out there somewhere. But Ilia just shrugs it off like it's nothing. She proudly holds up her brand new katana and dubs it her horn, the very blade her father clawed back after yanking it away. And as she remembers what era this tale comes from, Bishi's jaw drops in pure astonishment. In the general's memories, the demon leader flashes back. He dared, then panicked and bolted with his horn as proof of weakness. Bish grins because he's finally met the daughter of that same tyrant, but Ilia snaps back. Her father didn't run. He tossed the horn to protect her. Still, the orc won't budge from his stance. They say Alter couldn't even lift a finger to defend his own horn. Then he bolted, and only his heels flashed. Meanwhile, Ilia's fury is burning hot, furious with offense, and the orc swings his weapon up and snarls at the girl to stare straight at him. B shows the demonic horn that once belonged to Ilia's father, got ripped from its home and landed in the orc's hands, and ever since it's been chewing through half-humans with pain and suffering. Now an orc sneers a warning. Ilia's about to get the same fate, and he'll nail her horn in place too, right alongside the others. Ilia's patience snapped. He was the first to burst into the attack, but that enchanted katana only clinks against Bisha's body like it's hitting stone, leaving him with 0 damage, while Bisha just laughs and mocks him, even tossing in a fake terrified gasp. The girl erupted in pure rage, and it totally cracked him up. He even jokes that without the horn, she's still got enough blood rushing to make her face burn. Ilia whips strike after strike, panicking for her father's horn back, yelling that Bish has no right to it at all. Then her fists just smack uselessly off the villain, leaving her with nothing, while the general sneers that the village elder was simply too weak. With a heavy sigh, the orc admits he failed. He couldn't save his people or even himself. Only his daughter's horn slipped through, and if fate truly keeps him alive, he believes he'll just drag even more disaster back onto his tribe. Tears brim in Ilia's eyes, and with a gut-wrenching cry she snaps back. This isn't nonsense, because her father was never weak. Sensing how scared she was, Mitet and Joshua rushed in to steady the girl, while Bish kept needling her, because debating with him only feeds the fire. Everything he says gets swallowed by the chaos, and Ilia hears nothing but the roar of his own rage. Then, with a thunderous shout, he throws his last ounce of strength into the next strike. That surprise delay hits like a death sentence. The orc clocks the perfect opening for a brutal counterattack, and Ilia gets wiped out before he can even lift a hand to defend himself. Joshua taps into the magic of true craftsmanship and slams a wall right in front of him. A thunderous punch smashes into the barrier, and it instantly gives way, KRRAK, shattering the defense into a wild storm of big pieces and tiny shards. Fragments slam into Ilia at a frenzied blur, shredding him with sharp pain and brutal, severe injuries. The young man storms to her and drops to his knees, and Ilia throws out a heartfelt apology. Joshua just cuts in, saying the only thing that matters is she's alive. Tearing through the general's armor isn't some walk in the park, but the young man swears he'll find a way to crack the enemy's defenses. The girl opens her mouth to argue, but Joshua coolly cuts her off, saying they've got to land the strike right in the opening, and if they move as one, victory is theirs. Energized, Ilia pops back up and clamps down on his katana again. Then he declares, full-on fearless, that the two of them can take down that orc. Bish's voice slices through the air as he swagger declares that no amount of effort will earn victory. We're too weak. We're dead before the general even acts. And just as he's gloating, a sudden explosion detonates almost in the same breath, right in front of his face. It was Joshua who hurled a bag of gunpowder that way and then lit it up with an arrow, but the orc barely flinched, and Bisha only smirked like that stunt never had a chance of touching him. The general boasts that he's the strongest. Then, out of nowhere, his confidence vanishes like it was never there. Ilya strikes again and the orc meets it head-on, parrying cleanly with his weapon. When the princess messes up again, Bisha can't help but light up with pure delight. The half-breed barrels forward to help, but another orc shoves him back hard. Joshua scans the battlefield with iron confidence, and every sign screams that it's all falling into place, because the coalition army is steadily seizing the upper hand. Bisha is the last wall standing. Once he's down, the debt will be paid, and Elijah's father's revenge will finally land. Those jokes hit hard. A demon without a horn is basically powerless, so Ilya clenched the katana's handle with white-knuckle fury, and thin streams of blood started seeping through his fingers. The boy lunges after her, screaming that she can't pull this off, begging the princess to back away before she gets hurt. But Ilya's resolve doesn't budge 1 inch. Those unexpected hits from the girl smack the confidence right off Bisha's face. Now his eyes burn with tension and confusion, and raw rage crashes in as he snarls, demanding to know where she got that kind of strength, while thin streaks of blood start to twist and move around the blade like something's alive. Joshua and he caught on in seconds. The guy was convinced the katana drank the blood of its own owner. Ilya explodes into a scream, panicked and yelling out something frantic. Bish yells in pure despair, screaming it can't be true. Every single strike of his lands nowhere near the target. The general thunders that he's the king of all orcs and brags he can't be beaten, snarling through clenched teeth as he hurls himself at the girl with feral fury. Then his heavy axe slams into her katana, and a sharp crack rips through the blade. Eli's final, ruthless strike smashed every last hope the enemy had. Retribution is fully sealed. Nightmarish horror swallows the orcs whole, because their invincible leader gets the last, deadly hit, a punishment that rips his life apart. The defeated man crumpled to the ground right before Ilya's eyes, and his subordinates swarmed in a frenzy, blurting his name and clinging to his proud titles like they could pull him back. Their whispers get cut off by her proud shout. She beams as she declares that Lady Ilya has crushed the villain, Bish, and she orders everyone to raise the flag. Union banners rocket up into the sky, screaming victory, while the defeated orcs scramble to escape and save their own skins. Yet the friends just stand there, frozen in disbelief that this brutal battle is already done. Joshua lets out a breath of relief and finally accepts his victory. Demons, defenders, and Tangus burst into each other's arms, shake hands, and grin while trading victory tales. Meanwhile, the Catholics take their sweet time packing up, and Yehoshua turns to Balan. The boy blurts out his thanks, but the mercenary only shrugs like it's nothing, like the misunderstanding wasn't worth the trouble. People like him always bet on the winners, and Balan already knew, from the start, who would crush this war. Joshua blurts in shock, "Wait, this is what made the mercenaries ditch their side and join the half-humans." Balan's face suddenly bursts into a proud grin, and the young man can't miss the smug claim that betrayal is a real trait the Kodalaks are born with. Without arguing back, the young man just nods along and thanks him for it, no matter what he's heard. Balan mutters that gratitude is invisible, but if something can be grabbed, Kodalaks will snatch it. No joy, just pure instinct driving the move, so Balan figures it out. They've already won, and Joshua just sits there, stunned in silence by everything he's heard. Now it's crystal clear. After this betrayal, the Demon Lord's army and the people are done with them for good, and the mercenaries are left stranded, with no shelter and no backup, paying the brutal price for an unexpected stab in the back. The guy glares at Balon again. The other guy points out the Fendin coalition rallies half people, then pushes the Glank mercenaries to join up, while Kodalak just stares, clearly baffled and way less than excited. At last, a real smile cracked across his face. This balloon is totally wild, full of whimsical chaos. That's why making friends is such a struggle for him. Joshua makes it crystal clear. In these parts, mercenaries are always welcome, no matter what's happened. Even when they're not planning to stick around, nobody shuts them out or turns down cooperation and trade. A barely their smile flickers across Balan's face. He leans in and tells the boy to remember those words, because Kodalaki are brutally selfish, and he needs to stay on guard. After telling them to get ready early, he watches as the mercenaries finally wrap up, pack up, and head off the battlefield. Joshua lifts a hand and waves them goodbye. Above Bishop Ilya's lifeless body, a lone figure stood utterly still, eyes shut, hands clasped in prayer. A young man steps up and a spark ignites in her eyes again. Joshua tells her he's proud of how she crushed that orc, and she grins, nodding hard. The enemy really was strong. Joshua was sure of one thing. Bitch wasn't just a strong man, He was a deadly fighter built to end fights for real. Against all odds, Ilya ripped out a victory, and at the very same time, he struck back to avenge his homeland. The princess finally admits the truth. She could pull off everything only because her friends stood by her, and without them, defeat would have been locked in. Tears streamed down Ilya's face as she gripped her father's horn in both hands, whispering that at last he could come home. With a grin, the guy clocked that Balan had snagged nearly everything, yet somehow he still chose to keep this horn. The same words ricochet again. She thrusts the horn toward Joshua, begging him to use it for the village's survival, but this time the boy refuses. No, he says, insisting Elijah keep the horn because it's a real treasure meant for her. She hears him out, then nods and accepts his choice. Metzas still can't shake what happened, because even without backup, the half-humans proved brutally strong and basically left the orcs with zero chance. Merc doesn't hold back. He openly admires it, then slams Joshua as the reason all of this spiraled out of control. A werewolf cuddles up to the boy, purring about how brilliant Joshua is, and then a Suha from Wiz leans in and lovingly pats his head. A grin snaps onto his face. Takshi, that guy, pulled it all together, and suddenly everything Ilya hoped for became real. She insists they only won because of every single thing Joshua did for the half-people, but the man flat out disagrees. He hammers home that every single participant went all in, so that win doesn't belong to one person. It's the whole team's hard-earned glory. With a warm, honest grin, Joshua pours out his gratitude to his friends from the very depths of his heart. He tells them to head back to the settlement and join him again. Only a day gone by, and the settlement finally sliding back into its normal rhythm. Then the Tengu guards fly over the far southern outskirts and swear there's not a single enemy in sight, so Joshua gratefully thanks them for everything. Now the tension can breathe, because today the whole place will come together for a huge celebration to mark the win. Right before the holidays hit, the young man decides nothing will run out, food, drinks, and treats included, so he storms through the village, checking every single yard like it's mission day. That weird, sudden noise hits his ears and instantly snatches his full attention. As she closes in, it's crystal clear. Met is the one hammering the demons into real, top-tier fighters. The girl rips into the newcomers, dragging them for the fact that a whole pack couldn't even handle her alone, and screams that they need more training, now. Then her eyes lock onto Joshua in the crowd, and just like that, anger detonates in her. In the chaos, the girl barrels toward him, demanding to know if he really came just to see her, and the boy awkwardly blurts out, "Yeah, I did." Right now, all he cares about is one thing, making sure the training halls are stocked to the brim, and that's exactly what the young man tells the head coach. Met flashes a grin and promises there's not just enough, there's more than enough, because Joshua already handled every last detail you could ever hope for. The man says, "If you need anything else, just tell me." Suddenly, the girl blurts out a confession, like something huge has been hammering in her head, and Joshua scrambles, trying to figure out what urgent news is hanging on the tip of her tongue, but he can't get it. The guy's face turns crimson, but he still won't say a word, while the boy just shrugs like, "I get nothing." If it's so unbearable for her, the guy leans in and tells her to whisper it right into his ear. Then she snaps, raging that Joshua has zero shame, furious because he still can't grasp the obvious hints. Even after everything, she still nods and gives her consent. The Met surges closer and whispers it's real once into the boy's ear, and those startling words hit him like a punch. Joshua just freezes, eyes wide with pure shock. To finish him for good, she goes for the heart, saying she dreams of a huge family and a house full of kids. Joshua can't take it, and with a ridiculous little gasp, he scrambles away. Startled and pissed off, the young man snaps to himself, wondering what's going on and why he's suddenly making sounds like Sarazu. Then he mutters that he's totally lost it. Right then, Merc steps in and demands what's wrong. Joshua waves it off, claiming he was just running, and the girl turns away like nothing happened, asking how the refrigerator is doing. Merc spots the mountain of meat. It's about to start melting. The guy just laughs and says, "All right then, we're hunting for a bigger refrigerator." The girl nods along, pointing out that those boys are top-notch hunters, so now they've got to figure out how much they can bag each day. Joshua nods and says the logic is rock solid. If they don't restrict the hunt, the wild boars will vanish from the area for good, so they immediately call Merc to make the final call. She swears you've got to trust her with this, then drops another crucial point she thinks you can't ignore, so the boy leans in, practically buzzing, and asks what it is. Merc smiles with total certainty and swears that one day Joshua will be her husband. After they tie the knot, a child is basically inevitable, the torch that keeps their bloodline burning, and the young man tries to shut that idea down. Right then, Merc barges in and tells him that this is exactly why Joshua is about to propose to her. Yeah, it's all in the future, she lays it out, Werewolves can only marry once they're adults, and the boy nods along because he's got no other choice, even though he's still stuck wondering why any of this matters. Joshua's jaw drops at what the other guy says, like he understood basically nothing from that fiery speech, yet he's still praying Merc can snag a different candidate before Joshua has to finally grow up. Meanwhile, the shapeshifter just smiles with stone-cold certainty. The decision is final, and the road is already locked in. Merc pins the guy to herself and declares, "He's mine now, only mine." Joshua panics and blurts, "Why are you doing this?" She just smirks and says she's marking him with her scent, because to her, that smell is the ultimate proof that he belongs to her. The hugs from Merc are still going strong when boom, someone suddenly yells at them, and right after, a brutal gust of wind slams into the quirky couple. Suha touches down on soft ground, and a boy stares at her like he's been glued to the sky. Couldn't hide his awe if he tried. She gives her staff a playful nod like, yeah, it totally deserves the applause. Then she grins and says today's the day she flexes her new skills, calling Joshua out to watch. He smirks and claims she's already shown him everything, but Asuha snaps back that the truly exciting part hasn't even started, so she leans in and dares him to follow. Merc snaps with irritation. This tango is just getting in her way. Asuka looks baffled like, why does it matter? She just has to show her results. With a cocky grin, the shapeshifter declares that the succubus will drag Joshua back in seconds and dares him to prove it. The girl doesn't blink. She nods, grips her staff, and unleashes the magic. Thick air streams whip around the boy from every side, yanking him off the ground as he rises higher and higher, and Joshua spins to tango in a panic, demanding he stop. Asuha darts after Joshua with total confidence, racking up achievements mid-run, and tells him that while training her wind magic, she picked up new moves. Before, she could only stay in the air on her own, but now she can lift someone else too. As they climb higher together, they break into a heavenly height, and from there, Joshua stares out at the settlement's enchanting panorama, completely stolen by the view. The boy can't stop staring, totally smitten by the breathtaking landscape. Then Asuka drops the bombshell. The girls told her that ever since Joshua showed up in the village, everything's been growing at a crazy fast pace. He said he just conjured the magic to make it all happen, while the peasants toiled to gather every last material he needed. Even after everything, the girl notices one thing that shocks her. Joshua stays surprisingly modest. Smiling, the young man thinks that real modesty is what Asuha has in her bones, because through all of this, he's never once seen her chase her own wants. So Tenku can't help but wonder, if she slips up and asks for something that's truly for herself now, will Joshua actually say yes? The boy doesn't really get what they're talking about, but he nods anyway, because if it helps him do what they asked, that's all that matters, and Asuka answers with total confidence, saying it's no trouble for him at all. The girl rolls up to Joshua with the same marriage pitch countless others have tried, and Joshua fires back instantly with a cold, perfectly logical comparison. Asuha doesn't back down, pouring out heartfelt sincerity as she swears she's nothing like the rest. Then she makes her promise. She'll care for Joshua with everything she's got, and she'll never drag him into pointless trouble. At the same time, the girl vows she won't pull stunts like that in public again, then clamps him in a tight, trembling hug. She promises it'll all stay hush-hush, tucked away in spots outsiders can't even see, and that's what rattles Joshua most, because her idea of invisible places sounds downright terrifying. The boy starts to blurt that he's finally understood everything, even though this isn't the right place for that confession. Yet Asuka refuses to back down, gripping his words with raw passion, insisting he has to get it now, because she really, truly loves him. Joshua starts to explain himself, but a sudden interruption rips the words away, because something horrific and vile crawls out of the shadows, an ancient, grotesque idol mask, staring at them without a single blink. The boy can't even make sense of it, because for a split second, a deadly, dangerous aura rips through the air like a warning. When he looks back, a nightmare monster is staring down at them from the ground, and Joshua's chest locks up with pure terror, like the devil just tore open his soul with that stare. Anxiety claws into the boy's soul, and then it hits him like a punch. The air won't hold him anymore. Right in front of his friends, Joshua drops straight down like gravity just snapped, and as he tumbles past, he scrambles to make sense of the horrifying sight flashing before him. Maybe it's the very face from those forgotten tales. Damn Hanya. Before the boy could even blink, Hanya had him by the name and already calling him out. When Ilya calls to Joshua, he snaps. He can't cling to anything anymore. The fall swallows him in this weird, silent calm, like the end of his journey has finally arrived. Through the thick blur, like water over his eyes, a familiar voice fights to claw its way into Joshua's mind. A strange voice shoots out in panic, screaming Joshua's name and asking if he's okay. And for a heartbeat, he has to force his focus just to lock in where he is and what's going on around him. The young man snaps back to reality at last, seeing Ilya's radiant smile. He blurts, shocked out of his mind, "How did I even make it out alive?" The princess tells him the fluffy little animals yanked him back from death, and even shielded him from that explosion with nothing but their soft fur. Exhausted, Joshua drags his hand across his face. Something awful just hit him, but the details won't stick. Then he whips his head around in panic, desperately wondering where the others vanished to. Elijah flashes a confident grin and tells them all to stop lingering. Everyone else went ahead to get ready for the celebration. The boy lights up, saying everything's going perfectly, and the girl nods along. Then she promises that if this keeps up, all those preparations will be wrapped up in a flash. Yasip realizes he'll have to handle tomorrow's food, but Aaliyah shoots him a reassuring grin and tells him not to sweat it. She'll grab everything they need herself. Her cheeks burst into a rosy blaze as her laughter sparkles in the air, and she grips the boy's hand tight, promising, with total confidence, that he'll never be left behind. Joshua grins back, fully agreeing, nothing will tear them apart anymore.